Fernan Pellenberg hails from the Pellenberg lineage, one of the wealthiest families in the Armenian Empire, a student at the Imperial Magic Academy. A prosperous family, prestigious education. Filthy rich, yet Fernan is obsessively greedy. No one can match his avarice and his obsession with money. At the debate competition of the Armenian Imperial Academy, the top prize for the winner was 1,000 vials of a supreme potion. Fernan loudly declared, "I hereby state that nothing in this world is more valuable than money." And from then on, people began calling him the Money Hound. This money-crazed man, Fernan, was enjoying himself as usual, receiving reports from the Merchants Guild run by his family. Holding the report, he asked how much they made this month. If the staff reported less than last month, they'd be in for a world of hurt. Fernan would sign off on those who failed to meet his expectations. It was a perfectly ordinary day for him. But people say tragedy often strikes when least expected. That day, Fernan was walking in the courtyard, grumbling about when people would actually work and deserve their wages, when Hyde checked the report and said, didn't he do better this time? Fernan remained unsatisfied. True, it was better than before, but still. Suddenly he looked up at the sky. Something seemed off. On a clear day without a drop of rain, Fernan was struck by lightning. As Fernan's consciousness slipped away from the shock, a strange spirit took the opportunity to enter him. Seeing him, it blurted out, "Oh, what is this?" And Fernan, startled, asked, "Who are you?" It laughed and said, "Who am I about to possess?" He felt confused. Possess? What are you talking about? While the spirit kept rambling things he couldn't understand. Fernan's instincts recognized that the spirit intended to seize his body. He used the remaining mana to attack the intruder. Fernan clenched his fist and punched it. The thing cried out, "What is this? It hurts. Save me." Although the spirit was easily defeated, Fernan absorbed a portion of it. At that moment, unfamiliar memories flooded his mind. Fernan felt like a bolt of electricity raced through his brain. He scrambled upright and Hyde anxiously asked, "Young master, are you all right?" Fernan saw strange words before his eyes. They were a prophecy of the world's end. The ending was near. 72 demons would rise again and bring souls to the world. The descendant of the founding emperor Armenian would, Fernan Pellenberg, heir of the ducal Pellenberg family, would be expelled from his family for collaborating with them, lose all his money, and become homeless. Seeing him stunned, Hyde called out loudly, "Young master, young master." Fernan froze, saying nothing. The prophecy had pointed to a future worse than death. Fernan Pellenberg, heir to the ducal Pellenberg line, would be expelled from his family for collaborating. He panicked inwardly. What, me? Expelled? Lose all his money too? What the hell is this? After that day, he tried every means to track down that strange spirit and why it attempted to possess him, and why he received those memories. The result was that he found nothing, but one thing was certain. The prophecy was real, its accuracy 100%, at least up to now. Because of this, he could exploit the prophecy for profit. However, he did not feel happy. Because if it was real, his downfall was drawing closer, so he had to be absolutely certain these words were true. Fernan returned home after class. Hyde asked how the lesson went. He replied curtly, as always. Hyde hung his master's coat on the rack and then offered, "Would you like some coffee?" Fernan reached for the paper on the table and answered yes. Seeing him staring at the paper and rifling through it, "Where's the news about the academy?" Hyde brooded for a moment, then asked, Young master, have you not been feeling well lately?" Fernan denied it. "No, why?" He continued, "I feel like you've been more anxious than usual." Fernan turned in surprise and asked, "Since when?" Hyde replied, "About half a year ago. Sometimes you seem lost in the clouds, calling you over and over with no response. Other times you make very impulsive decisions, even though you normally scrutinize every little thing. Are you sure this isn't a complication from being struck by lightning?" He was indeed observant. Fernan searched for an excuse. Those odd choices still turned a profit. What complication? Suddenly, he spotted a brief item about Armenian, the heir. He actually enrolled in the academy. Hyde suddenly asked, "Do you have another source?" Before he finished, Fernan quickly left. "I'm heading south for a bit." Hyde wondered, what about the coffee? The Imperial Academy is located on an island called Bardian. The environment is largely man-made by magic. The southern part of the island is a flooded marsh. Fernan rode to that area to scout. He thought to himself that this way he could confirm the prophecy's authenticity. Among the prophecies, 3 things were burned into his mind. First was the future where Fernan Pellenberg is expelled from his family. Second, the future where Fernan Pellenberg is penniless. Third, the future where Fernan Pellenberg is homeless. These things terrified Fernan. He spurred his horse to full speed, muttering no, no. He reconsidered once more. First, the future where Fernan Pellenberg. Second, that the 72 demons Kolomo summoned would rise again. Third is the future where Armenian saves the world from the demons. Armenian, a name everyone in the empire knows. A descendant of the founding emperor, Carlinos Armenian. The Armenian family built the Armenian Empire with 5 neighboring kingdoms, but after 1,000 years the family lost its power. The prophecy only said that Armenian is the central figure. After passing the entrance exam, headed for the southern marsh instead of returning home. The reason he enrolled was to find the map left by the founding emperor, because of the events surrounding him since entering the academy. It was written in such detail it read like a novel. So if he acted exactly as the prophecy described, That would be the best way to verify it. He wasn't just the focal point of the prophecies. He was also directly connected to Fernand's dark future. It seemed someone had even handed Fernand the expulsion documents. Fernand stopped his horse and surveyed the surroundings. He worried even more. He didn't know why Aunt Armian hated him. I can't read the entire prophecy. He never took a liking to Fernand Pellenberg because parts of the prophecy were blurred, so I can only grasp the general events. Unable to see details about relationships. According to the document, it seems I colluded with demons. Makes no sense, me colluding with demons. Fernand searched thoroughly. He must be around here somewhere. Ain't was searching for a dungeon hidden in the marsh, for the founding emperor had left behind a sword. Along with the ego of the empire's first royal knight, Gardner Ulfenparson here, he calculated that if the prophecy was accurate, then Ain't would be the perfect candidate to save the world, a true hero. Suddenly, Fernand snarled a laugh. If it weren't for that important role, I'd have killed him already. How dare that bastard take all my money? Suddenly, he detected a strange smell of blood. A thought flashed through Fernand's mind. Oh right, I remember. He was wounded by a croaker while searching the dungeon. Makes sense, even if destined to be a hero, he's still inexperienced. A top hunter beast like that would be too much for him. Fernand followed the blood trail to a small cave and wondered if this was the dungeon entrance. Fernand stepped closer. The scene still matched the prophecy. He intended to go inside to check, thinking to himself whether Ain't was still here, when suddenly he froze and gasped. Ain't emerged from the other side, his belly stained with blood. Fernand was secretly surprised. Why is he here? Did I arrive too early? Playing it off as coincidence, he warned sternly, Ain't Armian, new students aren't allowed here. Ain't asked in confusion, you know me? Fernand shot back, is there anyone in the Empire who doesn't know you? He politely said, I apologize, but you are. Fernand answered. Fernand. Ain't blinked and exclaimed, Fernand Pellenberg. Fernand put on a cold face and snapped, how presumptuous, I'm a year above you. He hurriedly corrected himself, right, my apologies, Master Pellenberg. Fernand feigned ignorance and asked, were you wounded by lizard men? Ain't answered honestly, no, it was a croaker. Fernand pretended to be surprised. Croaker, that's rare and unlucky to run into. Then he shoved a vial of medicine at him, top grade stuff, definitely more effective than 10 lower grade potions. Ain't blurted top grade. Fernand, seeing him drop the honorific, Fernand snapped, Master Pellenberg. He paused briefly then explained, I have no money. Fernand replied nonchalantly, I don't need money. Your family may no longer hold the power it once did, but I'm fairly certain you'll become someone of talent. You carry the blood of the founding emperor. Consider this my investment in you. Ain't showed a flicker of surprise, thinking inwardly that Fernand Pellenberg didn't seem to be the money-obsessed person the rumors claimed. He seemed better than expected. Ain't replied, thank you. Actually, Fernand was bleeding inside. That vial is expensive. If not for the prophecy, I never would have given it away. He changed the subject. You should count yourself lucky. When I was a freshman, anyone caught would be punished. I'm going easy on you, understand? Sure enough, Ain't was deeply grateful. Yes, Master Pellenberg. Fernand said, all right, see you later. Ain't bowed and thanked him, I will repay you. Fernand pretended to leave, but then hid nearby to watch him, still lamenting the lost vial. Ain't drank the potion Fernand gave him and entered the dungeon. After a while, Fernand followed him inside. Fernand surveyed the area, muttering that he had his doubts, but there really was a dungeon. He saw nothing. Ain't must have cleared it out. He reached for a lamp, puzzled why he couldn't sense any mana traces despite so many magical lamps here. After a moment's inspection, Fernand realized, they're absorbing mana from the environment, eternal magic lamps. He wondered why Ain't would leave these behind. Don't they know how valuable these are? He felt Ain't seemed somewhat naive. Unlike the prophecy's depiction, was it safe to entrust the future to him? According to the prophecy, Ain't was injured upon entering the dungeon and even struggled after falling at the entrance. Ain't bit down hard as his whole body throbbed. He drank all the potions he had, yet the wounds did not heal due to their severity and because the remedies were low quality. Even so, he pressed onward. It was instinct that drove him forward. A sword was embedded on the altar, a long blade that looked unremarkable, yet he couldn't take his eyes off it. Its call echoed in his mind, resonating through his very soul. When Ain't grasped the sword, a brilliant light filled the pitch-black chamber. When Ain't opened his eyes, he was no longer in the dungeon, but in an alley within the Imperial Academy. Fernand suddenly noticed a faint streak on the stone altar, subtle, but undeniably a trace of magic. This must have been where the sword had been placed. Ain't had vanished, proving the prophecy true, which meant Fernand recalled his own fate prophecy and the expulsion papers. Everything the head of House Pellenberg had given him, along with everything he owned under the name Pellenberg, would no longer be his, nothing at all. The head warned, do not appear before me again. No, appear before anyone. This is the greatest mercy I can grant you. My future is real too, undeniable. Fernand clutched his head and groaned that he'd end up penniless. He ground his teeth and snarled at the damned future. Ain't Armian, the protagonist declared by the prophecy book, the destiny-chosen hero to protect the world from demons, and the one who will leave me empty-handed. Vernon sat at his desk doing the math. But Ain't is still an appreciating asset. I should jump on him and wag my tail like a dog. Yet Ain't is described in the prophecy very differently from how he is now. He's the type who values honor over wealth. If I'm not careful, it could backfire. Vernon suddenly imagined Ain't's fury. He'd surely order, a shameless man trying to bribe me with money, execute him at once. He didn't know how to approach him. Vernon complained it was difficult. Hearing this, Hyde asked, what's so hard? He said, Hyde, imagine there's a merchant's guild that's always thriving. If you could invest, what would you do? Hyde set his coffee down and replied, I'd invest immediately without hesitation. Vernon wondered, but what if the guild's principles don't suit him? Hyde answered sternly, what's the problem? Isn't it always said, master, that with money you can follow any creed? Vernon felt Hyde was right. He kept thinking about demons and saving the world, but at the core it's the same: invest, hedge risks, then reap huge rewards. Personality differences mean nothing in the face of massive profit. Still, I need more specific information on Ain't. He stood up, grabbed his cloak, and stepped outside. I'm going to meet him now. Hyde hurriedly reminded him sir, you are expecting a guest. He sighed, looking helpless. Same thing yesterday. Where did he run off to? At the academy, dormitories are assigned by entrance rank. Ranks 1 to 10 are top tier, housed in Ravito's hall. Ranks 11 to 30 live in Bless Hall. Those ranked 31 and below are the bottom of the social ladder. Ain't was assigned to Debes Hall. Gardener Elfenparson's ego, dwelling in Ain't's sword, was furious and loudly roared, Debes Hall. The descendant of Armian at Armian Academy placed in Debes instead of Bless or Ravito's. Unbelievable. If the late emperor were alive, he'd rise up and strangle them all like a madman. Hearing this, Ain't asked in surprise, why are you suddenly mentioning demons? He replied, because if not for demonic interference, how could such an absurdity occur? You feel like you're being criticized. Ain't said, what can I do? I'm here because I'm weak. Gardener Elfenparson's ego bellowed, the descendant of Armian weak, how could that be believed? He suddenly concluded that, to be honest, the first emperor was partly at fault. He blurted out, what? Ain't explained, think about it. He abolished the hereditary succession and switched to an emperor election system, with 7 noble houses as electors. He also gifted lands and assets to the empire. A century ago, the throne effectively belonged to other houses. Armian's territories were no longer theirs, the house declined, and even part of their secret sword techniques were lost. Though nominally still a prince-elect, he couldn't even master the sword techniques. Gardner cleared his throat, but you still have talent, Ain't. I will fully support you to reclaim Armian's glory. Perhaps the late emperor foresaw this and entrusted me to you. Suddenly someone called from outside. Ain't Armian, are you there? Gardner wondered, who's come to see you? Ain't asked, who is it? The voice outside answered, your senior. Ain't pondered for a moment, senior. He stepped out to open the door. Could it be? At the sight of Fernan, Ain't asked in surprise, why are you here? Fernan smiled and asked, are you busy? He replied, no, nothing urgent. Fernan quickly proposed, then may I have a moment of your time? Seeing the hallway crowded, Fernan said, this place is a bit busy. Let's go somewhere quieter. Ain't exclaimed, right now. Wait 10 minutes, I need to prepare a bit. Fernan put on a stern lecturing act. Make your senior wait outside for 10 minutes. Back in my day, if a senior called you out of bed, you'd run out in your underwear. New students are spoiled now. Ain't hurriedly corrected him, 5 minutes, I will be ready and out in 5 minutes. Fernan patted his junior's shoulder, fine, I'll let you off this time, I'll wait in front of the dorm. The door slammed shut. Gardner erupted in anger and growled, what's wrong with that spoiled pompous brat? Ain't explained, that's Fernan Pellenberg, eldest son of House Pellenberg. Gardner scowled, voice full of annoyance, Pellenberg, the nouveau rich lot. Those rich brats think they're somebody, daring to call out a royal descendant like that. Has the world gone mad? Ain't changed his shirt and wondered what he wanted. Hopefully it's not about demanding money for that potion. He said it was an investment. Fernan waited for Ain't in the great hall and asked, did you bring the sword? He scratched his head defensively. Ah, yes, I feel calmer holding it. I swear I don't mean anything by it. Fernan nodded in agreement. I get it, most knights won't part with their swords. He thought the sword must be Gardener Elfenparson's ego. Ain't suddenly asked, so why did you want to meet me, Fernan? He answered slowly, oh, it's nothing. I just wanted to have a meal with you. Ain't said, a meal? Fernan nodded, yeah, order whatever you like. Ain't waved his hand, I'm fine really, and this place is expensive. He frowned, using the old line again, don't refuse your senior. Ain't quickly complied, yes, I'm looking now. The two of them studied the menu. Fernan judged him as naive and easygoing. Why am I being dumped by this guy? The more he thought, the more annoyed he became. Ain't meanwhile broke into a cold sweat at the menu prices. Everything was outrageously expensive. Fernan suddenly asked, Ain't, do you have any goals besides graduating? Startled by the senior's question, Ain't looked up and said yes. Fernan said bluntly, most people enter the academy to build connections, but your house avoids social gatherings, claiming Armian must be rebuilt. So I find it odd that you enrolled. Ain't replied in a low voice, I'm tired of being treated like a faded royal. Even if only in name, Armian is still royalty. When Fernan heard that tone, he froze. Look at that. He declared, I will become a royal knight and restore my family's honor. Fernan noticed that his eyes were different when he spoke of his dream. He had strong will and a hunger to achieve his goals. Fernan bowed his head and gave a perfunctory reply, I see, so have you picked a dish yet? Ain't reverted to his old demeanor, wait a moment please. Armian is immensely proud of his bloodline. It seems Ain't isn't as easygoing as he looks. Fernan shifted the topic, Ain't, do you have any dietary restrictions? He replied, not really. Fernan pressed on, what's your MBTI then? Ain't looked puzzled, MB what? Fernan returned home right after the meal. He thought to himself that he'd roughly figured out what kind of person Ain't Armian was. I had planned to sweet-talk him and lure him with sponsorship. Luckily, I didn't. Fernan began analyzing the stock, Ain't Armian, from appearance and potential to intelligence and assets. Standout traits are intense pride in his family, confidence, and valuing honor. Notes, underestimated, super blue chip, best as a long-term investment, top profile against the end-of-the-world scenario. He thought that if he shoved money in his face immediately, Ain't's pride would be hurt. With this type, a gentle, sentimental approach works better than charity. Now I need to build trust slowly, insert myself into his life. With patience, when the time comes, he'll come to me on his own. Then pull the switch and scoop up the gold, an entire prize fish. I'll turn him into an ally and milk him dry. Just then Hyde walked into the room and asked, the young master is back, where have you been? Fernan answered casually, meeting an acquaintance. Hyde, curious, asked, was it Berchef? Fernan wondered, Berchef, why mention that all of a sudden? Hyde repeated, Luina Berchef, she came today to discuss that debt. Fernan suddenly remembered, oh, today is the day. Hyde sighed, if I'd known you'd be late, I'd have sent her away earlier. I told her to wait, but after 3 hours she left. Maybe Berchef thought you stood her up to discourage her. Fernan reached for his coffee and replied calmly, good, discouragement is better. After all the effort to bind them, you have to hold on tight. Suddenly he felt dizzy. Fernan clutched his head and let out a cry. Hyde asked worriedly, young master, are you all right? He replied, I'm fine, just a sudden headache. Strange lines of text suddenly appeared in Fernan's head, and he was astonished. This is a prophecy, and it's the part I couldn't read before. How is it appearing now? Brown hair like drifting clouds, aquamarine eyes, these only capture a corner of that girl's presence. Her swordplay was exquisite, beautiful, noble, more alive than anyone. Ain't had been captivated by that dance under the moonlight. She was surely talented enough to be a royal knight, but there was a shadow in her heart. If those chains were broken, she could spread her wings and fly free. Those chains, I want to free her from House Pellenberg. Isn't that Luna Berchef? Fernan wondered whether that was the reason Ain't hated him. He grabbed his head and swore, damn it. Hyde froze at the outburst. Fernan quickly explained, I wasn't talking about you. Luna Berchef sat waiting in the lower hall, thinking to herself, Fernan Pellenberg. He intentionally stood me up yesterday and now calls me here. I'm the one anxious about that debt. Luna wondered if he meant to crush her. Fernan stood behind her and watched the girl for a moment. Even from behind he could tell how uncomfortable she was. The lineage of Count Berchef were originally border counts. They used to be a powerful house guarding the empire's northern front, one of the 7 elector houses, but then a massive wave of monsters swept through. Their solid heritage collapsed and their glory vanished. To rebuild the house, Berchef had to sell everything they owned. That included the official charters and the signet and seals that proved their electoral rights. But it still wasn't enough. At that time, the one who helped Berchef was Duke von Pellenberg, head of House Pellenberg, and my father. Was it because my father pitied Berchef's misfortune? No. The Pellenbergs lacked swordsmanship talent and always wanted to obtain extraordinary sword secrets. Berchef's tragedy was the perfect opportunity. Pellenberg prevented other nobles from supporting Berchef financially and gradually forced Berchef into huge debt. That way Berchef avoided disappearing, but the annual interest kept them suffering. Fernan calculated that if he pushed them a bit harder, he could squeeze out their secret techniques. Yet fate drew Luina to become Ain't's future lover. The analysis on Luina Berchef shows that from appearance and potential to assets and intellect, notable points are debtor, talented enough to become a royal knight, Ain't Armian's future love interest, connected to Armian. Fernan did the math, restore the family, save the world, romance, whatever Ain't likes, do that. He told himself to forget about the sword secrets. If Luina has ties to Ain't, he must make sure she doesn't hate him. Fernan stepped forward and politely said, Luina Berchef, you arrived just in time for dinner. To be honest, I'm sorry about yesterday. I was so busy I forgot the appointment. It really wasn't on purpose, the girl said, sounding aggrieved. Well, the weaker party must endure injustice. Fernan repeated, I told you it wasn't like that. Luina snapped, fine, I'll pretend that's true. He replied, no, not pretend. The girl looked at him seriously and cut to the main point. Then tell me, why do you want to see me? Fernan smiled and answered, you probably know already. Inside, he began to roll out his plan to make a good impression. Fernan's plan to win over Luna Berchef, Phase 1. But as soon as he mentioned it, starting in Year 2, the magic and night departments will have joint classes. Luna immediately answered, no. Fernan blurted, I haven't even said anything yet, how do you know? The girl gently swirled her tea and said slowly, you want me as a partner, right? Why would I do that? What would I gain from partnering with you? I'm ranked 2nd and you're 10th. I have many better options. Seeing she was firm, he offered, if you agree to be my partner for 3 years, I'll waive your interest. But on the condition that you accept me as your sponsor. Luna asked in surprise, why would you do that? Fernan explained, because the joint classes are important, worth 5 credits. The girl shook her head, no, that's not what I mean. Why do you not just want to collaborate but also sponsor me? If you didn't know, I have a scholarship. Fernan replied gently, but you have to send almost all your money home. Everyone knows that aside from dorm expenses, you live more frugally than commoners. Sponsorship isn't anything special, I just want to invest in your talent. Luna was a bit surprised. It's the first time she's heard of one noble sponsoring another noble. Fernan felt Luna Berchef was like Ain't, someone who values honor and integrity. He smiled softly and replied, yes, Pellenberg and Berchef are both noble families. But they're not equals, he was sure inwardly. No matter how proudly Berchef holds its head, it can't compare to what it once was. Luna, angry, accused him, are you insulting me? Fernan smiled, confident that unlike Armian, he already had her under control. Even if she hates it, she'll have to accept it, even if she bears a grudge against Pellenberg. He told Luna, this isn't the time to let pride stand in your way. Her talent isn't a lie. Fernan's plan to win over Luna Berchef moved into phase 2. He shifted to a new topic. Actually, I've recently seen you perform swordplay. He relied on the prophecy, brown hair like drifting clouds, aquamarine eyes that only captures a facet of the girl. Her blade work is exquisite, graceful, noble, and more vivid than anyone's. He painted a splendid picture. Her swordsmanship is refined and alive. Luna was utterly astonished. From the look in the girl's eyes, Fernan was certain she wouldn't refuse someone who recognized her talent. Luna froze for a moment and blurted, huh, are you saying? Fernan sprang up and cut her off. I can't forget the first time I saw your sword dance. The Ode to Luna Berchef's Swordsmanship by Fernan Pellenberg begins, her blade, oh how lovely, fluid, noble and righteous, swift as a flash yet gentle as a butterfly's wing. Her every move haunts my nights, how can I sleep? These saccharine words made Luna cry out, that's gross, stop it, please stop. Fernan shouted, no, I can't. Luna's face clouded, why not, you pervert? He lunged in front of her and repeated the ode. It's because I can't find words that capture the beauty of your swordsmanship. Luna, exasperated, screamed, fine, I'll be your partner, please. Fernan's plan to win over Luna Berchef succeeded splendidly. After returning to the dorm, Luna told nurse Serena about it. Serena exclaimed, 3 years interest-free and sponsored, with a clause that the sponsorship remains confidential. And when you graduate, in return you must work as his partner for 3 years. The girl smiled and said, yes, how could I refuse? He said he saw potential in my sword art. Serena asked in surprise, saw what? Luna excitedly recounted. Potential, he said, lovely, fluid, noble, and righteous. And also that he couldn't find words to describe the beauty of my swordsmanship. Hearing this, Nurse Serena's veins bulged on her forehead. She flew into a rage and said, my lady, that money-crazed man is plotting something, but I must admit he has an eye for talent. Luna cautioned her to speak carefully. He is still the heir of Pellenberg. Serena shouted like fire. Exactly, now that Pellenberg is playing the courtship game too, I'm sure he's trying to seduce the young lady with those sharp, deep eyes. Don't forget that lecherous smile. Luna thought inwardly, nurse, that expression, please tell me your type isn't him. She laughed and said she didn't feel he was trying to seduce her, though it was suspicious, but 3 years interest-free would ease the family's burden, so she'll try to endure it. Serena still felt aggrieved. Luna is the class's number 2, while Fernan is number 10. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. Serena opened it and saw a tall man outside. She asked, what's the matter? Hyde announced that Mr. Fernan Pellenberg wished to see Miss Luna. He said he's waiting at the training grounds and requested the young lady come as soon as possible. Serena frowned, do we have to drop everything and run over? Luna was surprised, the training grounds. Nurse replied, she'll ask the young lady. Luna worried inwardly, what does he want me to do at the training grounds? She didn't understand his intentions. Fernan slung his staff over his shoulder and entered the arena. From what he knew, Luna Berchef always ranked 2nd in the class. First was a second-year knight named Almond Donertz, whom she had never beat. But people said she had the makings to become one of the 10 royal knights across the continent. She certainly had the talent to be a royal knight, yet there was a shadow in her heart. Today he wanted to test whether that was true. Luna stepped forward with her sword and asked him, puzzled, I don't understand. What is this about? Fernan smiled and said, I don't want you to think I'm just a burden, so I'll show you I'm not weak. Luna asked, you mean by proving it here by defeating me? Even though you're only ranked 10th, you have the right to live in Ravito's tower, so I acknowledge your skill. However, the gap between 2nd and 10th is very clear, but Fernan insisted, go on, let's see. The girl drew her sword, fine, as you wish. I also want to see you prove yourself. I'll let you strike first. Fernan raised his staff and replied, more than willing. He began to cast a spell. The orb on his staff flared brightly, mana radiating powerfully. Fernan muttered the incantation, on ba nai bot nai r letter 1 ecb h letter 1 ed 3 ng, and a redstone formation materialized. It lunged forward to attack Luina. The girl swung her sword, striking hard. A thundering crash echoed. Luina's strength was unquestionable. Her blade was decisive and lightning quick, destroying nearly all the incoming boulders. But just when it seemed she had it, she noticed Fernand's magic changing. She had just shattered the cluster of red stones. Turning around, she saw his formation had been greatly reinforced. Luina thought to herself, did he enchant the training floor? The floor had been magically strengthened. No strike could leave a mark. Only now did she realize Fernand Pellenberg was hiding his true strength. The magic orb grew ever more dazzling. Fernand's eyes glowed red with smug satisfaction. Rocks on the floor suddenly rose densely and swarmed to attack Luina. She struggled to defend against them. Luina leapt up to avoid the blows, panicking inwardly, no way, multiple incantations. And continuously using such high-level spells, just how much mana do you have? This is definitely not the power of someone ranked 10th. I completely misjudged my opponent. At this rate, I'm going to lose. Luina quickly erected a protective formation around herself. Its power, like a vortex, both defended and countered Fernand's assault. He was slightly surprised. Then he smiled. A nearby section of the wall crumbled. Fernand reinforced his power and launched a new wave of attacks. Luina gripped her sword tightly and struck in a single move. The force was like a thunderbolt, unstoppable. In an instant, the staff fell to the ground. Luina froze as her blade hovered above his head. Fernand smiled and said, I concede. Luina snapped, are you mocking me? He replied calmly, I'm not mocking you. I've simply run out of mana. A mage without mana can't beat a knight, Luina thought. He doesn't seem to be faking. He's truly out of mana. In this state, he definitely couldn't beat me. I defended until he was exhausted, so this victory is mine. She frowned and shook her head slightly, so why do I feel so bad? This win doesn't feel like a real victory. Fernand suddenly reached into his coat. Ah, I have something for you. He produced a small gift box and said, since you defeated me, you like chocolate, don't you? It's whiskey chocolate made by my family. It's really good. Luina couldn't hide her delight. Oh, chocolate, just looking at it makes my mouth water. Fernand added that if she didn't like that kind, he also had Friedine World Bark Chocolate or Crocanink Chocolate, a specialty of the Kingdom of Phrasia. Just name it and he'd have it. Suddenly, Luina realized something and paused. She asked loudly, did you investigate my background? Fernand looked like, wipe your drool before you speak, and replied nonchalantly, I wouldn't bother for just you alone. I only checked personal information on all the top students. Luina, annoyed, said, so that's called investigating my background. And giving chocolate because I want a duel. Do you take me for a child? Fernand feigned surprise. Oh, I thought you'd like it, but if not, I won't force you. As he tried to put it away, Luina snatched the box. I never said I wouldn't take it. Fernand smiled warmly, then let's be close from now on. As he turned to leave, Luina suddenly called back. Wait, what is it? He asked him. What? She said seriously that his mana reserves were enormous, enough to unleash such brutal attacks continuously. She couldn't gauge his limits. With that kind of power, why are you only ranked 10th? Fernand smiled. It's obvious, isn't it? Merchants never step into the spotlight. Indeed, he's a deeply concealed, unpredictable type. Fernand returned home. Hyde saw the tattered staff and many shards on the table and asked what had happened here. What did you do to wreck the mana storehouse and the mana amplifier? Fernand rummaged through his coat and replied that he dueled Luina. She's really strong. Although he'd prepared thoroughly, everything was still destroyed. Moreover, she forced him to exhaust all his mana yet held out to the end. He placed a small orb on the table. Hyde sighed in exasperation. Why would you use such valuable items just to duel Luina Bersha? Is she worth that much? Fernand answered, it's an investment for the future. Hyde found it puzzling. The future? Fernand gave a vague reply. Yeah, something like that. Hyde muttered, could the aftereffects of that lightning strike be acting up again? Fernand sat in silence, recalling the match so beautiful. Ain't Armian wasn't wrong. Luina Bershev's sword is fast and supple and even looks noble at a glance. Now I understand why father craves the Bershev family's sword manual. Besides, Luina truly has talent. Hyde mumbled beside him. I can usually read the young master's intentions, but this time I'm stumped, while Fernand remained lost in questioning. But why has she never taken first place? Is it because her equipment is poor? Suddenly he was startled by Hyde's loud call. Young master, are you going to tell the Duke about this? The Bershev sword manual has been your long-held wish. Fernand replied, that, while doing it I didn't think, but now that you mention it, I'm a bit worried. I wonder if father will disown me. Hyde exclaimed, disown you? No way. He'll probably just kill you quickly. Fernand felt a chill. What? I'm his biological son, you know. Hyde's expression was, paperwork and procedures take time, elimination is fast. Fernand doubted that his father would kill his own son just to stop a plan. Anyway, he decided to write his father a warning letter about the Bershev matter and wait for a reply. When he finished writing, he could vividly imagine his father clutching his throat and collapsing in anger. After finishing, Fernand often had vague thoughts about some news concerning demons, or what if his father really decided to strangle him. Uneasy premonitions surged in, but he tried to ignore them and not think about it. A few days later, a reply arrived from his father. Fernan held the letter with a very tense expression and said it came sooner than he expected. Hyde agreed, yes, in the end what had to happen has happened. Fernan probed whether his father left any personal message. Hyde said no, but his face looked so woeful he could have cried. Fernan asked, then why do you look like that? Hyde said in a choked voice that he had a premonition this would be the last day to serve you, young master. Fernan blew a breath. Don't jinx it. He's certain this couldn't be the reason he'd be disowned. I clearly remember I was disowned because of Ain't Armian, condemned for shaking hands with a demon. Hyde pulled out a handkerchief as his tears fell like rain. My close friend, why now of all years? Fernan calculated carefully, but this matter has nothing to do with demons, it should be fine. He opened the paper. Inside was a single line, you have been possessed by a demon, signed Yvonne Pellenberg. Fernan's face went rigid. He said, Hyde, I must see father immediately. Hyde froze. What is it? What does the letter say? Fernan thought to himself, demon. No way could I be tied to demons like this. No, impossible. Inside, he was truly thrown into turmoil. He couldn't confess that he possessed a prophetic book. Fernan headed to the Pellenberg castle. The butler bowed and said, please follow me. The prophetic book doesn't exist in physical form, nor is there any way to prove it. A prophetic book exists only in my mind. If I spoke of it, father would think a merchant had gone mad with delusions. Or he'd fly into a rage, accusing me of trying to ruin the family's reputation. I must produce something that can compensate for the Berchef loss. He followed the butler to his father's study. As the door opened, Yvonne Pellenberg sat at his desk. He put down his pen, looked at him, and said, you seem calmer than I expected. I thought maybe you'd been on something and lost your mind. Or, a demon defeated by the late emperor had resurrected and entered my son. If it's not those things, then explain why you did this. Fernan answered calmly, I've decided to invest in Berchef, but in a better direction. Yvonne asked, what investment is better than the secret sword manual? Fernan blurted, I can't say about that. His father chastised sharply, Fernan, this is not a request. At this moment you are a criminal, a fool squandering the family's assets. He didn't dodge and replied confidently, I know. Yet my thinking hasn't changed. If you entrust the entire Berchef affair to me, I'm confident I can produce profits even greater than that sword manual. Yvonne stared into his son's eyes and challenged, oh really? Then let me ask again, where does that confidence come from? Fernan stuck to his answer, I can't say, his gaze filled with suspicion. Ridiculous, I've never taught you to act so rashly. You don't understand that this isn't something to be solved with a few childish sulks. Seeing his father's resolve, Fernan thought as expected, I have no choice but to bargain with what was mentioned in the prophecy. I didn't want to play that card so early, but now I have no choice. Fernan replied evenly, I'm not sulking. In exchange for me taking full responsibility for the Berchef matter, I'll provide father with information only I know. Yvonne lightly slammed his hand on the desk and asked softly, information only you know. He explained, father already knows I run a private intelligence network. He replied with a hint of sarcasm that he doubted it was any better than children's make-believe. But go on, what's this big information? Fernan revealed that west of the Arras Range, in the territory of Viscount Donertz, there is an undiscovered magical ore mine. Yvonne exclaimed, a magical ore mine? I've never heard of a mine in that area. How did you discover this? Your inexperienced intelligence network is no better than children playing in the dirt. Fernan replied nonchalantly that children are the ones who dig in the dirt, and sometimes they accidentally unearth a buried coin. That place in the Arras Range can more than cover the losses from the Berchef incident and leave a large surplus. Those words changed Yvonne's expression. Fernan assured him it would be a mountain of money. Magical ore is a type of mineral infused with mana and is considered one of the most valuable resources, so it generates money, lots of it. However, the magical ore mine in the Arras Range is only mentioned briefly in the prophecy, with no concrete details. I have never seen it with my own eyes, so I have no clear idea of its scale. But at least it would buy me some time. Fernan laid out his plan. The shipment run by House Donertz was just sunk by a storm, and their finances are far from strong. If I play the timing right, I can seize the mining rights. He mentally calculated that the prophecy's revelation should be delayed as long as possible. Yvonne said that if what you claim is true, it would be enough to cover the losses you caused, but it must be verified first, and that will take time, so for now go home and focus on your studies. When there's a result, I'll call you back. Fernan replied firmly, understood. He turned and left at once, a bit anxious. Did I manage to quell his anger? Why do I feel like 10 years of my life just evaporated? Suddenly Yvonne called Fernan. He flinched, turned back and answered, yes, father, his stomach in knots. What now? Did I mess up again? But his father only said, while we're at it, have a meal with me. I can't keep sending you away. He breathed a sigh of relief. Ah, right. The heavy door was quickly closed. After Fernan left, Yvonne scolded, I'm a bit disappointed in you. You even fail to have Hien Kui uncover what you found. Note for readers, Hien Kui is the intelligence unit under Duke Pellenberg. Orlando replied sternly, my apologies, I'll have a full reinvestigation. Yvonne cautioned, don't be harsh, take it slow. He suddenly asked his associate, beyond that, what do you think of Fernan? Orlando laughed, you're planning business with the Duke now, you've become a merchant yourself. Yvonne remained somewhat doubtful, I'm still suspicious. How did he find the magical ore mine? That will become clear. Maybe the team that specializes in tracing mineral veins should take a look. Orlando asked again, the Golden Pillars unit? Note, Golden Pillars is Fernan's intelligence unit. Yvonne analyzed that Fernan understands the profit potential of minerals very well. That's why, despite a natural talent for fire magic, he chose to become an earth mage. Of course, the information still needs verification. Orlando guessed that it's very possible the young master truly controls the Golden Pillars. He might even have developed that organization to the point it controls mineral veins. Yvonne smiled with satisfaction. That kid has been obsessed with minerals since he was little. Who would have thought he'd pull something like this off? He looked at the paper in his hand, a magical ore mine. Whose son is clever enough for this? Yvonne's expression turned serious. He instructed, and one more thing, investigate Luina Berchef thoroughly. I want to know exactly what she did to charm that brat Fernan. Orlando asked, you mean the young master has fallen for Luina Berchef? Yvonne reminded him, I've said it, move on, no profit, no investment. But if there's profit, we must fund it. He paused, then added that if an investment isn't for a clear reason, it means your gaze has been captured by something else. If not youthful love, then what else could it be? But I have the feeling that's still not the whole story. That kid who loves money like his life depends on it. What exactly did he choose? In the Great Hall, Luina was eating a full cup of ice cream. Fernan asked, did Alia Tortuga pair with Carlos Denev? She replied, yes, Carlos chose Alia right after I said so. I'll be in the same class as you. He was curious. Alia Tortuga is ranked 4th in the night department, right? Luina nodded, yes, she used to be 5th, but then she improved dramatically. Fernan asked further, you told Carlos you paired up with me. She replied nonchalantly, the rumor's already out, hiding it won't do any good. Sooner or later, everyone would find out anyway. Everyone says I paired with you for money. It's obvious, so I have to learn to face it. After all, it's not entirely untrue. He smiled, well, I do really like money. There's nothing I wouldn't do, Luina thought. Great, no wonder everyone calls him a money maniac. Anyway, that's also why I hate him. Suddenly, Fernan produced a gift. Here, take this. She asked in surprise, what's this? He answered, a vial of elixir and an equipment voucher. This elixir is brewed from mandrake root, and the voucher can be used at the weaponsmith shop run by my company. You can use it to redeem high-grade gear. Luina looked at the expensive items and reiterated, I can't pay you back. He said, have you forgotten the contract we signed, the sponsorship agreement? The girl replied frankly that even so, receiving goods produced by the Kim Kui Trading Guild is beyond what she can accept. It's like a gift. Don't you think that's excessive? Kim Kui is the trading guild run by the Pellenberg family. Fernan smiled and nodded slightly. Luina continued, judging by your reaction, you also think so. He replied firmly, no, internally he calculated, yeah, it really is excessive. But if this price wins Luina's favor and spares me the prospect of begging in the future, it's a bargain, and if she's strong enough to help me fight demons, it's even more worth it. Luina resolutely refused, it's still too much, I can't accept it. Fernan said slowly, refusing the sponsorship would breach the contract. A valid reason to terminate it, and the penalty would probably be. Startled, Luina hastily cut him off. Fine, I'll accept. Fernan stood up, good, see you in class, I've got some things to do, I'll come by later. He left quickly. Luina sat there worried, even as sponsorship, this is far too expensive. She suddenly wondered, does the contract have a penalty clause? Luina refreshed her memory and searched for a long time. Is there one? No, definitely not, right? She suddenly felt terrified. What was that? Did he just lie to give me these valuables? Is he really trying to seduce me and steal the sword manual? Like the nurse said, go ahead and try. But don't dream of succeeding. Class had begun. Fernan stood on the balcony watching for a while, muttering that Ain't Armian should be present for this lesson. Where is he? Ah, there he is. Ain't stands in a group of students on the other side of the arena. The first-year night department's opening class, Warfare and Field Combat, a course famed for evaluating students' abilities through friendly matches. According to the prophecy, since Ain't Armian came into possession of the sword housing Gardner Ulfenparson's soul, he began to shine and rise to fame, and his journey to becoming the world's savior truly begins here. Suddenly a voice rang out, who is that? Fernan turned and immediately recognized him, unexpected to see Fernan Pellenberg appear here. Fernan hurriedly asked, how have you been, your majesty? The other man slapped his shoulder and said with a friendly smile, your majesty, long time no see, why so intense? Calm down. Fernan explained, this is the first time we've met since second year. I thought at least a proper greeting was in order. Ludger asked curiously, what's going on? Are you keeping an eye on any new students? He replied slowly, I always closely watch those on the rankings list. What about you? Fernan probed, did you come here because of Ain't Armian? Ludger made no effort to hide it. Of course, it's the old royal line. No one from House Armian has entered the academy in 100 years, so it's only natural people are curious now that someone enrolled. Fernan thought to himself, Ludger Schwaben, the second prince of the current imperial Schwaben dynasty. The Schwabens have held the throne for 3 generations since being chosen as the imperial house a century ago. They and Armian share common roots, but now, the relationship between the old royal line and the current imperial house has become strained. Moreover, Ludger highly values power and wants the Schwaben line to continue on the throne, so Ain't Armian's existence, bearing the purer bloodline, is a significant threat. Suddenly Ludger looked down at someone and said, "I bet he's curious about Ain't Armian too." Fernan blurted, "What?" He followed Ludger's gaze. It was the red-haired youth watching intently. He exclaimed, "Is that Varen Kalbunder?" Ludger replied, "Yes, this time he got into the Knight Academy as the runner-up. Kalbunder is looking for an opportunity to replace Armian, restore his family's fallen status, and become one of the 7 imperial elect houses. Perhaps that's why he's been starring at Ain't Armian." Fernan knew Varen Kalbunder. It's him. What a coincidence. The connection between Ludger and Varen likely starts here. Every epic needs a villain the hero must overcome to grow. For Varen, he holds an obsession with Ain't, the protagonist of the prophecy. Defeat him, make everyone understand that the past is past. "I understand, Ain't Armian. I will surely cut off the Armian seed. Varen Kalbunder will be the next adversary." Just then Professor Grad called out, "After Anton Dennern, it's Ain't Armian's turn." Fernan thought, Ludger Schwaben and his lackey Varen Kalbunder. With them present, we witness the true start of a hero's journey. Is this fate too interesting? Let's see. Professor Grad signaled, "All right, begin." Images from the prophecy filled Fernan's mind. The victor, Ain't Armian cheers erupted. Ain't won, Ain't defeated Anton Dennern, the name Ain't Armian. Among instructors and students, that very moment marked its true spread. Both Ludger and Varen were stunned. Fernan felt thrilled. Would this prophecy prove I was right to invest in Ain't? Professor Grad gave the signal, then begin. Anto began to move. His speed was very fast. Ain't was a bit anxious. He swung his sword to block the opponent's attack. Anto followed up with a slashing strike across Ain't's neck. He leapt up hastily to avoid the blow, and tried to land as safely as possible. After only a few moves, Ain't was already breathing heavily. Ludger said, "I heard this class pairs contestants randomly. Poor Ain't Armian." Anto Dern ranked 10th in the entrance exam, while Ain't Armian was down at 38th, too tough an opponent for him. The match grew tenser by the moment. Ludger sighed, "Being pressured like this, well, rank 38, I don't expect much, but the fight is boring." He patted Fernan on the shoulder. "Nothing more to see here, I'm off." He suddenly said, "Not that there's nothing to watch," Ludger hummed. At that moment on the arena floor, Ain't suddenly unleashed an extremely fast strike. Anto only had time to step back a little. The tip of the sword sliced a line that tore Anto's coat. He froze, rooted to the spot, staring at the torn streak on his jacket. The people around them erupted in shock. What, Anto couldn't counterattack? No way. Ain't ranked 38th. Varen was surprised by the situation too. Fernan thought to himself that maybe he was thrown off because his opponent attacked so fiercely from the start. His obvious disarray showed he's still inexperienced. But once he regained his composure and responded, the tide would immediately turn. Anto clenched his sword, furious that someone ranked only 38th like you could make me lose. Anto gathered his energy and cast a spell. A blazing red vortex appeared. A classmate said, "Ain't is doing better than I thought, but Anto will still win, right? After all, holding on this long already saves face for the royal line." A girl sneered, "What face? He's ranked 38th. Ludger smiled with some excitement. Unexpected that someone ranked 38th forced the Academy's 10th rank to use his Kai. You could at least say he's worthy of the Armian name. Trying so hard without talent is commendable. Hearing that, Fernan thought, no talent, Ain't Armian without talent. No way, it's not that Ain't lacks ability, it's that his environment never supported him. Ain't was fiercely countering Anto's attacks, and though underrated, he showed no sign of retreat. Fernan felt Ain't Armian was special. He is the one chosen by the prophecy, the main character of this world. Ain't moved behind Anto, and in the blink of an eye, his sword flew through the air. Anto collapsed. Professor Grad shouted the winner, Ain't Armian. Ain't raised his sword high, his face filled with joy. Varen scowled with obvious displeasure while the other students were ecstatic. Ain't won, he defeated Anto Dennern. Fernan thought, just as predicted, the prophecy came true. I didn't choose the wrong person. I can already hear the money flowing in. He calculated that by training Ain't well and turning him into an ally, Ludger still couldn't believe Ain't won. Fernan whistled. Next, I'll try to recruit Leuna. In the joint lecture hall, seeing Fernan and Leuna sitting together, classmates began to whisper. Are they really a couple? Someone wondered why Leuna accepted. For the money, huh? Fernan rested his chin on his hand and said, annoying, we're attracting too much attention. I don't like being the center. Leuna replied, ignore them, they'll stop soon. He changed the subject, so have you taken the elixir I gave you? And exchanged your gear, do you like it? The girl pondered for a moment, should I tell him? How excited Leuna was after changing gear. Even Serena exclaimed, oh my, the young lady is so cool. Or how energized her body felt after drinking the elixir. She couldn't say it outright, she hesitated, well, it's not bad. At that moment the professor entered the class. Is everyone present? Accompanying her was another tall professor. As she stepped onto the lectern, she said, everyone seems to have a partner. No one's late, right? I am Professor Rosalia of the School of Magic, and as you know, this is Professor Grad of the Night Department. From now on, the two departments will hold joint classes. Now let's begin the lesson. Have you all received the maps from the teaching assistants? Fernan was handed a roll of materials as well. Professor Rosalia cast a spell to set up an array. The first lesson will be an outdoor practical exercise. Professor Grad explained the exercise. Nothing tests knowledge better than real combat. From now on, you'll be thrown into a field test. The map marks your destination. You only need to reach that spot within 4 hours. However, do not arrive too early or too late. Arrive exactly 4 hours from now, that is, at 2:00 p.m. Any questions? A male student raised his hand and asked, does this count for grades? Professor Grad answered, it's one of the most important assessments after midterms and before finals. Another student asked if fighting is allowed. Professor Rosalia replied that capturing another student will earn bonus points. If there are no more questions, we'll start now. The bewildered students, what the? The TA standing beside Fernan immediately activated the array. A blinding light spread out, making the students uneasy. Rosalia called out loudly, then I wish you all good luck. All the students were transported into the pocket realm. Fernan and Leuna landed in a sparse forest. He looked around and wondered where they were. Leuna replied that they would have to find out for themselves. She suddenly remembered, first check the map. Suddenly there was a commotion ahead. Two classmates appeared, a red-haired girl and a scrawny young man. The girl called out Leuna and Fernan hello. Fernan recognized them as Jane Hux and End Palin, both ranked outside the top 70, right? Leuna asked, what do we do now? He replied nonchalantly, why bother with those low-ranked trash? The two reacted angrily, trash. Fernan glanced at Leuna and added, normally I'd say that and walk away. But this time I'll follow your decision completely. The girl's eyes lit up, good. Leuna gripped the sword hilt tightly. First, after earning the bonus points, check the map and determine our current location. Fernan wondered, wouldn't it be easier to use magic? She asked in surprise, is there a spell to determine location? Fernan explained, no, I mean we should climb somewhere high and scout the area. Leuna was stunned. How's that different from looking at the map? Never mind, just get past those bushes. End Palin, seeing them distracted, leaned to Jane and whispered, now's our chance, run. But after only a few steps, the two were blocked by Leuna. We need to take those bonus points. Where do you think you're going? Jane and then screamed, ay. But just as Leuna's blade was about to strike them, a protective rune barrier instantly appeared, shielding Jane and End. The sword struck the map scroll. Fernan then realized the maps the TAs handed out had defensive seals engraved on them. Leuna said, right, if I'd known, I wouldn't have held back. He shouted, held back, you attacked them like you wanted to kill them. On the tracking board, the profiles for Jane Hux and End Palin of the Magic Department, rank 77, slowly disappeared. Professor Grad exclaimed, another team eliminated. People are being knocked out faster than I expected. Rosalia wondered aloud that it was strange. No one had been defeated by monsters. Everyone was being eliminated by conflicts with each other. Grad suddenly asked, by the way, Professor Rosalia, is there any pair you're paying special attention to this time? She looked at the array and replied slowly, if you only look at the score table, the pair Ledger Schwaben and Alain Donertz are the strongest. Carlos Denev and Elia Tordig are also worth watching. Leuna is the real loss. Did he pair with her for money? But I don't see Fernan caring about points. Rosalia smiled. Perhaps there are other reasons he chose to pair with Leuna. Grad, surprised, asked not for points. She affirmed, that's right, because Fernan is a student who can boost his scores whenever he wants. He doesn't need to pair with anyone. Grad looked puzzled. He can raise his scores anytime. What do you mean? Rosalia explained that Fernan always ranks 10th, no higher, no lower. Top students often lead the board, but staying exactly 10th all the time is odd, isn't it? The current rankings. First is Carlos Denev, second Ledger Schwaben, third Daisy Harn, fourth Jean Brad, fifth Neria Hoffman, sixth Peter Roman, and 10th Fernan Pellenberg. Moreover, Fernan's theoretical scores are nearly perfect, but he always loses points in practicals. No more, no less, enough to keep him housed in the Ravitos building. I thought he was the type who dislikes standing out. Grad concluded that Fernan must be deliberately hiding his true strength. Rosalia agreed, yes. Do you remember the training grounds that were recently wrecked? The professors scrambled to find the culprit, and it turned out to be Fernan and Leuna. Grad exclaimed in shock, what, they were the ones who trashed the training ground? No student should have the power to destroy that place. She smiled, indeed, which makes me even more curious. He asked again about why would Fernan hide his strength? Rosalia replied, not that, rather, why he stopped hiding it. Meanwhile, inside the trial array, Fernan stood atop a mountain peak, studying the map while surveying the terrain. The map marked the northern coast. I think we're somewhere around here. Below, shouting never stopped. It's Leuna, help me, Leuna Berchef, you monster. I know points are important, but this is too much. Fernan casually said he was just finding the way, while Leuna took on clearing obstacles. He judged that this must be the western mountain region. Leuna called up from below, this side's clear, how about yours? Have you pinpointed the destination? Fernan jumped down in front of her and answered, yes, we just need to head northeast. We'll run into quite a few people along the way. Leuna exclaimed cheerfully, wonderful. He asked if they were going to hunt another pair now. The girl brushed hair from her forehead and replied, yeah, there's still plenty of time. I think we should use it to get more bonus points. Suddenly, a massive boulder fell from the sky. Vernon quickly blocked it with his magic staff. A young man stepped out and called loudly, fancy meeting you here. Vernon Pellenberg, familiar faces. The pair Carlos Denev and Alia Tortega. Luna snapped, sneak attack from behind and you call that honor. He replied nonchalantly that in combat nothing is unjust. Didn't you forget the professor said this is real battle? The staff in his hand flared, magic radiating powerfully. Carlos said, you think I'll let you get away after meeting you this early? Come on then. Seeing his expression full of irritation, Luna wondered why Carlos Denev was so angry. Vernon guessed he once begged her to pair with him. His pride was hurt because I stole you. Kids holding a grudge over something in the past. Luna replied sternly that the idea of being stolen was ridiculous. She didn't belong to anyone. Hearing that, Carlos was noticeably embarrassed. Vernon mocked that the big guy acted like a child. Carlos was so angry his face flushed as he shouted, enough talk, fight. He said this battle seemed unavoidable. Luna replied that was fine, defeating a high-ranked pair yields more bonus points, but because this pair is highly ranked, you can't just stand back and watch this time. Vernon sighed, I know, I will support you, so go all out. Luna's face showed little faith in this teammate. She said, support, don't overdo it. We haven't even coordinated yet. How are you going to support me? He smiled reassuringly. We're a pair. Fighting separately makes no sense, right? Don't worry. Vernon began casting the array. Stones and earth from the ground rose into the and quickly encircled their opponents. Mana light grew stronger by the moment. He shouted, trust me. Outside the lecture hall, Professor Rosalia noticed a major disturbance. It looks like there's a pretty big fight over there. It's the Western Mountain area, Grad wondered. Have the students already started fighting monsters? She immediately checked and discovered there were no monsters appearing in that area. Take a closer look. The Pocket Realm view of the Western Mountains was zoomed in. Grad exclaimed that it seemed the two pairs Professor Rosalia mentioned had encountered each other. She replied excitedly, oh my, two high-ranked pairs meeting like this is worth looking forward to. Grad smiled, wonderful. Vernon Pellenberg, this time I'll see your true strength with my own eyes. Inside the Pocket Realm, the match between Vernon's team and Carlos's had turned serious. Both sides rushed into close quarters combat with maximum intensity. Luna suddenly felt something extremely strange. She wondered to herself, what's happening? My body feels unusually light. A thought flashed through her mind. Could it be a support spell? Since when did he use that? Luna glanced at Vernon, one hand controlling the staff, the other casting a support array. She was genuinely astonished that he had time to cast a support spell mid-battle. Seeing Luna had noticed, Vernon winked as if to say, I'm cool, right? She panicked, this guy's crazy, seriously. Alia struck very quickly. The blade slashed toward Luna's face and she leapt up to dodge. Luna immediately returned to a fighting stance. She couldn't lose focus. Alia had to be taken out. She brought her sword down in a powerful counterstrike. With a thud, Alia swung her sword up to block the blow. Her whole body trembled. The strength behind Luna's attack was terrifying. Vernon suddenly unleashed a beam of light toward Luna. The girl was suddenly bound tight. Her entire body couldn't move. The arm holding the sword went rigid. Luna's mind was in chaos. My body won't move. What the hell is this? Alia quickly realized her opponent's condition. She sneered, got you now. Luna gritted her teeth in response. This isn't over yet. Alia lunged with her sword. If I just focus my Kai. She gathered her energy and drove down with all her strength. But to her surprise, what Alia struck was a boulder. She exclaimed in shock, what is this? Then Luna. Even Luna didn't understand what had happened. Why had she suddenly been swapped beside Vernon? She turned and asked, what is this? He laughed mockingly and replied, oh, it's magic, my family's recently developed it. It seemed useful, so I learned it. It lets you swap two objects of equal weight. Hearing that, Luna was startled. She shouted, how do you know my weight? Vernon answered casually, it's written in the student records. And that rock looked heavy but wasn't actually that heavy. Luna grabbed Vernon by the collar, leapt up, and with one sword strike shattered the boulder. Then she landed and growled, I'll question you about this later. As for those records, I'll burn them to ashes, he pleaded. Please go easy. Are you doing this on purpose? Luna threw him backward with a thud. Vernon shouted, would it kill you to carry me properly? Then he sat down lightly. She loudly ordered, I'll deal with Alia, so focus on blocking Carlos. He picked up his staff. How many more rounds do I have to roll to save face? Suddenly he saw a large array forming in the sky. Vernon smiled with satisfaction. Carlos, that guy, I've always wondered why he hadn't used that move yet. Carlos Denev's signature attack is summoning lightning that falls like rain. And the massive pillar of light formed from dozens of lightning bolts at once. It's a multi-incantation spell, its destructive power far beyond a student's level. It's also why he's top of the night department. He dug into his coat to search. Let's see, I've studied a way to stop that attack. Vernon pulled out two large gems. Now he could experiment and see how well they work. He began chanting. The two gems turned the small lightning bolts, slowly infiltrating Carlos's formation. At that moment, Carlos was concentrating, channeling his energy and casting the spell. He suddenly sensed that something was off. A thunderous explosion rang out, the formation collapsed. Carlos roared Fernan. Smoke and dust billowed thickly, clearing only after a while. Fernan stood smiling, it worked. Carlos shouted in shock, you stopped it. Impossible, how could that be? He tossed the 2 gems down before him. These are storage devices that can absorb mana. Fernan dusted his coat and said slowly, of course, I tweaked them a bit. They're expensive and hard to make, but they work pretty well. If I refine them a bit more and mass-produce them successfully, these could definitely be sold in the market. He smirked inwardly, haha, I smell money. Carlos snapped, using magical gear is cowardly, it's cheating. Fernan retorted that there's nothing cowardly about fighting. Didn't you forget this is real combat? He was immediately struck silent. He shouted Luna. Carlos only then remembered, damn Alia. Fernan urged, finish this. Luna's eyes flashed with killing intent. She swung a powerful slash, finishing the opponent. Not far away, the pair Ludger Schwaben and Alon Donertz sensed the presence of the next opponents. Ludger said that of the 4, now only 2 remained. Alon agreed. That means someone was eliminated, and the assistants will immediately teleport the eliminated students to the finish point. He asserted that no mage among the students could have stopped Carlos's lightning. Looks like Fernan Pellenberg and Luna Berchef are truly unlucky this time. Ludger smiled faintly and said no, this is the pair Fernan and Berchef. Fernan hates standing out, so he's always hidden his true strength, but since pairing with Berchef he can't hide anymore. He's forced to keep up with Berchef's pace, she's obsessed with points. If Fernan used his full power, his ranking would surely rise. In my circle, if my rank drops even a little, they'll immediately rush to trample me. So I can't stand by, someone with that potential is dangerous. Behind him is a crowd of followers ready to obey Ludger. He said that as long as you follow me, you'll reach the designated point safely, and as promised you'll be ranked high in this exam. However, one pair must be eliminated before reaching the finish. Capture Luna Berchef and Fernan Pellenberg. The powerful slash cut across the beast. Luna killed it in an instant. The girl said it seemed they were still on schedule. At this pace, they might even finish first. Luna looked toward Fernan. He was busily collecting the spoils. She approached and asked, do you really think that's necessary? Fernan replied that giant demon blood is one of the key ingredients for crafting healing potions. Luna protested, I know, but compared to your fortune, that's just pocket change. He insisted, even pocket change is still money, grab whatever you can. She sighed, that's why everyone says you're greedy for money. Fernan replied nonchalantly that it's how he recruited her, so he thought it was worth it. Luna shifted the subject, if we're done, let's move on. He suddenly asked how many they've taken down. She said excitedly 7 or 8 pairs, 8 pairs. I'm hopping for a generous reward. Fernan shook his head slightly, you're really obsessed with points. Luna shot back, better than obsessed with money. She insisted she had perfectly good reasons to become the top student. Suddenly Fernan looked up at the sky and said, yeah, I sense a lot as well. At least 20 of them, and that's just an estimate. And it seems like all of them are targeting us. No sooner had he finished than a group of people simultaneously leapt down and attacked en masse. Fernan immediately cast spells to counter the assault. They quickly separated the 2 of them. A crowd surrounded Fernan. Alon grabbed his blade and charged at Luna. She was a bit surprised when she recognized Alon Donertz. She quickly swung her sword to block his attack. The 2 forces collided, creating a significant shock. Alon and Luna were both knocked back several steps. Immediately after, they plunged into a fierce brawl. Luna showed no mercy, while Alon was determined to capture her alive. Their swords ground together, throwing off crackling electric sparks. Ludger suddenly appeared, moving upward as he channeled chi and unleashed powerful firepower. He attacked Fernan. He was handling that crowd and was briefly surprised. This guy's playing a bait-end ambush. Alon saw Ludger strike and immediately stopped. Ludger's face was extremely confident. Let's see how he gets out of this one. Fernan showed no fear. He directly blocked Ludger's strike. The 2 mages faced off. The amount of mana they summoned was so great it caused a massive explosion, momentarily affecting those standing closest. Everyone felt breathless. Ludger landed and in a joking tone said, oh my, planning to just watch. Yet you took out half of the people chasing me in one go. Could you please be a little less aggressive? You hit way too hard, nothing like your usual style. Fernan knew full well the cloaked man was playing king again. He answered bluntly, I just wanted to try for first place to see what it's like once. Ludger snorted and said, first place? No way, how about we try negotiating peace instead? You know there's less than an hour left until the test ends, right? If we fight now, neither side will reach the finish. How about you and Alon take first and we take second? That way both sides benefit, come on. Fernan was still pondering. When Luna roared, I'd rather lose in combat than hand first place to someone else without a fight. He put on an exasperated face and told Ludger, you heard him, my companion disagrees. He sneered, negotiations failed, huh? Very well, let's see what you've got, Fernan. Saying that, he gathered mana. The combined strength of Ludger's side naturally far exceeded Fernan's. But there was one thing they forgot, he was an earth element mage. Fernan smiled and replied, well, save that for next time. Ledger suddenly felt that something was wrong. The ground began to shake violently, rocks cascading down with a thunderous rumble. Ledger shouted, it's a trap. Everyone run. A huge boulder crashed down with a thud. Fernan tapped Luna's shoulder, hey, run. The girl scolded as she ran, really, if you had that trick, why not use it sooner? He grumbled, I'm exhausted and it doesn't last long anyway. The trial ended and the students gathered at the finish. Professor Grad praised them, well done everyone, now I will announce the test rankings. First place, Luna Berchef and Fernan Pellenberg. Everyone was surprised, buzzing, really? Not Ledger and Alon. Fernan smiled in satisfaction while Luna looked proudly triumphant. Second place, Ledger Schwaben and Alon Donertz, both covered in mud and not very pleased. Third place was. Fernan suddenly said, it seems we really did get first. Luna felt the victory wasn't entirely convincing. Although both of them were skilled, we didn't beat Alon. Honestly, I didn't expect to come first. He replied, anyway, first is first. Whether we defeated them or not, who cares? The girl admitted, of course, this is the first time I've ever been top. It feels amazing. Fernan flashed a bright smile, thinking to himself that the strategy had worked. Professor Grad instructed, the test ends here. We'll return to the academy soon, so don't go far. Suddenly, Luna asked Fernan, by the way, you know the new student ain't Armian, right? He answered, of course. Who doesn't know Armian? The girl continued, actually, I ran into him the other day. I really did. Fernan was startled, what, you met ain't Armian? Luna recalled, yeah, I accidentally bumped into him while practicing at night. It was rather interesting. It's like the time you secretly watched me sword dance. That line froze Fernan. He kept rubbing his face, which surprised Luna. Fernan felt strange words appear before him again. This was a prophecy. Another vision unfolded, its content shocking him. What is this? The sky was blood red, poisonous miasma thick and suffocating. A horrifying demon, as if heralding truth, was targeting Ain't Armian. Then a resolute silhouette of a brave knight stepped in front of him. Fernan felt the story had shifted. The prophecies reappeared. Senior, what are you doing, Ain't Armian? You once asked me, didn't you? You asked me to be your knight. Back then I refused, but not anymore. Now I know who you are and what you fight for. This is my destiny. A knight is the sword that strikes the master's enemies and the shield that protects them. Luna charged at the demon, Andromalius, a brilliant blue radiance enveloping her. Fernan wondered, what's happening? Again the plot shifts. The scene changed to Luna lying in a sickbed, her body covered in wounds. Ain't gripped her hand and thanked the heavens, I'm glad you're okay. You're in the hospital, Senior, please listen to me and don't misunderstand. Ain't's gaze flared fiercely as he looked at Luna. Those bastards want to drag you and the entire Berchef family down. They're the Pellenbergs, right? That filthy rich lot. Fernan swore, damn it, how dare you speak of a senior like that, you brat. Suddenly someone shouted Fernan. He snapped awake, so it was only a dream. Luna asked anxiously, are you all right? You suddenly fainted, how do you feel? Fernan sat up and replied, I'm fine, really, did I faint? Professor Rosalia advised Fernan, you should probably go to the infirmary. You may have overexerted yourself with a power you're not yet accustomed to. He worried inwardly that from this moment on, Ain't Armian had begun to see him as an enemy. He remembered Ain't's anguished expression and his words full of hatred, Pellenberg, that rotten wealthy family, so fitting for a hopeless romantic type. But why did I get another prophecy, all revolving around Luna? Is it showing me something that will happen? If so, the name appearing in the prophecy, Andromalius, one of the 72 demons, will he truly descend into this world, and in the near future? Class ended and Fernan wearily walked out the school gates. Hyde was already waiting by the carriage. He cheerfully said, well done, young master, I heard you took first place. Fernan climbed into the carriage and replied, I used up a ton of energy, I'm exhausted. Hyde said, you should sleep a bit, I'll wake you when we reach Leibidus Hall. The carriage quickly departed. Fernan couldn't sleep, he was lost in thought about the figure named Andromalius, ranked 72nd among the 72 demons with black hair and black eyes. He took humanoid form with a snake coiled around his right arm. Even after scouring every book, that's all the information he could find. Well, the war with the demons was thousands of years ago, so it's understandable there's little left. In this era, the existence of demons is regarded as nonsense. Thousands of years ago, they were supposedly annihilated by the first emperor, and since then they've never reappeared. And even without much information, Ain't should be able to handle them, so it's not too worrying, however. The problem is Luna will be seriously wounded in the battle with Andromalius. Fernan hesitated whether to tell her. No, even if I tell her, would she believe me? He had tried mentioning it before. That day after class, Luna asked Fernan, are you really okay? He answered, I'm fine. More importantly, Luna, do you believe in the existence of demons? The girl looked surprised. Why suddenly ask about demons? Fernan said solemnly, answer me, do you believe or not? Luina replied, of course I believe. This empire was founded after defeating the demons. Fernan continued, what if I told you the demons still exist on this land? Luina didn't answer. She suddenly asked Fernan, did you hit your head during practice? He turned and walked away, thinking to himself, never mind, she thinks I'm crazy. Fernan had an idea. If I could find some evidence of demons' existence, maybe I could convince people. After pondering for a moment, he remembered, that's right. Exactly 1 month from today, during a sparring match for the first-year knights, Ain't Armian will defeat Varen Kalbunder, the runner-up. After that, no one at the academy will be Ain't's equal. The victor will be exalted, while the loser will lose doubly. The prophecy mentioned Ledger's assessment. I believed him because of Sir Kalbunder's name, his reputation, his honor, and I misjudged that man. In the end, even the solid backing behind him eroded. Varen became possessed by a demon. He lost everything. His hatred for Ain't Armian smoldered, and through that crack a demon slipped in. Fernan was certain this was the first time a demon had appeared. Even if only indirectly, if I can exploit this incident, convincing people and gaining help will be much easier. And then there will be clear proof I can use as a foundation to expand my plan. The problem is I don't know when, where, or how he will be possessed. Thinking of that, Fernan felt annoyed. Why didn't that part show me? Will it reveal itself when the time comes, or do I have to meet some condition? So frustrating. In the dorm, Ain't read the news. The front page reported an incident during a joint class between the knights and second-year mages. Could Fernan Pellenberg have been hiding his strength? Luina Berchef and Fernan Pellenberg, how did they end up as a pair? He exclaimed, worthy of the Pellenbergs indeed. Still, Berchef is Berchef even if they've lost military power, Gardner remarked. Thanks to Berchef, that flashy Pellenberg finally acted. Ain't smiled, maybe you rather like the Berchefs while hatting the Pellenbergs. Gardner snapped gruffly, don't compare the two houses. The only knight who can stand beside me and the late emperor on the battlefield is the Berchef family. He said gloomily, but these days people praise the Pellenbergs more. The times have changed, old general. The man replied, that's why it's the end times. If not for their war chest in the 1000-Year War, I would never have dealt with those new nobles. An idea flashed in Gardner's head. All right, Ain't, go ask that kid for some money. Your gear looks worn out. Ain't was a bit puzzled. What? That's sudden. Gardner replied, that Ferdinand kid, hasn't he treated you unusually kindly? Ain't corrected, it's Fernan. Gardner insisted, whatever. Pellenberg definitely wants to build ties with the Armian house. The Pellenbergs never say what they want outright. They build trust, lower people's guard, and eventually draw you in. Ain't asked again, do you mean Fernan approached me with impure motives? But my family has already fallen. What could he possibly expect from me? Gardner barked, why are you so insecure? Besides, his motives don't matter. What matters is whether we can use him. Ain't hesitated, but I don't think Fernan is kind for some hidden agenda. Gardner was startled. What? Ain't recalled nostalgically when I first met him. It was that senior who gave me medicine when I was wounded by a monster. His eyes then showed no calculation. He truly cared for me. You told him that begging money like that is no honor. Trust is not something you can buy with coin. Gardner snapped angrily, you're such an annoying kid. Even the late emperor used to say it's reassuring to have a wealthy patron backing you. Don't tell me you've switched sides just because you were treated to a meal. As he spoke, he lunged forward, pounding so hard Ain't had to block with the newspaper. Gardner warned, the Pellenbergs aren't the kind of people who are generous just for the sake of kindness. Stop arguing and go see him now. He'll definitely give you money, as if he's been waiting for you to ask. Ain't put on his coat and went to Fernan's dormitory but was stopped at the gate. Ain't felt awkward. Can I see him now? Hyde explained, young Master Fernan manages the family's merchant guild and is also studying, so he's very busy. Without an appointment, it's hard to find time. Ain't said, oh, in that case please tell him that the visitor is not a guest but Ain't Armian himself, come in person. A moment later Hyde reported back, I told him a young master from House Armian had come, but he said he's busy and asked you to return. Ain't was embarrassed. Oh, is that so? I understand. He left quickly. Ain't told Gardner, you said he'd give me money, as if he were waiting. Gardner replied, he's busy, so I bothered him. No, this is strange. Fernan Pellenberg wouldn't react like that. Fernan stood on the upper floor looking down, surprised. I'd thought this bait wasn't tempting enough, yet he reached out first. At that moment Hyde opened the door and entered the room. He said, as you instructed, I escorted Ain't Armian back. Fernan replied, good job. Hyde wondered, but you've been watching Ain't Armian closely. Why let him go so easily, even after you checked his class? He explained, the fact he came to find me so quickly is a bit odd. Many people come to the Pellenbergs, but their aims are the same. Maybe Ain't is the same, but that makes it even stranger. He's not the type to easily ask others for help. I have a feeling this time he didn't come because he truly wanted to. If I'm sure he's put his trust in me, then it won't be too late to lure him. Hyde was a bit puzzled. Do you really need to go this far for the descendant of a fallen imperial house? He took a sip of tea and said, Ain't has exceptional potential. If we can get him fully on our side, he'd be a valuable ally. Hyde picked up the teapot and poured another cup, but if you let him leave like that, won't you lose the chance? Vernon calculated, of course I'll leave a way back in. He ordered Hyde to go to the main family vault and bring all the rare elixirs here for Ain't. Hyde was astonished. What? The Duke's vault holds extremely precious elixirs. If we give him such costly items and get no result, the loss would be huge. Vernon said, then I'll give him something even pricier. There's nothing in this world you can't buy. Money can get anything. If you haven't bought it yet, it just means you don't have enough money. Cut to Deb's dormitory. Hyde delivered the items to Ain't. After he left, Gardner asked, did you meet the Pellenberg steward? Why did he come to apologize for not letting you in? Vernon replied, no, he only left this box and a note, then left. Gardner examined it and said, an apology letter from a Pellenberg, that's almost conscientious of them. Let me see what he wrote, ha, these are the elixirs I prepared especially for you, please accept them. Signed, Senior Vernon. After reading, Gardner exploded with rage. What? That bastard ends every line with it, he implying seniority even above the royal family. Ain't mumbled, fine then. He opened the box and Ain't's eyes suddenly froze. This is. Gardner hurried closer. What is it? Is something unusual? He was stunned. This is the heart of a holy bird. My God, the holy bird is the sacred avian representing light. An elixir distilled from its heart is perfect for combining with House Armand's light sword techniques. Gardner laughed with delight. This Vernon fellow is arrogant to the bone. See, he couldn't buy it with money, but in the end it proved worth it when someone came to see him. Ain't was deeply moved, Senior Vernon. I never expected you to value someone as useless as me so much. I must strive harder not to disappoint Senior. Seeing you so sentimental, Gardner reminded him, hey idiot, it's not what you think. A few days later, Vernon sat in a chair reading the paper and asked, so how did it turn out? Hyde reported, Ain't Armian defeated Varon Kalbunder. Kalbunder's sword technique was somewhat superior, but Armian's vigor completely dominated. Vernon replied lightly, oh, is that so? Thinking to himself, the prophecy said he would win by a hair. Did that kid ain't use an elixir? Hyde guessed, might it be thanks to the elixir you gave him, sir? Vernon whistled, it probably had some effect. He asked again, so you mean that even without the elixir, Armian could still have one? Vernon flipped the paper to the next page and gave an ambiguous answer. Who can say for sure? He thought inwardly, but true to the prophecy, Ain't defeated Varon, and soon. Varon will be possessed by a demon. This is the perfect opportunity to find proof that demons still exist. He instructed Hyde to continue monitoring Varon Kalbunder for now. Hyde was a bit surprised. Varon Kalbunder, so not following Armian. Vernon said, yes, track the places Varon goes. I want to find how the demon tempts him. The people he interacts with and their conversations. Hyde was puzzled. Kalbunder, not Armian. Vernon wondered how a demon that had been gone for 1,000 years could reappear in this world. I want to know everything. All detailed information about Varon should be reported continuously, down to the smallest actions. Varon wakes in the night to use the bathroom. Then he goes to get his hair done at Platina. Varon changes swords in the city, then clutches his stomach and runs straight to the latrine. Varon trains on the field, then again clutches his stomach and runs to the bathroom. Vernon was taking the midterm for Intro to Spatial Magic. A big sign on the board read, textbooks required, anti-cheat magic always active. He finished the test quickly while his classmates were still tearing at their hair. He thought, it's been 2 weeks since I began monitoring Varon, but terrifyingly, nothing has happened. This is not good at all. That evening, Vernon sat on his bed reviewing Varon's activity report. There should have been a major incident by now. So why does this guy keep running to the bathroom all day? Is that kid Hyde slacking off, or is the prophecy that Varon will be possessed wrong? He picked up a pen and jotted key points. Varon, toilet addict, irritable bowel syndrome, stress, cause, ain't maybe. Vernon speculated that if the prophecy's crucial part about the demon is wrong, he might have to reassess its reliability. After his defeat by Ain't, Varon, always grinding his teeth in rage, finally met Ain't again at the midterms. Varon charged straight at Ain't. But the outcome of that duel was already decided. Someone who had once failed to beat Ain't couldn't turn the tide. Ain't was not careless. Moreover, he had Gardner Fenfarson, the best instructor, standing beside him. Ain't left Varon, who had fallen behind him, unaware. That demonic energy had begun seeping into Varon's body and mind, slowly devouring him. A flash of electricity shot through his head. Vernon startled and sat bolt upright. He looked around and wondered, what, it's morning already. I must have fallen asleep. Vernon held his forehead and complained, now I even dream about the prophecy. He got out of bed thinking, at least I now know the exact timing. Varon will be possessed after he loses to Ain't once more in the midterm duel. Vernon muttered, the first-year knight's midterm combat exam is on. Isn't it today? Damn. The prophecy said Ain't would fight him during the exam. From the start, Varon rushed Ain't, but the outcome was set. Defeating an opponent who seemed unbeatable wasn't luck. Ain't had Gardner Ulfenfarson as his coach, and everything became painfully clear. Hyde opened the door and stepped into the room, surprised. "Young master, you're up early, come have some breakfast." Fernan was standing by his desk, taking weapons out to inspect them and not replying. Hyde repeated, "Young master, what are you planning to do now?" Fernan suddenly said, "Oh, Hyde, perfect timing. I'm going to observe the first-year Knights midterm. I need an escort, so come with me." Hyde answered, "I've been called back to the Duke's manor. I have to return soon." He muttered, "Damn, why today of all days? Fine, I'll go with someone else." Hyde asked, "Someone else who?" "You don't have any friends at the academy, sir. Are you seriously asking that? With your usual haughty nature, where would friends even come from?" Fernan irritably replied, "I do." He suddenly remembered that there was indeed one friend he had bought with money. Luina stood with her arms crossed at the door and asked in surprise, "You need an escort just to fetch elixirs?" "It's exam season, do you really have to go today?" Luina hesitated. Fernan pressed, "If we delay, the potion's effectiveness will drop, so I must go now." Luina replied, "I'm busy studying for exams too." He bargained, "If you come with me, I'll waive interest on Berchef's debt for a few months after graduation." Before he could finish the second offer, the girl immediately said, "I'm in." As they stepped into the courtyard, Luina asked, "So where are we going?" Fernan replied, "The Northern Mountains." The girl snapped, "What? That's where the midterms for first years are being held. If upperclassmen sneak in, I could be disciplined for violating regulations." He said casually, "There's nothing money can't buy in this world." Luina frowned, "You say that out loud, have you bribed someone?" Then she answered herself, "Of course the one taking bribes would be Professor Grad, shameless." Fernan looked pleased. "Professor Grad is flexible like that, I like him." Suddenly Luina said, "I'm heading back to the dorm." Fernan froze and shouted, "What? No, it's almost done. I told you no one will notice, you won't be punished." "You're a knight and you go back on your word," Luina said coldly. "No, I forgot my sword." Watching her hum a tune and skip inside, he breathed a sigh of relief. "Oh, I see, go get it quickly." They quickly disguised themselves and entered the Northern Mountains. "We must stay hidden so the professors and TAs don't spot us." Fernan whispered, "Even if I did bribe Professor Grad, doing it openly would be a big problem." Luina snapped, "Exactly, it's still a big issue." "You know it's a problem and you still do it," he replied. "Right, you really are a good kid, keep living like that." She was left speechless at him. Fernan opened the map to check the route. "Wait, let me see where to go." He thought to himself, Ain't is currently ranked second in the department, right? Number 2, here, he discovered the boy was very close to Varen, who was ranked third. Have they already crossed paths? We must hurry. Fernan crept along, hugging the bushes and whispered, "Take this path, hurry." Luina suddenly recalled, "Wait, this the professor's map? A student holding a professor's map is against the rules." "How much did you bribe Professor Grad anyway?" she kept nagging. Fernan suddenly wondered if he was wrong to bring her along. She should have quietly followed. Then he heard a strange sound. Luina exclaimed, "Wasn't that a monster noise a moment ago?" Fernan worried inwardly, "Don't tell me." From the other side came a scream. "Aaa." Luina sprang up. "That's where the first-year students are. I've got to go see." He shouted, "What? Wait." "Luina, it's dangerous to go alone. Stop." But the girl ran off. Fernan had no choice but to follow Luina. The two of them quickly found the first-year students. Luina sat down to inspect. He's unconscious. It seems the monster attacked, but thanks to the defensive magic on the map, he wasn't injured. But something's very strange. The monsters in this area aren't normally this aggressive. Fernan gritted his teeth. "Damn it, this started earlier than I expected. I haven't even checked Varen's condition yet." A roar rang out again. Luina and Fernan looked up to the sky, feeling the pressure rising by the moment. Luina, a little frightened, asked, "Fernan, what on earth is happening?" A thunderous explosion appeared right in front of them. Luina cried out, "Where are we?" She suddenly noticed movement behind them. The sound of heavy footsteps thudding toward the two of them. A giant boar-headed monster wielding a large log charged at them. Luina immediately drew her sword and attacked proactively. A sharp cut severed its arm, blood spraying everywhere. The severed arm fell to the ground. The monster kept attacking. Luina was surprised. Why didn't it stop? Its arm had been chopped off already. The boar-headed monster, eyes blazing red, lunged straight at Luina. At that moment, the ground beneath their feet suddenly shook. Sharp rocks speared toward the monster. Fernan continued casting magic. The earth kept coalescing into pointed drills. The staff in his hand glowed bright as it launched those drills straight at the boar-headed creature. Thuck, 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 the volley of enchanted spikes plunged into its back. Luina leapt aside to avoid the attack. She kicked off a large tree trunk. The boar monster immediately pursued her. Luina vaulted high. The creature's massive bulk slammed forward, toppling a tree. Luina landed on the ground, stood beside Fernan and asked in panic, "What exactly is that?" He answered, "That's called a berserk. It's no longer capable of feeling pain." A berserk monster far surpasses ordinary monsters in level. They're obsessed with killing every living thing they see. To kill one, you must behead it. Luina wondered why the monster had suddenly gone mad. Fernan recalled the prophecy that mentioned monsters rampaging everywhere because of a demon. While the professors and TAs were busy handling the sudden anomalies, Varen used the demonic power he had received to attack Ain't. and Ain't, driven to the edge, finally awaken. In many dramas, whenever the protagonist falls into crisis, all the troubles come crashing down at once. Now it's exactly the same. Thinking that, Fernan couldn't help smiling. Luna saw this and snapped, I'm asking why the monster's berserk. Why are you smiling? Are you enjoying this? Is this situation funny to you? Fernan raised his staff and began casting, speaking softly, Luna, now deal with that leech first. She thought to herself that he definitely knew something. The map sheet floated in the air, slowly dissolving. Varen knelt on the ground, whispering again. You again, Ain't Armian. Ain't stood before him, gripping the sword's hilt. He turned to walk away, but suddenly Varen said, you think this is over? Not yet. Ain't declared, no, it's over. The match is decided. The loser is you, Varen, you lost. Hearing this, Varen was deeply shaken. I must win, I must win. He recalled Ludger's expression when he said, sorry, my expectations were a bit high. No need to apologize. Varen was tormented. I've disappointed the prince's expectations. I must win, I must win. Lord Kalbundar will surely mock him. Poor thing, your younger brother is better than you. Varen lamented that he'd also disappointed his family's expectation. If he loses this, he could lose his place as heir. In his head, only one phrase repeated, I must win, I must win. He clenched his hand, veins bulging and twitching. Varen told himself, I have to defeat him. Varen charged forward with the last of his strength, shouting, stop right there, Ain't Armian. Ain't looked at him with complete confidence, while Varen now could only muster a feeble murderous intent. Ain't coldly unleashed a flurry of sword strikes. The sword aura flashed, carving straight lines across the sky. Varen fell to the ground, motionless. Gardner snapped, why does he always throw himself at you like he wants to die? He's so weak and still can't accept defeat. He's a coward who tarnishes a knight's dignity. Kill him. Ain't replied, I can't. Gardner protested that if they let him live, he'd disgrace the knights. Ain't explained, this isn't a real fight, it's just an exam. Please say something reasonable. If I leave him, the assistant will come and take him away soon. Back with Luna and the berserk monster, the two of them had defeated it without much difficulty. He felt it wasn't very strong. Luna pondered for a moment, then suggested, Fernan, I think we should abandon the elixir. Leave this to the professor and the TA, then get out of here quickly. He calmly replied, no, I can't give up. I'll slip through those monsters and head west. Seeing Fernan's recklessness, she yelled, are you out of your mind? He tugged his cloak and said, out of my mind, you just defeated a berserk, don't you get it? They're persistent but not impossible to kill. Luna suddenly asked, did you foresee this would happen, so you said you needed an escort? He felt a pang of guilt but answered firmly, no, how could I have predicted it? She was still worried, never mind, I just feel this is wrong. Is the elixir more important than lives? Unexpectedly, Fernan replied boldly, of course it is. The elixir is more important than life. With that he dashed off. Luna snapped in anger, Fernan, hey, you madman. But she immediately followed him, unwilling to let him go alone. They reached a sparse grove. Luna asked, is this the place with the elixir? Fernan answered, yes. He observed for a moment and thought to himself, damn, it looks like the fight with Ain't is over too late. Luna spotted someone lying motionless and called out, Fernan, someone's passed out over there. He urgently warned, Luna, wait, don't go near. But Luna didn't listen to him. She stepped forward and flipped the young man over. Seeing the familiar face, Luna was surprised. Varen Kalbundar, I remember, he's quite capable. Who did this to him? She checked his pulse and said, he seems to have fainted during the fight. We need to lift him up. Come help me. Fernan refused. I told you no, stay away from Varen. Luna glared at him in frustration and said, stay back, are you going to leave him here? What if a berserk monster comes by? At least we should drag him somewhere safe. Just then Varen slowly stood up. Luna quickly noticed something was off. She immediately stepped back a few paces, her face turning panic. What is this aura? Varen's gaze had gone vacant, his pupils emitted a strange, eerie aura. Luna cried out, I've never felt an aura like this before. Varen Kalbundar, no, is that really Kalbundar? Fernan replied, that's demonic energy. Luna, astonished, said, demonic energy? You mean the dark aura that demons give off? He confirmed, yes, Varen Kalbundar, that bastard is possessed by a demon. They both stared at Varen. He truly was no longer human. Fernan thought to himself that something was off. According to the prophecy, after being possessed, Varen should have attacked Ain't as soon as he woke. But it seemed the target had changed. Luna suddenly asked, are you saying a demon has taken over Kalbundar's body and returned to this world? How do you even know that? He seemed not to hear. Fernan's face was full of worry. Look into his eyes, he's completely lost his reason. Luna urged anxiously, we have to subdue Kalbundar first. Fernan suddenly patted her shoulder and said, Luna, wait for me 10 minutes. She turned back and asked, what are you doing? Her companions were nowhere to be seen. Where had Fernan gone? At that moment, Varen lunged to attack. Luna shouted, you lunatic. She blocked the blow and yelled, Kalbundar, it's me, Bershif. But Varen could no longer tell. He attacked frenziedly, and the demonic power made his strikes far more powerful. Luna struggled to defend herself, thinking, he's too strong. At this rate, I'll be driven back. Luna summoned a large amount of mana, forcing to push him away. Varen collapsed with a thud to the ground. Luna struck him once more. Varen Kalbundar snapped out of it. He was in pain, but still controlled by demonic energy. Varen gritted his teeth, grabbed his sword and launched a counterattack. Luna leapt up to avoid it. Seizing the chance, Varen sat up and quickly tended his wounds. Luna channeled her energy to increase her strength. Spiritual energy radiated intensely. Black energy pouring from Varen grew thicker by the moment. He lunged at Luna with brutal force. The two of them clashed in close combat, the impact shaking the whole grove. After a while, Luna began to tire. She stopped, thinking to herself that her spiritual power was depleting faster because the demonic energy kept pouring from him. What should I do now? At this rate, I'll be drained completely soon. But it's not without options. While worrying and searching for the next move, Luna suddenly looked to the other side. Fernan, he, standing opposite, called, "Over here, Luna." Varen turned to look, and Luna jumped up, stomping on his head, then sprinted over to Fernan. He immediately led the way. "This way, quick," she shouted. "What are you doing showing up now?" "No, why are you running away?" Fernan replied slowly. "Why? Because he's a demon, of course." The two continued bickering, even with Varen right behind them. Luna, exasperated, said, "You ran to save your own skin. Do you even have the right to call yourself a person?" He protested. "I didn't run away. I set up a formation to restrain Kalbunder. He's not someone who can be easily contained. It's probably about time he falls into the trap." No sooner had Fernan finished speaking than Varen, indeed, stumbled into the formation he'd prepared. A thunderous explosion rang out as countless rocks in Varen were sucked into the aerial formation. A brilliant golden light suddenly appeared and struck Varen. The blazing golden light hit Varen, pinning him flat to the ground. Luna worriedly said, "You didn't have to go that far. What if Kalbunder dies because of that trap? What will you do then?" He exclaimed, "He won't die. Look. If anything, it seems we've only made him angrier." Just as he said, Varen sprang up, his inner power surging even stronger than before. Luna suddenly said, "Fernan, after fighting Kalbunder, I realized." Fernan cut her off. "I didn't want to use this, but there may be no other choice." He pulled out a bright red stone and muttered an incantation under his breath. A roaring red flame quickly appeared, engulfing Varen. Fernan continued the spell. The formation grew ever more radiant. An overwhelming power burst forth and struck Varen directly. Boom, boom, the ground shook violently as searing flames burned away the dark energy clinging to him. After a while, he collapsed to the ground, motionless. Fernan wiped his brow and breathed a sigh of relief. It worked. The plan succeeded. That was dangerous. Luna, puzzled, asked, "The plan succeeded? The items you used just now were extremely expensive, weren't they? Don't you think that was wasteful?" Fernan replied, "It was costly, but the situation demanded it." Luna grumbled that if they'd coordinated, they could have taken him down without such luxury items. Fernan explained, "What are you talking about? He's possessed. Can't you see the blackened skin and those blazing red eyes and that terrifying demonic aura?" Luna countered that outwardly he did look like a world destroyer, but at his core he was still Varen Kalbunder. Fernan was startled. "Still Varen Kalbunder?" He reasoned for a moment that Ain't Armian must have struggled greatly to awaken. Thinking back, even if Ain't Armian is the world's savior, he's still only a first-year student who hasn't awakened his full power. Given the current strength, Luna, you're a second-year student and naturally stronger than Ain't. Fernan suddenly felt angry. "Did I make such a simple mistake?" Luna said. "I told you before we didn't need to do all that extra stuff and you wouldn't listen." Fernan inwardly complained that he'd been so focused on the word demon he'd forgotten the most important thing. "Oh man, holy relics are insanely expensive. Rolls of enchanted paper are crazy pricey, just to set a trap." Seeing him dazed, Luna lightly tapped Fernan's face and said, "You're staring into space. Fernan, are you okay?" She held up one finger and asked, "How many was that?" All he could think was how much all those items had cost in total. How much had they cost? Varen began to stir, clutching his head in pain, his eyes rolled white and vacant. He charged forward again. Fernan threw a powerful punch, slamming into his face while shouting, "How much did it cost?" Varen crumpled to the ground and fainted once more. Fernan snapped, "What a troublesome kind of demon this is." Seeing he wasn't done, Luna stopped him. "Fernan." Varen stared at the recording orb before him and asked in astonishment, "Is that me?" "It can't be," Fernan said. "The recording orb captured everything exactly. Everything that happened. It can't be faked." He cried in panic, "I don't remember anything after the fight with Ain't Armian." Fernan replied loudly, "That's why the senior is being kind and explaining it to you again. After losing to Ain't, you were possessed by a demon and attacked us." Varen protested loudly, "I've never even met a demon. Why do you all keep insisting I'm possessed?" Fernan suddenly lowered his voice. "Varen, you've watched the recording orb, so you should understand. You were hit by a direct blast. Your body was pierced by dozens of magical arrows, then engulfed in a pillar of hellfire that burned you completely. Yet you're still alive because demonic energy shielded your body." Hearing this, Varen was stunned. Thinking back, "I'm really not dead." Fernan sighed with regret, "And I spent who knows how many things to stop your demon-possessed form." He hesitated. "If you're talking about the magic implements used to kill, no, to restrain me, then I'll pay for them." Fernan held his forehead, putting on an exaggerated look of sorrow. "And my psychological trauma isn't small either, you know. Facing someone where a single strike could kill me instantly." Varen said sternly, "So what? Say it. What exactly do you want from me?" Fernan immediately produced a sheet of paper and said, "What you need to do is simple. Contract, Varen Kalbunder from today on will be a slave of the Pellenberg family. He set the condition, just sign it and everything will be forgiven. Varen picked up the contract to examine it. Isn't this a slave contract? No matter how you look at these clauses, they're excessive. Fernan babbled on, you really don't know how to appreciate a senior's goodwill, trying to arrange everything smoothly for you. Luina studied his face. She felt he was afraid of something. Fernan placed his hand on the orb, his tone a bit threatening. If that's the case, I have no choice but to handle this by the rules. I'll take this recording orb and hand it over to the Purge Corps. Varen flinched. The Purge Corps. Fernan explained, the Purge Corps is an organization under the Emperor, tasked primarily with hunting and exterminating demons. Under the banner of demon eradication, they once held absolute power. But after 1,000 years, when demons seem to vanish from history, they're now only a shadow of their former selves. Fernan continued, now they're just looking for an opportunity to return to the political spotlight. If they see this recording orb, they'll celebrate like they've struck gold. Varen shouted, I told you, I have nothing to do with demons. Fernan pressed the point, because you've been connected with demons, you'll of course be expelled from the academy. And do you think Viscount Kalbunder will accept a son who sold his soul to demons? He might disown you. These words struck Varen's fatal weakness. He had no other choice and had to sign the contract. Varen stood before Fernan, bowed respectfully and said, from now on, please take care of me, master. No, senior. Luina sighed, so it ends up like this. Fernan cleared his throat a few times. All right. The three of them headed back toward the northern forest. Luina asked, are you sure we can handle this ourselves? Shouldn't we inform the professors? He replied, not yet. Whether Varen was possessed voluntarily or manipulated, why he was manipulated, we still haven't clarified any of that. And if Varen really is being controlled by someone, it means someone inside the academy is colluding with demons. If this becomes public, they'll immediately go into hiding and it'll be even harder to find who's behind it. Luna felt his reasoning made sense and asked, so you plan to investigate quietly, but why would they target Academy students? Fernan explained, it's just speculation, but the Academy gathers the Empire's most talented elites. If they attack the students here, hearing that, Luna exclaimed loudly, that's like destroying the Empire's future. I can't stand by and watch. If you need my help to exterminate demons, call me anytime. Seeing her stance, Fernan smiled inwardly, great, now I won't have to charge her interest anymore. She still didn't realize it. Maybe she'll understand later how foolish a promise I just made. After that, even the professors and teaching assistants were mobilized to suppress the monster outbreak. But the midterm for the first-year night department was canceled halfway through. However, they couldn't cancel the entire midterm. An urgent notice was issued. Due to safety concerns, all practical midterm exams will be replaced with written exams. After reading the notice, the students were stunned. Every practical midterm this semester had been converted to written exams. They murmured and complained, no way, what? Midterms are written, we're doomed. Because the Academy's grading system inherently values practical skills over theory, for students focused on hunting combat abilities, having to take written exams in every subject was a significant burden. And Aint was no exception. He was diligently cramming theory when Gardner said, but no matter how I think about it, something still feels off. Aint asked, what do you mean, what's wrong? He replied, that monster uprising earlier was clearly linked to demons. I felt a hot demonic aura spreading everywhere. Yet the actual demon never appeared. Aint reasoned, doesn't that mean it wasn't caused by demons? Gardner waved him off. Impossible. I told you so many times and you wouldn't listen. Demons will definitely return. That's precisely why the first emperor placed me here. As he spoke, he smacked Aint's cheek and emphasized, and demons will always, let me repeat, always target you. Aint jolted and asked, why is that? Gardner, a bit surprised, said, you don't know. To demons, the name Armian is an enemy etched into their very bones. Without the Armian family, the world might already be under their control. So this time they'll surely try to wipe out the Armian bloodline first. So never let your guard down and follow my instructions carefully, understand? Aint trembled slightly, worriedly thinking, am I a trigger for the demons? At the same time, in the Ravitos hall, Fernan clutched his head and screamed, my head feels like it's spinning. Seeing him collapse onto the table, Hyde panicked, young master, are you all right? Strange lines of text flashed through his mind. The first-year common required course, field survival skills. After finishing the midterm, students would be sent to the southern forest to train for a week. The southern forest, great. In the lake there grows a spirit herb. They say that place has absolutely no detectable aura. The plan is to make him soak his feet in that mirror-like lake, and the moment he does, the lake will strip away all protective layers around him. Aint stepped into a cave, so this is the place. If I hadn't searched with intent, I'd never have found it. Aint's step was always light, and now he tried to hide even more. The moment he sensed an unusual deathly aura ahead while fighting for his life, I found it, Aint whispered, his gaze lowering slightly. Huge body rose from the rock face, supported on 4 snake-like legs. The heart it had just pierced and swallowed was covered in blue-green scales like gemstones. It wasn't the smell of blood, but a greenish viscera oozing from the wound. The creature's body seemed to breathe. No, it really was breathing. As Aint approached, its breath carried a chill that seeped into his cheek. The closer he got, the colder it became. Gardner shouted, "It's a holy beast, some thief acting like the master. This is beyond you, run." Ain't swallowed and tried to turn and run, but the monster gave him no opening. When Ain't's gaze sharpened, the beast lunged. Ain't leaned aside to dodge, then swung his sword at its body, but the creature easily evaded the blow and charged again. Ain't continued dodging and counterattacking. Through a crevice in the rock face, a vein of mithril ore was revealed. Gardner was overjoyed. "My goodness, a vein of mithril. Ain't, you must mine all of this. Don't let a single chunk go to waste." Mithril is called a metal blessed by magic, but that's not all. The sword was forged from a mithril alloy. Thanks to that, my soul can dwell within it. Fernan shot upright, exclaiming, "What? A metal that can contain a soul?" A thought flashed through his mind. "This is mine." He immediately went to find Luna. The girl asked in surprise, "Last time you said it was a spirit elixir. Now it's a spirit herb." He explained, "Last time I lied, but this time it's real." "Seriously, how can you admit lying so easily?" Luna said. "The first-year outdoor combat course lasts a week, right? That means missing a whole week of classes." Fernan tried to persuade her. "I've prepared ways to make up the missed lessons. Just say you'll do it and leave everything to me." Luna replied bluntly, "I won't do it." Fernan added an incentive. "I'll waive the Burshef family's interest." The girl waved it off. "I still won't do it." Luna said sternly, "I can't speak for other things, but I absolutely won't skip school just for a spirit herb. I can't believe you'd consider missing a whole week of school for a single herb." Fernan finally gave up. "Fine, I won't push. I'll find someone else." The door opened and a young man entered cheerfully. "Long time no see, Fernan. May Mana bless you today as well." After that, the midterm results were announced. First semester midterms, first year night department. Ain't placed 16th. Gardner was somewhat displeased. 16th, and that nouveau rich got first place? Luna looked at the newcomer and asked in surprise, "Who are you?" "Jace Vines," he said, grinning with his eyes squinted. "Aren't you going alone?" "Hello, Miss Luna Burshef. May the blessings of magic be upon you." Luna sat up straight. "Oh right," as something came to mind. Jace said to Fernan, "Oh right, how have you been?" He answered, "I'm fine, how about you? How's life at the academy?" Jace chirped, "I'm still a first year, lots to learn." Luna asked curiously, You two, are you very close?" Fernan looked at her and replied, "You really look surprised." Jace agreed, "It's understandable, but this is natural." Luna objected, "It's not natural at all. Jace Vines, aren't you the archpriest of the Holy Dragon Church? The archpriest everyone praises, getting involved with a money-hungry demon." Fernan made a face like, "Are you insulting me?" Jace laughed loudly. "You probably don't know, Miss Luna, since you're not a mage. The Holy Dragon Church once worshipped ancient dragons and granted magic to humanity. Over time, we've shifted to venerating mana and sorcery itself. So most followers are mages, and the church has become a powerful mage organization. To become an archmage, you must be recognized by our Pope, its immense authority." Luna raised a hand to stop him. "I know that much, but what does it have to do with the two of you being close?" Jace rambled on, "Let me finish. Because our church is all mages, operating it requires massive funding. And Pellenberg is the church's largest patron. Countless magical implements produced by the church are channeled through the Pellenberg Trade Guild." He incessantly praised Pellenberg's glory. "The Holy Dragon Church and Pellenberg are intertwined like roots in earth. As the old saying goes, the rich are the elders." Fernan said sternly, "Besides, I'm actually older than you." Jace hurriedly replied, Of course, of course." Luna observed his behavior with some doubt. Was this guy really the archpriest? Even his pronunciation of the word archpriest was off. Jace put on a wounded expression. "That hurts. I'm embarrassed too." Luna quickly apologized. "Oh no, I'm sorry, Archpriest, I misspoke." He spun around 180 degrees and returned to his playful demeanor. "Just kidding, ha ha ha." Luna cleared her throat. "Anyway, I understand your relationship now. I'll take my leave." Jace whined, "Leaving so soon? Are you really going? We just met." She replied bluntly, "Yes, I'm not getting involved in this." He waved goodbye. "If you change your mind, come back anytime. Farewell, Miss Luna, may Mana always bless you." The door closed, and Jace turned back in with a smile and asked Fernan, "So then, why did you call me here?" I don't like that grin of his at all, but I answered, "During the first year survival training, we'll be collecting spirit herbs, and I need someone to help." Jace exclaimed, "Spirit herbs? Sounds tempting." Fernan snapped, "You planning to grab it all yourself?" He waved his hand. "Come on, of course not. I'm not stupid enough to burn my ties with Pellenberg over one herb. But is it necessary to collect it during training? With your skill, sneaking in and taking it would be as easy as flipping your hand." Fernan frowned. "If I could, I already would have. But unfortunately, I still haven't pinpointed the exact location. I've calculated carefully based on the prophecy. The info is enough to narrow it down. A lake. The Southern Forest. There are 7 lakes in the Southern Training Forest for first years. An underwater cavern. I've been channeling mana into the bottoms of all 7 lakes these past days to seek a mana vein, but I didn't find a trace of mithril. Clearly the cavern is hidden by magic and can't be detected by normal means. It's troublesome, but I fear we'll have to shadow Ain't to find it." Jace wondered, "Students not in training can't get into that area, right? There'll be many people around. Sneaking in won't be easy." Fernan smiled. That's why I registered as a teaching assistant for the first-year training. Jace was a bit surprised. Second years can be TAs. I thought the requirements were strict. Fernan was certain it's rare for a second year to do that, but he came up with a highly plausible reason. Professor Rosalia was skeptical. Now you care about grades. Are you feverish? Why the sudden change? He insisted, no, I'm not lying, and had convinced the professor. Fernan was a bit smug. It's not against the rules, so I got permission. Jace nodded. Truly a born merchant. Your plan is watertight, so are you joining? He winked and gestured. Okay, just promise me a lot of those things and I'll go all out. Jace even produced a sheet of paper. If you can draft a compensation agreement, all the better. Precision to the ounce, Fernan muttered. This kid is meticulous. The first-year outdoor training began, and the students were taken to the designated area. Gardner told Ain't, now let's review the plan again. The spirit herb I'm targeting is at Lake Farden to the west. We have to make everything look like coincidence to avoid suspicion. So at first we'll just pretend to wander around. Seeing you keep starring that way, he asked, are you listening? Ain't spotted Fernan in the crowd and shouted, there, Senior Fernan. It seemed he was a TA too. Gardner mocked, that rich brat working as a TA, he can't be that broke. Ain't guessed maybe he's aiming for the TA bonus points. He raised his hand and called Senior. Just then, Professor Grad announced, training will begin in 30 minutes. All TAs return to your positions. Ain't muttered, I haven't even greeted Senior Fernan yet. Gardner grumbled, what do you see in that spoiled rich kid anyway? In a secluded spot on the ground lay a mannequin. Jace urgently said, done, I finished dressing up. Now give me some of your blood and mana. Fernan bit his finger. Jace cast the spell. In an instant, when a few drops of blood fell onto the mannequin's head, it transformed into a version of Fernan. Jace asked, so it looks pretty similar, right? He looked at the mannequin that could sit up on its own and excitedly exclaimed, oh ho, not bad, think it'll pass. He answered confidently, hey, I used to top the class. I use this magic all the time to slip out without the Pope noticing. Fernan, surprised, said, you can fool the Pope with this spell. Jace blurted, of course not, the Pope is a legendary archmage, I couldn't possibly deceive him. But it still takes him a few hours to realize. During that time, even he isn't certain. Fernan stood up, that's enough then. He thought to himself, tossing the world's top archmage into confusion. No wonder people call him a genius. He'll be a valuable aid to Ain't later. He pulled his hood up, wondering inwardly why, strangely, Jace wasn't mentioned at all in the prophecy. Why is that? He's clearly talented and from the Holy Dragon Church. Jace was stroking the mannequin's head and saying, take care. It's obvious people hate the Demonkin and the Holy Dragon Church particularly despises them. A demon once sneered, magic comes from dragons, ridiculous. Magic is demonic power born of the demons themselves. That blasphemy from some worthless demon enraged the church. Since then, any association with Demonkin drove the church into a frenzy, and they turned into a fanatical organization dedicated to hunting demons and exterminating evil. Fernan looked at Jace, wondering if he might become Ain't's ally in the future and whether he should invest early. Ain't's stock, Ain't's future ally. Jace suddenly reminded him, oh right, hey, remember to be back within 5 watches. Fernan smiled, got it, I'm counting on you. He waved, take care man. Fernan immediately tailed Ain't, sitting atop a large log to observe as he headed west. The only lake to the west was Lake Farden. Fernan activated the comms system, it's your turn, just do exactly as I tell you. Varen wore a red earring that suited his hair, a communication device Fernan had given him to receive instructions. He stepped forward to block Ain't's path. You asked in surprise, Varen Kelbunder. Varen suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Having previously failed against Ain't, he felt a bit anxious. Ain't asked calmly, what is it, Varen? Don't tell me you want to try again. You know you can't win, right? He thought, know it, you bastard. But I also don't want to keep looking so pathetic. Not long before, Fernan had summoned him to assign a task. Varen exclaimed in shock, you want me to follow Ain't Armian throughout the entire live combat training? Why should I do that? Not long before, Fernan had summoned him to assign a task. Varen exclaimed in shock, you want me to follow Ain't Armian throughout the entire live combat training? Why should I do that? He immediately clutched his head and shouted, no, Senior. Varen looked Ain't in the eye and replied, I can't accept defeat. You asked again, isn't 2 times enough? He gripped his sword hilt and asserted, whether twice or 100 times, it's the same, losing to you buries my honor. I'll fight you once more to reclaim my honor. With that, he circulated his chi, mana flaring fiercely as he raised his sword into an attack stance. Gardner felt exhilarated. Wow, such an undefeated spirit, even after failing. At first I didn't pay much attention, but now I see truly a splendid knight. Ain't accept his challenge. Ain't pondered for a moment, then smiled faintly. Varen, that would be fine, but this training forbids one-on-one duels between contestants. Varen shouted, doesn't matter, I'm fighting for honor. Gardner agreed, what rule? Ain't a knight must seek honor. On one side, Varen was burning with the spirit of revenge. Fight me, while Gardner kept pressing. Ain't, are you really going to trample a knight's courage? Ain't felt a headache. He stood still. Fernan watched this and chuckled to himself. Varen, no matter how he complains, he's actually doing pretty well. Keep stalling. As for me, I have my own business to handle. He jumped down. He began moving toward the lake shore. He surveyed carefully, no one around, and the barrier was already set up. Even if I dig up the whole ground to find Mithril, I won't worry about noise being noticed. He cracked his knuckles with delight. Well then, let's give it a try. Finally, I get to use this magic. I really want to try it. Fernan sat down, using his hand to search for the right spot. I must find Mithril before Ain't arrives, so there's not much time left. So I prepared something special. He cast a spell over the lake, summoning my servant. Fernan muttered the incantation, and from beneath the water, a strange object slowly emerged. Still based on arcane engineering principles, gathering all kinds of magical skills, the essence of a merchant, soaked in enormous wealth. The massive form rose from the water, humanoid in shape, its eyes glowing. Fernan joyfully shouted, "It's a golem, wow, amazing." He named it. "From now on, your name is James." "Let's go, James, time to find Mithril." Fernan grinned ear to ear. This was Fernan Pellenberg's first self-made golem, James, and digging was perfectly suited to it. Not far away, Varen was still stalling. He shouted loudly, "Don't cross unless you defeat me." He thought inwardly, that careless, useless guy, I've tried this hard and you just stand there watching. Ain't held his head in complaint. What a nuisance. How long has this been going on? Gardner sulked. How can a descendant of Armian be so ridiculous? Varen had no choice. He flopped to the ground and clung to Ain't's leg. Ain't shouted, "Move aside." "That's enough, Varen. Stop acting like a child." Varen was furious. "Do you think I want this?" "It's just that Fernan made an agreement. At least stall for one watch. If you can't endure it, then you're done for." Ain't exclaimed, "What did you just say?" Varen screamed, "I enjoy doing this. I absolutely love the feeling of being trampled and ruining lives. I'm addicted to it. Attack me now, you bastard." Ain't froze. "What the hell is this? What kind of pervert is this?" He kicked Varen, sending him flying backward. Varen screamed, "A," and landed hard on his back in terrible pain. Varen sat up with a shout, yelling, "That's right, I'm the pervert." So attack quickly, but before him, only a leaf drifted down. The Ain't was no longer there. Varen opened his watch to check. "How long have I been enduring? Senior Fernan told me to hold out for one watch. It's been 1 watch and 10 minutes. I'm saved." Varen Kalbunder, mission accomplished. Not long after Ain't reached the cavern, Gardner asked, "Ain't Armian, can you really ignore a knight's plea? Is that what you've learned?" He replied calmly, "No, the rules clearly state no fighting during training. Also, this cavern, if you don't actively look for it, you'll never find it." Gardner laughed loudly. "Of course, if it were easy to find, it would have been looted long ago." Ain't waded into the water, scanned the surroundings, and said, "I sense something here. I feel a current of energy that doesn't belong to the spirit herb." Gardner suddenly called out, "Look down here." Right before them was a spirit herb shining and glittering. Ain't exclaimed, "Well, we've hit the jackpot." At the same time, deep in the cavern beneath the lake, after a fervent bout of digging, Fernan grinned ear to ear, hopping and cheering to a boom-boom beat in excitement. "Found it, Mithril." Over on the other side, Ain't faced a different problem. He shouted, "Trouble. We found the spirit herb, but how do we harvest it?" "The spirit herb is guarded by a monster." Gardner studied it for a moment and said, "Surprisingly, there's a sea dragon guarding this place. Not the time. Come back when there's another opportunity." He sighed. "Then the sea dragon will learn today what human flesh tastes like." You gave a single cry, then fell silent. Gardner affirmed, "You can't handle that thing right now." Suddenly, the ground under their feet trembled violently. Huge boulders crashed down from above, striking the sleeping sea dragon with a thunderous impact. It abruptly opened its eyes and roared with ear-splitting bellows. Gardner panicked, shouting, "This is bad. It's awake." Ain't looked up. The sea dragon had lunged to its feet, staring at him with eyes full of killing intent. Ain't trembling asked, "What do we do?" Ain't suddenly said, "If it's like this, just take it down now." Seeing him draw his sword into a defensive stance, Gardner barked, "What are you drawing your sword for?" I said, "Stop. You're not strong enough to fight it. Run now." The sea dragon, alerted to the intruders, growled and surged forward. Gardner urged, "Run, don't look back, hurry." Ain't stood stunned, "Run, but it seems a bit late now." Then he leaped high to evade the strike. The beast slammed into the rock face with a tremendous crash. Ain't picked his position with precision and delivered a slash down onto the sea dragon's head. It immediately whipped its tail, striking the opponent hard. Ain't was knocked to one side by the blow. He fell into shallow water, so he had little trouble regaining his balance. However, as soon as Ain't rose, he saw the sea dragon opening its jaws and lunging toward him. It inhaled a long, deep breath to gather power, then unleashed a spiraling torrent of water. He stood up, circulating his chi and channeling strength into his sword to repel the opponent's attack. The two forces collided, a terrifying pressure erupting that shook the space. Ain't held firm after the assault. The sea dragon charged into close-quarters combat, battering him with its tail in a relentless barrage, forcing Ain't to struggle to defend. Not far away, Fernan was harvesting Mithril when he suddenly felt the ground tremble violently and the noisy din swell. Fernan exclaimed, so loud, the sea dragon's awake, I've stuffed it with a bunch of sedative-laced meat and now it's up, truly a legendary beast. He thought to himself, hopefully Ain't won't face off against the dragon, because there's still the matter of dealing with Varen being possessed by a demon. Ain't is upset that he missed the chance to awaken, as the prophecy said. But I already gave him the sacred bird needle, didn't I? Should be fine, Fernan said as he walked. James, we've finished digging, right? Let's go outside. The golem trailed behind carrying a huge sack of loot. On the other side, Ain't had finished the fight with the sea dragon. He crawled along the cliff, utterly exhausted before reaching the exit hole. Ain't kept gasping, I almost died, Gardner snapped, that's why I told you to run. He replied wearily, I wanted to run too, but the sea dragon charged like it wanted to kill me. Gardner scolded, if the ground hadn't held you up you'd be in its belly now, you reckless idiot. Ain't suddenly said, I'm actually okay though. Gardner agreed, it's thanks to that sacred bird needle he gave you that your aura strengthened. They both looked to the opposite side. Look, the herb is still safe, thank goodness. Ain't sighed, it's too high. Climbing out will take a long time. Suddenly, Gardner sensed something odd over that way. He called out, Ain't, come in here, I'm feeling something strange from that direction. Ain't stepped closer and surveyed carefully, but said he couldn't feel anything. Gardner urged hastily, don't just stand there, move your feet. Ain't sighed, all right. He went deeper inside, looked up at the towering cliff and asked, is this the place you said felt strange? What's so strange? Gardner searched around and insisted, no, there's definitely something. Ain't replied, just take the herb and leave. Suddenly Gardner noticed something unusual. He shouted, Ain't, over there, look, there's a light. A strange streak of light appeared on the floor, and in the dark cavern it stood out more than ever. Ain't sat down to examine it. Really, what is it? Gardner urged to get up quickly. Hurry, Ain't replied, okay. Then he lifted a rock with his hands and flung it aside. What lay before him froze him in his tracks. This is. Gardner cried out in joy, we found it. Scene change, Fernan returned to the meeting spot with Jace. Jace grinned and asked, did you find what you wanted? Fernan answered, yes, everything's fine here, right? Jace cheerfully said, yep, just a few monsters went berserk. Fernan nodded, well done. Jace immediately demanded his payment. Fernan cut in, I already know what you're going to say. Our trading guild will place an order with the church today for the contract amount. Needless to say, Jace was overjoyed. He left quickly. See you later, Jace. He waved goodbye. Thanks, big bro. May Mana's blessings follow you. Fernan sat on a large tree trunk, taking out a lump of mithril to admire, thinking about how rare it was for anyone to see it up close. Now he just needed to find the right ore to pair with it. Mithril can absorb and conduct mana very well, but alone it can't reach its full potential. It needs to be alloyed with another metal to truly shine, and of course not with some mediocre ore. The best match for mithril is adamant, a metal harder than any other. He pondered for a moment, but adamant is as rare as mithril. Having money might not even guarantee you can buy it, so where would he find it? I wonder if the prophecy can tell me. Just then a cry came from below, help. Fernan on the tree kept mumbling, adamant. The girl below was running at full speed, screaming, help me, instructor, save me. She ran circles around the trunk where Fernan sat, 3 dogs close on her heels. Not hearing him say anything, the girl scolded, instructor, are you really ignoring me? I asked you to save me. Fernan put the mithril away and replied indifferently, all right, if you're in danger, I'll save you. But an elf actually in danger from being chased by dogs? The girl was a bit startled and stopped pretending. She immediately leapt onto the tree in front of Fernan. The dogs below barked loudly. Fernan looked annoyed, handle them, they're too noisy. Arya Fridian channeled her chi, and her magic staff flared brilliantly, dispelling the dogs in an instant. When she finished, she sat on the branch and said, happy now? Fernan suddenly asked, what do you want with me? Arya beamed, oh not at all, it was just coincidence, you were tactful, now go on your way. The girl corrected herself, not coincidence, I have a reason. Who are you to be so curt? Fernan asked again, what, trying to cozy up to the recruiter's family? Arya Fridian, she smiled, caught red-handed, really obvious, wasn't it? He said bluntly, I heard rumors you like flirting with children of the recruiting house. Arya, unabashed, suggested, since you found out, let's just be friends. Fernan refused outright no. Arya pressed, why not? Fernan replied blandly, because I'm older. The girl pleaded, come on, isn't it natural for members of recruiting families to be close? He remained firm in his stance, just because we're both from recruiting families doesn't mean we have to be close. Arya tossed a coy smile. Fridian only became a recruit family after replacing Bersha. So we want to be close to the other chosen servants, so please, Fernan pleaded, aren't there other chosen servants from the same year, like Ain't Armian, for example? Arya said half-jokingly, elves can't live on meat alone, every so often you have to eat fruits and vegetables. But Fernan got her meaning, he smiled inwardly. The girl didn't even bother to think it through. Arya Fridian, shameless beyond belief, the girl still smiled brightly and declared her intention. I want to be friends with all 6 chosen imperial servants. Suddenly, the tree trunk shook violently, and both of them jumped. Arya blurted out, what nonsense now? Down below, a male student shouted, call a professor, quickly. A sea dragon has appeared in Pardon Pond. Sure enough, a massive sea worm burst from the water, sending shockwaves across the surface. Fernan was stunned. A sea dragon, Arya cried. How strange, why did it suddenly appear like that? Right. But as she turned to look at Fernan had already leapt down. She called after him, hey, are you really going to run off? He didn't answer. Fear rose in Fernan's chest. Damn it, something's wrong. The prophecy never mentioned a sea dragon erupting from the water and going berserk. What about Ain't? On the lakeshore, the situation was chaotic. The sea dragon was furiously attacking the students. The professors quickly organized an evacuation. This way, move aside, hurry. All first-year students fall back. Teaching assistants cover the first years on the front line. Gardner told Ain't that sea dragon's targeting you because you took the spirit potion. Let the professors and TAs deal with it. We're withdrawing. This time he obeyed quickly and replied, understood. Gardner warned, run, be careful, don't draw attention. But the sea dragon had already spotted Ain't in the crowd, and it lunged forward immediately. A dark shadow suddenly appeared, blocking right behind Ain't. Fernan gripped his wand and raised a defensive formation to hold back the beast. Ain't muttered an incantation and unleashed an attack move. Countless sharp spears of stone erupted from the ground and shot straight at the sea dragon. But the beast didn't flinch. Its eyes were full of killing intent, and its defenses were terrifyingly strong. Fernan worried, damn it, is this beyond our ability? Professor Grad felt quite pleased. You held the line well, Fernan, now leave the rest to us. He charged in to confront the creature head-on, with support from the other professors and teaching assistants. After a period of ineffective strikes, the sea dragon turned and fled back into the pond. Someone shouted, it's retreating, follow it, chase it down. Fernan exhaled in relief. Strange, did my intervention slightly alter the prophecy? Either way, the chosen one destined to save humanity is still safe, and that's what matters. Besides, I still haven't recouped my investment. If he dies, I'm ruined. He suddenly asked, Ain't, are you okay? Seeing the boy's tearful, moved expression, Fernan was a bit shaken inwardly. What's with that look, this guy? Are you scared? Ain't choked and replied, you came to save me. Fernan answered nonchalantly, protecting students is a teaching assistant's job. Never mind, as long as you're okay. Now go do your work. Seeing Fernan head to leave, Gardner reminded him, Ain't, don't we still have business to settle with that guy? We can't just let him go. Ain't hurriedly called after him, actually I have something to say. Are you free for a moment? Fernan turned back, go ahead, what is it? He hesitated and answered, well, saying it right here is a bit awkward. The two quickly moved to a quiet spot. Fernan reassured him, don't worry, no one will hear, say what you need to say. What do you want to tell me? Ain't smiled and said, I was wondering if your trading guild deals in ore. Fernan replied bluntly, of course we do. Why, are you looking to buy ore? But a moment later Fernan muttered to himself, not exactly. I don't have a single coin, so I probably can't buy anything. Maybe I have something to sell. Ain't felt that hit a sore spot. He couldn't deny it, but it tasted bitter. Fernan flinched, thinking to himself, damn it, I blurted that out again. He always acts obedient around me, I almost forgot. This guy is the one who got me expelled, he suddenly remembered. Ain't handed him the expulsion notice with the reason, you said I was dirt poor. Those words were deeply insulting. It's definitely not wise to anger him. Fernan said gently, if my words offended you, then I apologize. Ain't was a little surprised, that's very polite. Fernan added, I didn't mean it, please don't take it to heart. The boy hurriedly said, I was only joking. Fernan waved his hand, no way, impossible, that spoiled brat actually apologized. Fernan moved to the main point, so you said you have something to sell to me? Ain't smiled and replied, yes. He took out a gleaming blue-green stone and said, it's this. The moment Fernan saw the item, he couldn't hide his astonishment, adamant. I was just tearing my hair out trying to find this, and now it's appearing right in front of me like this. He smiled, what kind of luck is this? Then he reminded himself, no, it's not in my hands yet, stay calm. Fernan asked seriously, adamant, are you planning to sell this to me? This isn't something you find on the street, where did you get it? Seeing Ain't's nonchalant face, he marveled, finding adamant and staying so calm, rich people really live easy. Ain't scratched his head and laughed, I can't say exactly where I got it, but I swear it's not contraband or stolen, so don't worry. I have so much of it that even my pocket dimension is full. Fernan thought, pocket dimension full, this is practically a treasure trove. He judged silently, no doubt about it, he must have found it in that underwater cavern. Can't get mithril but stumbled on adamant. This is what you call the protagonist's luck. Fernan was curious, what kind of cave contains both mithril and adamant? Seeing. He fell silent, saying nothing. Ain't began to bargain. If you're really interested, my condition is. Before deciding to sell the adamant to Fernan, Gardner warned Ain't, be careful. The Pellenberg crowd will snatch it in the blink of an eye. Even if you negotiate, don't agree to anything. Even now he kept repeating to Ain't, are you listening to me? And Ain't laid out Gardner's terms. He even thought those conditions sounded pretty fair. Fernan quickly agreed, fine, I'll buy under those terms. Gardner was a bit surprised to hear that. What the hell, did he just accept my terms? Fernan suddenly asked, you could have auctioned it for a much higher price, why sell to me? Ain't answered honestly, well, I want to get rid of it as soon as possible. It's so rare that if word got out it would make you a target from every side. Armin isn't strong enough to protect it. Vernon challenged, and I'm strong enough, right? What if I killed you and stole the adamant? Hearing that, Ain't froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. Come on, you gave me the holy bird's heart, and you even fought the sea dragon to save me. How could I do that? Vernon thought to himself, Ain't, does this guy really trust me? Saving him earlier seems to have earned me a lot of goodwill. He affirmed, others might, but you would never do that. I know you wouldn't harm me. He patted Ain't on the shoulder. Right, Ain't, I honestly care about you. The boy smiled and replied, yes, I know. Vernon continued, besides, I was the one who saved your life from the sea dragon, right? Ain't answered, yes. Then he looked into the boy's eyes and asked, so Ain't, if one day you suddenly get the urge to turn me into a beggar, remember today. Hearing that, the boy broke out in a cold sweat. Turn you into a beggar. Suddenly Vernon emphasized, never forget I risked my life to save you, understand? Ain't replied, yes, of course. Those words reassured Vernon particularly. He turned to leave, not forgetting to promise, I'll prepare the contract and get back to you. Ain't replied, yes. The boy felt a bit puzzled by Vernon's hot and cold attitude. Once alone, Ain't asked himself, what did he say just now? Turn me into a beggar? Gardner grumbled, the guy must be crazy, probably in shock after seeing that pile of adamant. Scene change, the Ravito's dormitory. Hyde called out loudly, I'm back, master. He pushed the door open and asked gently, you've been at the Duke's residence for quite a while. Did anything happen while you were gone? Vernon exclaimed, Hyde, you're back. He hadn't finished speaking when he froze at the sight inside the room, sir. What is all this? Vernon was sitting on a pile of gemstones, holding a glass of wine, looking utterly relaxed. He wore a look that said welcome, first time seeing mithril and adamant together, right? Hyde hurriedly asked, wait, where did you get these rare ores? Vernon smiled and replied, partly I mined them myself, partly I bought them back. I've been busy lately. He picked up a piece of adamant to inspect. Even with money, it's nearly impossible to buy this. If I sold all of this, my guild would exceed this year's revenue target. Vernon said, I don't intend to sell. Hearing that, Hyde was very surprised. Don't sell. So what do you plan to do with them? He swirled his wine glass and answered slowly, I plan to craft a giant self-powered golem that can move on its own and has its own will. Vernon excitedly rambled on. I've always wondered, knights have loyal mounts. Elementals have spirit companions, so why don't merchants have anything similar? Why must merchants live so solitary? So I decided to overturn that absurdity by creating a conscious giant golem. Hyde listened for a while, somewhat puzzled. Absurd? Can this really be called absurd? Vernon explained, golems require advanced magical engineering knowledge and a massive financial investment. That means if you're not truly wealthy, don't even dream of creating one. Wouldn't that be the perfect asset for a merchant? Actually, he was calculating inwardly. Owning a conscious golem, especially with a great war against the demon tribes looming. In this terrifying era of demons running rampant, it would be a reliable guard for its owner. So I must create something sturdily built and truly trustworthy. Seeing his master's passionate expression, Hyde thought to himself that he still didn't understand why a merchant needed a golem. The young master seemed very excited, better to stay quiet. He suddenly asked, but if it's a conscious giant golem, how big exactly? Vernon replied, 10 meters. Hyde cried out, 10 meters, why make it that big? Vernon said seriously, why else? Because it looks insanely cool. At that moment, a headache suddenly hit. Vernon muttered, damn it, a headache again. Another damned prophecy. The world spun before his eyes and his head felt like it would explode. Hyde shouted, young master. He helped Vernon onto the bed and handed him a thermometer. Bite down on this. Vernon squirmed, I'm fine, I told you it doesn't hurt. Hyde snapped, it doesn't hurt, you even fainted. Do you know how many times you've screamed in pain? He shoved the thermometer into Vernon's mouth. I'll check your temperature, bite down on it. He obediently held the thermometer in his mouth, no longer yelling. Hyde looked at the clock and murmured that it was probably a lingering effect from being struck by lightning before. Vernon sat motionless on the bed, deep in thought. There was no time to rest. Another prophecy, right on schedule. This time it was about the sea. Armian dies. A contract-bounded man secretly boards the yacht club gathering and attacks Ain't. The yacht club is a social circle at the academy. Only noble students qualify to join. I also joined the club to expand my connections and attend regularly. More than that, I was the one who proposed turning a simple afternoon tea at sea into a lavish offshore gathering on a yacht. Yet just as I convinced everyone to go out to sea, a monster appeared. People panicked and screamed, a monster, why is there a monster here? Turn the boat around. I then discovered the contract-bound man had sneaked onto the yacht, and he turned out to be an employee of my trading company. Ain't confirmed the face of the contract man. If his memory served, the man was one of the crew members. Could Pellenberg be involved? If they knew, they'd be traitors to humanity. If they didn't, they're far more incompetent than I thought. After that, there were countless rumors. People claimed they stumbled upon treasures by chance, while I, damn it, got buffed full villain stats like a real antagonist. No wonder Ain't thought I'd make him perish. Time running out. Anyone looking at the situation would assume he'd signed a pact with a demon. At that thought, Hyde pulled the thermometer out. Vernon gave him a very uncomfortable look. Hyde checked the thermometer to see his vitals. He gasped the reading was too high. Fernan thought if he slipped up this time it would be over, when suddenly a freezing ice pack was placed on his head. Hyde said sternly, "Your Grace, you have a very high fever. We need to call the physician immediately." Fernan, cheeks flushed, insisted, "I told you I'm fine." Suddenly Hyde remembered, "I heard there's a visitor coming to the company today, maybe postpone it." Fernan asked in surprise, "A visitor? I have no appointments today." He thought to himself that an unexpected visitor likely meant money. He asked eagerly who it was. The visitor was an acquaintance, Professor Grad. The professor smiled warmly, sat at his desk, and proposed a deal. Fernan asked, "You want to sell the sea dragon carcass, the one from the first-year combat practical?" Grad replied, "Yes, I expended quite some effort to slay it." He said cheerfully that everyone expected Pellenberg to lowball him, but he knew Fernan wouldn't. Fernan inwardly rejoiced this was good news. A sea dragon yields many usable parts. He still hesitated. Was it appropriate to approach students so directly? Grad replied bluntly, "You're the one who's always making secret deals with staff, and you dare say that? Last time, why did you ask Professor Rosalia to arrange a temporary teaching assistant? She's overly rule-abiding. Next time come to me. You know, give me a little something and I'll be fine with most things." Hearing this, Fernan thought anyone could be a temporary TA, no need to bribe a professor. Grad added that this was an official buyback request from the academy sent to his family. He came as the academy's representative. "I contacted your family and they told me to negotiate directly with you," Fernan replied. "I understand. Actually, there's a part I'm particularly interested in." Professor Grad said sternly, "I don't sell by the piece. If you want it, buy the whole thing." Fernan lifted his teacup and said calmly, "That changes things." He confirmed, after all it's a sea dragon, no part goes to waste, and Grad was right about that. Fernan calculated silently. The teeth and bones are incredibly hard, perfect for weapon crafting. The blood and eyes are rich in magic, ideal for alchemy. The scales can be made into armor and protective gear, so whether you buy the whole beast or just parts, it's useful. But in business, a merchant's pride is to maximize profit. You have to squeeze out a bit more profit. Professor Grad shook his head. "If that's what you want, I'll sell to another family." Fernan casually shifted to another angle of the deal. "I've heard that creatures captured during the academy's training sessions. The proceeds are used to fund the professor's research." Hearing that, Grad's expression faltered. Fernan laid his cards on the table. "So getting a good price would benefit you too." Grad's face changed immediately. He put on a friendly smile and asked, "You want a good price for your specimen, right? Fine, what do you want?" He answered, "I want exclusive rights to sell boats to the Academy. If the Academy buys boats, they can only buy from our Golden Turtle Trading Company." Grad wondered, boats? What would the Academy need boats for just that? Fernan smiled, "Exactly. The condition sounds a bit useless, but it's a long-term calculation. They don't need them now, but soon they will. According to the prophecy, after the monster attack and the yacht sinking, noble-born students will be cast adrift at sea, and the Academy will realize it needs to train for naval combat and open-related courses. Of course, they'll also run simulated drills, meaning boats will be frequently damaged, leading to huge repair costs or the need to buy replacements. In other words, this is a long-term, highly profitable venture." Grad agreed immediately. "Excellent, I'll propose it to the headmaster." Scene change. At a bookstore in a small neighborhood, a customer asked, "Do you have a basic cookbook?" "I checked the cooking section and couldn't find it." The shopkeeper smiled and said, "If it's not there, it's probably sold out." He suddenly said, "Wait a moment, I'll check the back room." The girl nodded okay. The owner opened the small door into the stockroom and went to the shelves to look. Basic cooking. Suddenly, a wave of black aura appeared. A spirit manifested behind the young man and said, "Report." After checking, we confirmed that Ain't Armian, having never encountered the Varen Kalbunder, went mad from demonic energy. According to the plan, Kalbunder should have traced Armian's mana after being defeated. But it seems someone intervened midway. The spirit exclaimed, "Intervene." The spirit continued, "I cannot identify exactly who. The traces have been completely erased." He asked again, "So there's no way to find out? You're saying that?" The spirit affirmed, "No, I will try other methods and I will find out." The shopkeeper suddenly said, "Forget it. If you've had to try that hard, then there really is no way. For now, focus on the next plan." The spirit immediately obeyed, understood. The shopkeeper was a bit doubtful. This is strange. If Kalbunder had truly fought him, you couldn't fail to sense the demonic aura, yet the Academy said nothing. He guessed the traces were erased. Could it all be a coincidence? Or someone deliberately did it? Hearing this, the spirit panicked. "So someone already knows about our existence?" The shopkeeper replied firmly, "Impossible. If someone really knew, the world wouldn't be this quiet." "That's true, it's probably just a coincidence," he warned his companions. "Still, we must be more cautious from now on. We're not strong enough yet. If our identities are exposed, it would seriously jeopardize future plans." The spirit replied, "Understood." The shopkeeper added, "Above all else, eliminating Ain't Armian is the top priority. Since he enrolled at the Academy, his rate of growth has been beyond imagination. Although I don't know why, this is also the work of that early emperor. the cursed bloodline. Therefore, the next plan must succeed. If Ain't Armian grows any stronger, it will be a major problem. A killing glint flashed in his eyes. Absolutely no second failure, the spirit replied. I will remember. Then he vanished without a trace. The shopkeeper stepped out holding the book and said cheerfully, customer, I found the introductory cookbook. The girl took the book and hurried off. Thanks, have a nice day. At the same time, in a restaurant, Fernan and Liuna were eating. He asked, when and where did you sense the demonic aura? Liuna poured herself a glass of wine and answered, exactly 3 days ago, around 7 that evening after dinner. I was with Bella then. Fernan asked. Bella Hone, the second semester, rank 19 in the night department. The girl agreed, yes, that's Bella Hone. He was curious what exactly happened. Liuna took a bite and recalled, here's what went down. 3 days ago, Bella challenged me. She said she felt her strength had improved and wanted to test it. Normally, we only use wooden swords, but this time she suggested real blades. I don't know if she took some kind of pill, but she was extremely confident. And it wasn't just talk. Bella's sword was much heavier and far sharper than before. During the duel, I noticed her power had truly improved. Not only stronger, her body was also more agile, enough to easily dodge my strikes. After a few exchanges, Liuna said, you really are different than before, heavier, faster. Bella cried out with joy, right? Lately, I feel full of strength and my control's much better. Hearing it from your own mouth makes me even happier. Suddenly she said, all right, I'll keep fighting. This time she summoned noticeably more mana. Hearing that, Fernan blurted, so you lost after all? Liuna snapped, no, I'm not finished telling it. Bella's sword style favors weight and the blade's momentum. Compared to other schools, its destructive power is superior. But because it's heavy and large, it has an obvious weakness in close quarters. At that moment, I seized the opportunity when Bella's heavy sword pulled her off balance. I delivered a decisive blow. Bella laughed coquettishly, looks like I still can't control it well. Liuna took another bite, so that's how it was. Fernan asked again, are you sure that was demonic energy? She confirmed, I'll never forget that icy, disgusting air I felt in Varen. It was only brief, but I'm certain it was demonic energy. Fernan asked curiously, how is Bella doing? Liuna felt perfectly fine. There was nothing abnormal even after the match. Unlike Varen, there was no physical mutation, and she hadn't lost her mind. So I suspected I might have been mistaken. Fernan listened closely and asked, but you still want to double check? Liuna replied, yes, because this involves demonic chi and Bella is my closest friend. We grew up together. I can't just stand by and watch her turn into a monster. I thought you might be able to help somehow, so I said it. She'd cut into the last piece of steak. Liuna didn't often get to eat so well. Fernan said slowly, I don't have a surefire method either, but I'll try to investigate in my own way. The girl nodded, thanks. He looked at Liuna's empty plate and asked, honestly, is that even edible? Steak with chocolate sauce? The girl affirmed confidently, yes, it's delicious. Fernan stood by the desk reviewing the surveillance reports, murmuring dorms, classrooms, dojo, library, cafeteria. Sure enough, Bella kept a model schedule. Just like that damned Varen, there were no signs of suspicious contact with anyone else. He analyzed carefully. Moreover, unlike Varen, Bella had never suffered trauma. She was cheerful and got along with everyone. There was no obvious opening for demonic chi to seep in. But if what Liuna said was true and Bella really did use demonic power, then there was only one common factor between her and Varen. Neither had encountered a demon nor signed any pact. So could demonic chi slip into people without them knowing, without contact with a demon? Could that really happen? Or had Liuna been mistaken, and it wasn't demonic chi at all? Suddenly a headache struck. Fernan clutched his head in pain. Damn it, my head again. His vision blurred, and then a strange scene appeared. It was the sight of a terrible battlefield, the sky red as blood. The tang of blood and thick demonic chi, monsters everywhere, and people driven mad. Students, the academy's people, the island's residents. I saw Ain's anxious face. Fernan felt this scene was all too familiar. Everyone was acting very strangely. Demonic chi silently infiltrating and hiding in the students' bodies. And when the demon Andromalius descended, it began to awaken. Fernan suddenly panicked. Andromalius, so this is. At that moment, the academy was no different from hell. Could this be the moment right before Andromalius's descent? In the smoky scene, Gardner frowned and reported, demonic aura. They've been infected with demonic chi. Ain's eyes widened in shock. You mean those students signed pacts with demons? Facing it, he spoke very quietly but firmly. If that were true, I would have detected it long ago. It ignored his words and directly demanded, I have to investigate this thoroughly. Use your magic. Ain heeded Gardner and used his magic to examine the students who had passed out. Thanks to that, Gardner grasped the situation. Ain Armin carefully checked and concluded that those filthy demons were cunning this time. He looked at Gardner in panic, seeing that they had stealthily sown demonic chi into students' daily lives, so subtle no one noticed. As Ain Armin inspected and commented, I'm sure they needed a lot of time because a student's body doesn't easily accept demonic chi. Most of it was probably wasted, and continuing to spread it might no longer matter. Fernan Pellenberg watched quietly from the side, the students infected with demonic chi. In his head, he continuously analyzed the situation, but to make them explode like that there had to be a conductor. Something was definitely amplifying the demonic power. Fernan Pellenberg glanced around and suddenly gasped, over there. He stared intently at the blood-red formation before him. That magic array, it's activating the corrupting energy. Fernan Pellenberg froze and thought to himself that it must be destroyed immediately. The source of the corrupting energy became clearer as Ain't approached the array. The summoning accelerated, and Gardner shouted as he realized the array's true nature. Suddenly, countless corpses appeared strewn before them, forcing Fernan Pellenberg to ponder as the scene shifted. Elsewhere, Ain't Armian rushed forward enthusiastically, then abruptly froze, making Fernan Pellenberg a bit uneasy. Ain't Armian ran up and shouted a warning. Bella, she's been tainted by corrupting energy. Fernan Pellenberg was stunned by that conclusion. Bella, so the corrupting energy is inside Bella, Ain't Armian asserted. If we destroy that array, she'll return to normal. Gardner warned anxiously, my god, that's not an amplifying array but a normal force one. Facing the apparently evil array, he said firmly, that's a summoning array. We're trying to summon a demon into this world. After Gardner's words, a fierce monster with a grotesque serpentine form appeared, causing both Ain't Armian and Fernan Pellenberg to turn and look. A dark, faceless but menacing figure also flashed through his mind. The demons will return. It stepped forward slowly with a massive, muscular body, yet it couldn't push Ain't Armian out of his thoughts, this realm. Suddenly, the vision shifted elsewhere. Fernan Pellenberg sat on the ground with a look of shock. He kept muttering under his breath, corrupting energy, Andromalius Bella. Moments later, Fernan Pellenberg sprang up decisively. There's no time, Leuna. He dashed out the door, repeatedly calling her name, Leuna. A moment later, under the stairs, a woman was whispering nervously, is she safe? If she's really tainted and it gets out, Fernan Pellenberg beside her replied sternly, Bella won't know anything. He looked at her and said assuredly, I won't let her be falsely accused as a demon and killed, don't worry. Leuna Berchef smiled contentedly, thank you. Fernan Pellenberg regarded her thoughtfully. I need Bella alive because she's evidence for her friend Leuna. A few images flickered through his mind, also for me, because I need Leuna to like me. Fernan Pellenberg lowered his head in worry and added, and for this continent, first I must prove that corrupting energy truly exists in Kulyui's body. The person just mentioned cheerfully ran up to join the conversation. Leuna, have you been waiting long? The lecture ran a bit late. Leuna shyly explained, no, we just got here too. Bella looked at him in surprise and asked, Fernan's here too? Fernan coldly replied, I called him. But he immediately pointed at her and said loudly, because of what's in your head. Fernan's face darkened with ferocity. There are demons, I have to destroy them. He pointed at himself proudly and said, so from now on you must follow my orders. Hearing this, Bella bristled and rejected him. What? No. He patiently repeated his earlier words, you must come with me even if you don't want to. Her gaze clearly regarded him as a fool. What the hell is wrong with your head, Fernan? But Fernan remained resolute. I'm not joking. If we don't deal with the corrupting energy inside you, sooner or later you'll lose your mind, and then the Inquisitors won't spare you. His implication was so clear that Bella snapped in irritation. Are you threatening me? Fernan didn't relent and stated plainly, I'm just telling the truth. Those 5 simple words were the last straw and she kept cursing, are you insane? I'm perfectly fine. Suddenly, a gentle hand clasped her hand. The person beside her softly called Bella. Leuna gently urged, can't you listen to Fernan just this once? That behavior just makes Bella more confused. Leuna, what's wrong with you? What's with all this demon talk? Leuna kept pleading earnestly, Bella, please. Bella couldn't avoid it and reluctantly agreed, fine, only because you begged me. Fernan watched the surprisingly harmonious scene and thought, I was going to knock her out if she kept refusing. After a moment, Bella turned back to him with a steely look. I'll do what you say, Fernan, but on one condition. She pointed at him and insisted, if I can prove there's no corrupting energy in me, you must properly apologize to me and Leuna. Fernan folded his arms and asked curiously, but why apologize to Leuna? Bella, full of resentment, kept accusing him, because you lured innocent Leuna into this. She let out a sigh before answering, she was the one who tempted me, but fine. Fernan, in a firmer tone, said then lead me to the places you frequent. I need to know where you've encountered corrupting energy. Leuna stepped forward and asked curiously, didn't you already investigate? He immediately dismissed it, you won't be any help to me. Hearing that, Bella grew angrier and glared at Fernan. Did you investigate my background? He replied softly, I was thinking of looking for traces of corrupting energy in the places Bella has been. In the quiet air, Fernan's voice dropped, disappointed, but I didn't find anything suspicious. Standing before an imposing building, he thought to himself, even the dojo, that's important, but he still managed to annoy Bella. Fernan, shut up, Leuna quickly deflected, this dining area is gloomy. The 3 of them ticked places off the list bit by bit. Dormitory, okay. Lecture halls, okay. Library, okay. Dining hall, okay. After a while, they came to a cafe where a man holding a book titled The Duke Keeps Finding Me at Night smiled and greeted them. he just arrived today. Fernan, losing patience, thought maybe the library too. Bella was lively and chatting happily, looking delightful. He didn't understand and turned to Luna. What the hell is the Mad Duke? She cheerfully answered, Bella likes romance novels. His gaze and tone sharpened. Romance novels, a normal hobby, sure, but there are private thoughts in people's heads. It might be weirder if I could easily find a trace. He stared ahead relentlessly, convinced there must be a trace somewhere. The purple-haired young man cheerfully offered a book with illustrations. Bella eagerly said, give it to me. Only Fernan couldn't escape the chaos in his mind. If not a place, then maybe. Seeing the book pass between hands sparked a thought. Maybe it's an object. Suddenly, a voice cut through Fernan's thoughts. Very pleased to meet you, Mr. Fernan. He looked at the man, puzzled. You know me? The purple-haired fellow calmly explained, of course, I'm a merchant. Bella stood aside, excitedly chatting with Luna. Look. The purple-haired youth casually rambled that they usually source goods from your guild. Fernan responded indifferently, so you're a customer. Almost immediately, he pushed another book across. I can recommend one for you. He looked at Fernan slyly and suggested, I have something that'll suit you. Fernan declined warily, no thanks, I have enough books at home. The man remained smiling regretfully. I understand, what a pity. Suddenly, Luna's voice called from behind, Fernan, let's go. He turned his back to leave and said, fine. The purple-haired youth finally broke into a sinister smile and spoke with ill intent, see you again. The three of them walked away, unaware of his gaze and mysterious words, waiting for your return. After a while in the hallway, Bella looked around in bewilderment, trying to understand. Isn't this cafe run by your guild? I've never been here. Fernan explained slowly as they walked, it's reserved for important guests. Hearing that she asked innocently, is this where you wanted to go? He patiently explained, yes, this place is the best to avoid other people's eyes. After his words, there was a hush, only the soft thud of the three of them's footsteps as they entered the room. Inside, Jace Vines greeted them enthusiastically. I've been waiting for you. Your behavior seems unusual. Those with faith are blessed by mana. Do you believe that? The three of them, but only Bella can joke along, I believe. Fernan cut through their banter sternly. Jace, did you bring what I asked for? Jace Vines answered, grinning, of course. He carefully warned the one holding the payment. Once used, it's non-refundable and not exchangeable. Paying in cash, Fernan replied firmly, all right. Bella watched with curiosity. A transaction? She stared for a moment, then demanded loudly, Fernan, what are you doing? Why is he here? Fernan smirked confidently. Jace will prove it. He stepped aside beside Jace, looking triumphant, implying there is corrupting energy in you. Bella asked seriously, you intend to prove I have corrupting energy? She was curious how. Jace Vines produced a red velvet box. We always prepare for this. There's a prophecy from the founding pontiff that the demon race will return. Bella glanced worryingly at the orb as Jace explained. It's more accurate than any relic when detecting the demon race or corrupting energy. He began making small talk. I've heard about you. What's your name? She didn't hesitate. Bellahone, I'm a second-year night student. Jace beamed. Ah, so you're my senior. He offered Bella a proposal. Can you hold this gem with both hands? Mana will flow into your body and scan you internally. Luna Burchef still looked doubtful. Are you sure that thing works? Maybe. Fernan Pellenberg wasn't very sure either. Jace said if this can't detect it, then nothing can. Bella stood motionless before Jace Vines with a worried face. He spoke to reassure her, don't be afraid. Then Jace leaned in, covering his mouth with one hand and whispered, to be honest, I don't believe you're infected. I'm only here because Fernan said he'd buy this back from me. I'm with the church, but demonkind existing nowadays, impossible. He encouraged her once more, relax. Bella loosened up somewhat, all right. She began to place her hands on the orb with determined movements. I'll get this done and wait for your apology. Light from the gem spread through the room so bright that Jace Vines had to close his eyes. Not long after, when the light softened, he opened his eyes one by one to observe. Bella returned the gem to Jace Vines hesitantly. The color of the gem has changed. Bella asked what that meant. Does it mean there's no corrupting energy? Fernan Pellenberg answered bluntly, no, it's the opposite. He explained further, the gem changes color when it detects corrupting energy. Hearing that, Bella jumped. What? She denied it vehemently. Impossible, it must be broken. Fernan Pellenberg sighed helplessly and tried to calm her. Stay calm, I won't do anything. Suddenly Jace Vines stepped forward and chanted, O great dragon. Flames erupted with each incantation. I offer you a wicked human. Fernan Pellenberg was astonished. Wait. The voice continued, who has accepted demonkind into their heart, Bella. Bella raised her hands to shield her face. Please care for your people. At that moment, Jace Vines nearly unleashed his power. There, dragon. He struck out as the desperate cry rang out, Jace, wait. The velvet box in the orb now lay rolling on the floor. Luna Burchef drew her sword ready while Bella had fallen. What had happened to her? Jace Vines refused to stay calm and made a scene. I'll kill you, you evil one. Fernan Pellenberg scolded the bastard. You can't recklessly use magic like that. Jace Vines wondered, since when did the head of a department become a prophet? So students at the academy are infected with corrupting energy and someone is spreading it everywhere. He scratched his chin, thinking it over. Bella actually never met or made a pact with Demonkind. Why am I so sure she had no contact with them? Fernan Pellenberg replied flatly, I've been watching her for days, but there's nothing suspicious. If he's right, this is very serious. Jace Vines and Fernan Pellenberg kept debating passionately. We'd better ask the guild for help, save her poor soul first. No, the demons will hide if we make this public, but who knows who might be waiting out there. Then Fernan Pellenberg emphasized everything. Listen closely, Jace, the demon race must not know we've discovered them. He put a hand on Jace Vines' shoulder and proposed, I have a plan. If you help me, we can wipe them out with an ambush. Jace Vines clenched his teeth, his voice dark, wipe them all out. His expression darkened, fists clenched. Fine, tell me what to do. Immediately after, Fernan Pellenberg asked further, can you remove the corrupting energy from Bella? She naturally, of course. Jace Vines politely reached out, please give me your hand, but Bella recoiled in fear. Are you going to kill me? Jace Vines answered slyly, line by line, I will purify the corrupting energy in your body. I do not intend to kill you, not at all. Bella didn't believe him, she wanted to go home, lying, your eyes look terrifying. Bella, wait, I won't kill you, I'm scared of him, I want to go home. Jace Vines pleaded, Fernan, do something. Bella still resisted, no, stay away from me, while Fernan Pellenberg sighed helplessly. Pshaw. He walked over and whispered into Jace Vines' ear, see? I told you Bella isn't a bad person. If you don't stop that look, I'll cut our work with the guild in half. Hearing that, Jace Vines paused for a few seconds to process the information. Then he adopted a kitten-like expression and said, oh my, sorry. Fernan Pellenberg patted his shoulder admiringly. Good boy. Bella was still resisting the coaxing. It's okay, give me your hand. Jace Vines' expression shifted 360 degrees. The guild only eliminates evildoers and demons. We don't harm the innocent. Only then did Bella speak up. Is there really a spell to purge corrupting energy? Jace Vines patiently answered, yes, that's a right we've all had to learn. Bella gradually relaxed and placed her hand in Jace Vines's. Will I be okay? He replied, of course it won't harm you. Immediately, before she could react, a bolt of electricity swept through her body, accompanied by a belated remark, ah, it just stings a bit. After the procedure, Jace Vines rubbed his hands and explained, it burns inside to strip away the corrupting energy. Luana Berchef shook Bella. She had fainted. Bella. After the electric surge, scorch marks spread across the wall. Luana Berchef exclaimed, this building is really sturdy. I thought Jace's spell would bring the whole place down. Fernan Pellenberg, inspecting the liquor cabinet, explained, it's built to withstand strong shocks and loud noises. Luana Berchef understood. Ah, I see. Fernan Pellenberg then asked about Bella's condition. Bella, are you okay? Luana Berchef put a hand to her nose and answered, yes, she's still breathing, though she probably won't wake up soon. Fernan Pellenberg took a bottle from the shelf when Luana Berchef said, maybe we should carry her back to the dorm. He stopped her. Wait a moment. Luana Berchef cried out in confusion, what are you doing? While Fernan Pellenberg was pouring wine directly onto Bella. I think she'll be less suspected if she looks drunk. Luana Berchef hesitated. Is that really necessary? Fernan Pellenberg explained, being careful can't hurt. Besides, I don't know where the demon folk are. Luana Berchef worriedly helped Bella up and sighed, drinking in the daytime. I'm worried about her reputation. Fernan Pellenberg draped his coat over Bella and offered a solution. Then cover her face with this, ah, that'll do. Luana Berchef supported Bella as they left, calling back thanks for the help, Fernan. Fernan Pellenberg held the bottle in his hand. There's a little left, shall I finish it? And that was the end of Bella's matter. He walked while thinking, now I have to use Jace to find all the people infected with corrupting energy. We'll purify as many as possible. Fernan Pellenberg sighed at the situation. That's the only way to reduce chaos. It's best to prevent the demons from appearing. But I don't yet know how. He slowly poured a drink. First, I'll prepare for what will happen at the yacht club meeting. Before that, I investigated some suspicious infiltrators at the trade guild. He lifted the glass to his lips and sipped, and discovered one of them had already become a crew member on the yacht. But I didn't know they were collaborating with the demons. He stood there thinking, bottle in hand. This is the most natural scenario I can devise to prove I'm not connected to the demons. It's not hard to plan when you can foresee the future. His red-tinged eyes narrowed slightly. If everything goes according to plan, Ain't will believe me 100% afterward. Fernan Pellenberg spread a supremely confident smile. It won't be long before he considers me a friend. Another day passed. The next morning, sunlight spread across the entire harbor. At the corner of Fernan Pellenberg's mouth, he now pressed his lips into a smile. He crossed his arms and declared, it's time for me to catch my fish, while the attendant looked puzzled. Fish. The headmaster was silent for a moment, then looked at Fernan and asked, I heard from Professor Grad that you want exclusive rights to sell the boats. In the room, at a large wooden table, the two sat facing each other while Hyde stood quietly beside Fernan watching the tense negotiation. The headmaster analyzed. They say they'll buy the Sea Dragon at a good price, but exclusive rights to the boats is a bit much. He paused to consider, then continued. Here's another condition, student Fernan. Perhaps I should call you branch chief of the Golden Turtle Guild now. Thinking of this indispensable trade agreement, he smiled amicably and proposed. In exchange for the Academy holding exclusive boat-selling rights for the next 20 years, we will supply any byproducts from the Sea Dragon at reasonable prices upon request. Fernan took a small sip of coffee, silently evaluating. Carcasses of magical beasts are most valuable sold intact, buy the carcass at a high price and sell the byproducts cheaply. He set the cup down, looking pensive like an old man as he continued weighing the options. Normally I would never agree, but now it's time to take a step back. With a sharp gaze like a seasoned gentleman of commerce, Fernan smiled and agreed. Fine, add that condition to the contract. He couldn't help but think the Academy's boat industry would bring him even greater profits. He skimmed the contract and felt relatively satisfied. Sale agreement. 1. The Golden Turtle Guild, hereafter Party A, will buy the Sea Dragon carcass at the price proposed by Army and Academy, hereafter Party B. 2. Party A will hold exclusive rights to all boats, including warships, cruisers, and yachts supplied by Party B for the next 20 years. 3. Party A will sell some Sea Dragon byproducts to Party B at reasonable prices. Finally, the negotiation was done. The two shook hands happily and the contract was signed. On the way, Hyde praised him enthusiastically. Well done, young master, but Fernan remained calm. This isn't my first contract. Hyde continued to study the contract intently and asked, but why do you insist on exclusive rights to these boats? This will require support from my family. He still felt uneasy. Actually, I don't think the Duke will agree. He'll probably say there's no profit. Hyde's real worry was whether signing the contract without consulting him first would be okay, but Fernan smiled confidently and said, not yet, but the opportunity will surely come soon. Hearing that, Hyde looked quite surprised. Really? Fernan confirmed again, I told you. By the way, where's the yacht crew list? Hyde strolled behind and only then remembered. Oh, I left it on the desk in my office. Fernan, unable to wait, asked first, any suspicious people on it? He replied nonchalantly, no. Fernan's expression gradually darkened as he kept speculating. Makes sense. If they were easy to expose, they wouldn't be demons. Damn. Then he felt there was no need to worry too much. Fine, this time Ain't will handle everything. No need to fret. He felt there was luck in misfortune. It's a shame if such a beautiful ship gets damaged, but in return we catch the monsters, business will thrive, and… Fernan broke into a confident, triumphant smile. Ain't will be completely on my side. He crossed his arms and grinned smugly at Hyde. Looks like it's time to haul in the net and catch the fish that have been swimming free all this time. Fish. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Ain't suddenly felt his body tremble and a chill run down his spine. He was in his study and the spirit gardener asked beside him how he was doing. Ain't replied softly, not bad, thanks to the spirit herbs I obtained in the underground sea cave. The holy bird's magic has been fully absorbed. Hearing that, Gardner immediately laughed with delight. Good, we'll replenish magic and sell adamant for money. Gardner puffed out his chest proudly. Having a wealthy ally is truly reassuring. Ain't immediately seized on the key point and looked at him probingly. Speaking of which, what do you think about inviting Fernan to be an ally? At the mention of that name, Gardner exclaimed in alarm, what, that rich guy? He repeated what Gardner had said. You said having a wealthy ally puts you at ease. Wouldn't it be even better if he sided with us? Gardner thought it over and nodded. Sounds reasonable, not a bad idea. War needs money. Gardner considered they're not fools. If they realize the seriousness, they'll surely pay up. Then Ain't had another idea. It's best to show Fernan the demons directly. As soon as he said it, he laughed at the thought, but I've never seen demons or monsters before, so I don't know how. Gardner immediately reinforced the opinion. Demons are real. One day they'll definitely reveal themselves. He also reminded him not to trust Fallenberg even if he invites him as an ally. Ain't was a bit surprised by that information. Why? Gardner answered bluntly. Fallenberg once traded with demons and explained that they're the sort of people who don't care if the other party is a demon as long as there's profit. Gardner asserted that they are the kind of primitives who would sell anything to demons. Hearing Gardner's advice that by playing their cards cleverly they ultimately preserved their minor lordly house, Ain't flatly refused. No. He clenched his fist and said firmly, Fernan would never do that. He's kind, generous, honest, noble, and would never abandon someone in need. Gardner sniffed and said, fool, you're too infatuated with that rich guy. Suddenly footsteps approached. Ain't hurriedly told Gardner, someone's coming, quick, hide under the desk. Just then a voice called out, Ain't. It was Valosi Veendurk, the top freshman of the night division. Valosi Veendurk, heir to the Veendurk family, who had come by unexpectedly. I wondered where you were. Turns out you're here. Ain't asked in surprise, are you looking for me, Valosi? He immediately confirmed. Yes, I received an invitation letter from the yacht club. Valosi explained they allow members to bring one guest, so I thought I'd go with you. Ain't was surprised and a bit incredulous. The yacht club, where noble offspring gather. But Valosi looked at him expectantly. That's right, you need a current member's introduction to join, and since you're from Armian, you're eligible. Ain't felt unenthusiastic. He stroked his chin in thought. The yacht club, huh? Gardner, seeing this, whispered in, if it's a gathering of noble offspring, Schwaben will definitely be there, right? While Valosi tried to appear as friendly as possible to persuade Ain't, Gardner kept chattering nonstop, sounding extremely toxic toward him. That guy clearly wants to drag you into trouble. People are already keeping their distance from you, afraid of Schwaben. Valosi Vindurk is pretending to be your friend but really wants to trick you. Refuse him immediately. While Ain't still hesitated, thinking to decline, he said, Valosi, thanks, but maybe it's better not to go. Suddenly Gardner changed tone. Ah, wait a moment. Now it was more eager than anyone. If it's the yacht club, won't we be heading out to sea? Just tell them you'll go. Oh, I almost forgot. There's also one of Xianhuang's setups out at sea. Valosi added more reasons to persuade him. So you'll go, right, Ain't? Schwaben will make things difficult, but you have nothing to lose. Just say you'll go. Hearing that, he gave a hesitant smile and then agreed. Okay, I'll go, just tell me the time and date. Valosi looked quite pleased at achieving his goal and immediately said, very well. Then he waved goodbye, see you later. Meanwhile, Gardner in the room was extremely excited. If our routes match, I can make use of Xianhuang's setup there. Ain't wondered how many setups Xianhuang had left. Too many, Gardner explained. Grab as many as possible to deal with the demonic creatures. In the schoolyard, Luna sat on a bench reading intently when a voice suddenly cut in. Take this. She wondered, what is it? Vernon sat down beside her, propping his leg up casually. An invitation card to the yacht club, the yacht club. She scoffed, getting an invitation from the one who once tried to stop me from joining, how surprising. He asked in surprise, you already knew. Luna said absent-mindedly, Bella is also a member of the yacht club. He replied, ah, that's right. Vernon looked at Luna's sullen face and thought to himself, I'm the one who blocked Luna from joining. I originally intended to pressure her with the pretext of debt. Then he inwardly mused that honestly not many people are worthy of being yacht club members like Luna. She stared at the invitation, then suddenly looked up and asked, so why did you change your mind so suddenly? He answered bluntly, I discovered traces of a fiend. Vernon gave her a meaningful glance. I got word something will happen at the yacht club, so I set a trap. Having a reliable ally would be even better. Good, I absolutely won't forgive them for letting Bella be tainted. Hearing that, Luna's mood suddenly shifted to excitement. She sprang to her feet. This time we must take revenge. Exactly what Vernon wanted. He smiled inwardly in satisfaction. Good attitude. He showed concern. By the way, is Bella awake yet? She answered, not yet. He looked worried. Not yet. It's been a whole day. He thought to himself about that Jace. How many has he burned already? Let Jace handle purifying the corrupting energy, he reassured himself. She'll probably wake up. I'm praying for that. Self-reassuring, he suggested to Luna, it'll be fine. It's lunchtime. Shall we go eat? She hesitated slightly, then said, yeah, let's go. The two left together. He asked, is the next period an off-campus class? She said, Just as they departed, Varen, hair disheveled, appeared right behind them. He slumped down into a chair. He frowned, clasping his hands in thought. How did it come to this? Then he ran a hand through his hair pensively. I, the proud heir of Calburton, once the second-ranked student in the night division, am now just a memory. Whenever he thought of that face, he felt a sting of humiliation. Defeated by an Armian upstart, someone Calburton was supposed to surpass to become head of the house. Varen grew more anguished, recalling Ain't's cold dismissal, and even worse, the prince I trusted must have abandoned me. But that ain't. Anger welled up for no clear reason. Valosi Vindurk, the one I longed to befriend, had received the yacht club invitation I coveted. Varen pictured their closeness and wept. That place should have been mine. It was infuriating. The recipient of that invitation should have been me. Overwhelmed by tangled emotions, Varen buried his face in his knees, suffering from lovesick anguish and endless blame. Everything had been going well. Ain't Armian, that bastard. Suddenly a voice echoed, hello, Varen. He had been thinking of Ain't when he appeared, smiling warmly. Do you want to have lunch with me? Ain't Armian pointed at himself and addressed the man before him. Do you want to have lunch with me? Varen Kalbunder frowned irritably and replied, what lunch? He beamed, well, I just saw you looking lonely. Varen leapt up and shouted angrily, and whose fault is that? Ain't Armian's face registered baffled confusion. Mine. Varen Kalbunder shouted, blushing, yes, who else would it be? He pointed at him in fury and ranted, because I lost to you, the second prince abandoned me, and since then no one wants to be friends with me. Do you know that? Then Varen fell silent, panic rising inwardly. I've blurted everything out to him. He sank into his anxieties. Schwaben and Armian are already at odds. If he learns my supporter is a Schwaben, I'm ruined. Won't my life become even more miserable? But Ain't Armian's words startled Varen. So the second prince is your friend? Then it's really my fault you have no friends. He smiled sincerely in apology. I'm sorry, so please have lunch with me. Sorry. Varen stared at Ain't Armian, softly uttering, WH what? Seeing the man before him, Varen naturally grew suspicious. Doesn't he care? What is he really up to? He reached for the book on the bench and said tersely, dream on. Varen Kalbunder sprinted off, his voice echoing, this isn't some teen novel where enemies become friends. He raised his hand and called back, "Ah, Varen, wait." Varen Kalbunder's determined shout froze Ain't Armian in place. "Don't insult me any further, Ain't Armian." The book and water bottle sat on the fountain's rim when a voice said, "See, I told you it wouldn't work." He leaned against the fountain and spoke to the spirit gardener Ulfenparson. "Do we really have to do this? Calburdon may have lost to you, but he's still a capable guy." It smugly declared, not noticing Ain't Armian calmly eating bread behind them. "If not for me, you would never have beaten him. I'm so cool." Thanks." The spirit gardener Ulfenparson turned and said, "What's important is he has no talented friends, just like you." He stopped eating his bread, looked up, and replied, "It's not that I don't have friends." It ignored Ain't Armian's protest and continued, "Whatever the reason, the result is the same. In truth, it's Schwaben to blame, a cold fact. If you had friends, you wouldn't be eating lunch alone like this." An image of him and Varen slapping hands flashed as Gardener Ulfenparson's voice remarked that losers banding together isn't bad. A loser's alliance. It advised Ain't Armian to try approaching Calburdon. He sighed in agreement. "I'll give it a try." Ain't Armian picked up the water bottle and said, "Anyway, I need you to come along if we want to find what the founding emperor left behind, but I don't know if I can bring a sword to the club meeting." The silhouette of Ain't Armian in his vest with a sword at his side appeared. The spirit gardener Ulfenparson asked, "Why not?" He replied, "Probably fine, but wearing a sword over a suit would look odd. I feel like I'd be mocked." Then remembering, Ain't Armian asked, "Should I put it in the storage space?" The spirit gardener Ulfenparson immediately objected, "No, not there. I wouldn't know what's going on outside." Its eyes flashed with fire, voice full of rivalry. "The moment you meet Schwaben, the traitorous blood stole the throne from Armian." He took a sip of water and complained, "You're noisy." Ain't Armian asked the key question, "So how should I carry the sword?" The spirit gardener Ulfenparson reassured him, "Don't worry." An image of the sword placed near him appeared. Its voice echoed, "I told you there's mithril in the blade, right? Mithril can absorb souls, but it can do many other things too." The sword suddenly rose and began to glow. The spirit gardener Ulfenparson spoke like this. It chuckled at the tiny sword. "You can even shrink it down." Ain't Armian pinched the sword between two fingers, exclaiming, "I didn't expect this was possible. Very good." The spirit gardener Ulfenparson said, "Nobody will notice if you wear it like a pendant." A pendant, back in my day, this was all the rage. An image of a swarthy man with silver hair appeared, women fawning behind him. The voice continued, "So many women swooned when I wore a necklace like that. The golden age of Guardian. I'm sure women today would like it too." But his calm reply deflated it, its expression cracked, tacky. The spirit gardener Ulfenparson, furious, bit Ain't Armian's head, figuratively shouting, "Tacky? You kids don't know what cool is. Fine, I'll stuff it in your pocket." The sky turned golden and a light breeze sent leaves drifting toward the grand mansion. A voice called from there, "We've deployed the Crimson Ward armor in the academy per your orders." Hyde stood beside Fernan Pellenberg reporting, "They'll act as soon as the demonic beasts appear." He asked further about the recording orbs. Fernan answered, "They've been distributed throughout the yacht." He fell silent, revealing a plan. "We'll monitor the demons that way." A coat was taken down from the wardrobe and Hyde's voice rang out, "Are you sure they've really infiltrated the trading guild? I know you're not lying, but it's hard to believe." He looked stunned. "Demons appearing in this era? Where did you get that information?" Fernan Pellenberg replied, "I have my own sources." Hyde looked puzzled at him. "I thought I was your spy." Fernan Pellenberg spoke up, "But just because you're my subordinate doesn't mean you know everything in my head." He seemed to realize and probed, "Oh, could it be Jace Weinz?" Hyde said as he helped him into his coat, "The Serpent God's order knows a lot about demons. You've been meeting him often lately." Fernan hesitated, then answered, Anyway, the important thing is to catch those demons." His neckerchief was tightened neatly and he asked, "Then what?" Fernan Pellenberg said, "I'll find out." His face darkened and his tone grew heavier. "How did they infiltrate this place? How are they concealing their identities? What's their true motive?" A demonic silhouette appeared sitting on a pile of skulls with black swords plunged into the ground. A voice rang out, "And who stands behind all of this?" Fernan Pellenberg turned and smiled, accompanied by Ain't Armian. Hyde handed him a mask and asked curiously, "What does Ain't Armian have to do with this?" Fernan Pellenberg smiled smugly. "I gave him the heart of the holy bird. In return, he must prove his worth." Below the ship, a crowded throng of guests stood beneath. A voice echoed, "Tonight, I place my trust in you, Ain't Armian." He frowned thoughtfully, gazing ahead, and murmured, It seems I was wrong. I should have sent you a formal outfit or something." Fernan Pellenberg glanced at Luina Berchef looking hesitant and said, "I didn't expect you'd come here in your academy uniform." She asked, "Am I not allowed?" He replied calmly, "No, it's fine, though buying one would probably be expensive." Luina Berchef tried to explain, "Actually, I did go shopping, but none of the outfits suited me. At least I'm wearing a mask." Fernan Pellenberg smiled softly at her flustered reaction and said, "All right then." He reached out his hand in invitation, his warm voice sounding, "Shall we go in?" Luna Berchef looked at Fernan Pellenberg's outstretched hand, awkwardly asking, what do we have to hold hands? He spoke gently, I'm your companion, so I should escort you. Fernan Pellenberg added, it's the custom, thinking to himself, though honestly it's not strictly necessary. Inside the ballroom many people had gathered, he thought, but I must keep her within a certain range to ensure my safety. A woman with orange hair whispered, isn't that Fernan and Luna? Guests at the ball murmured. Fernan Pellenberg calculated, I've invested a lot already. A man spoke quietly to his neighbor, they really do seem close. He thought inwardly that now they're fairly intimate. They entered the great hall hand in hand. Fernan Pellenberg calculated that he needed to display this friendship so no one would try to steal her from him. He asked softly, shall I call you my lady? Luna Berchef snapped, no need. A man loudly announced, below, the anchor is being raised, we will depart shortly. Please board the ship. The ship set sail as fireworks filled the night sky. Everyone was swept up in the ball's atmosphere. Their conversation continued. Bella will help this time, right? Yes, she's full of hatred for the demons. An image of an angry red-haired woman appeared. She said that when she woke up, she was angrier at Jace. The woman shouted in fury, Jace, that name, he even burned my mana. Luna Berchef said, but I helped her direct that anger toward the demons. Fernan Pellenberg exclaimed, good. Her gaze was suddenly drawn to something, and she glanced over. Luna Berchef turned and asked, what's going on? He whispered, interesting. Two blonde young men stood facing each other. A voice announced, perhaps everyone here has been waiting for this moment. Ludger Schwaben regarded the person opposite him with solemn arrogance, his voice ringing out, the reunion of Schwaben and Armian. Ain't Armian also watched the man facing him intently. The spirit gardener cried out with glee, Ludger Schwaben, that name is royal blood, the one who stole the emperor's throne, I've caught him. Ludger glanced at Ain't and said, so you're Ain't. Ain't returned the look sharply while the spirit murmured in his ear, hey Ain't, make him kneel and. Before the words finished, he inclined himself slightly in greeting, your highness, I bow. The spirit gardener instantly exploded, what the hell? It spat fire and yelled in Aint's ear, how can an Armian bow to that bastard? Ludger suddenly laughed, haha, your highness. The next instant he placed a hand on his shoulder and said, this is an academy, you must follow its rules. Everyone here is equal, you don't need to observe that kind of ceremony. Ain't listened silently to every word Ludger spoke, then said, still, you should keep your manners since I am your senior. He smiled, his expression softening slightly, I'll remember. Good, now enjoy the party. No sooner had he finished than Ludger brushed past Ain't and walked straight on, here you go. Meanwhile Gardner was still bitterly berating him, Ain't, how could you do that? In the distance he was greeting two others, long time no see, long time no see. Valosi Ain't murmured quietly, I had no other choice. He glanced at the pile of drinks and thought to himself, I'm thirsty, should I have a sip? Meanwhile it kept whispering in his ear, Schwaben, that bastard, I'll make him pay. Ain't picked up a glass and reassured, calm down. Why do you think Valosi invited me there? Gardner pondered a moment then replied, I guess one of those three is plotting something. He chuckled after hearing that, so many suspects, huh? It even put on a detective's outfit, pipe in its mouth. Following my brilliant logic, Sherlock Gardner, at your service. Want to hear it? Ain't bluntly asked, do I have to listen? Gardner didn't hesitate, yes, first. The serious face of Ludger immediately appeared. Ludger Schwaben could be up to something. He's the Empire's second prince, so he'd certainly hold a grudge against you. Next came Fernan's smug face. Second, Fernan Pellenberg. He's rich enough to turn an ordinary club into a yacht club. His influence is huge. Finally, the beaming face of Valosi. Third, Valosi Byenderk, heir to a prestigious family. He always puts on a pleasant expression. After listing the three, Gardner concluded, I still can't guess what he's thinking. Meanwhile, Ain't sighed inwardly, I told you, Fernan wouldn't do that kind of thing. It suddenly spoke up, but there's one more. If it's none of those three, he asked curiously, then what? Gardner shut its eyes and turned away, then Valosi Byenderk must be crazy. Ain't heard that and laughed, now I'm curious too. Who made me come here? On the other side, Ludger was smiling proudly. It was me. He spoke plainly, I think if you send an extra invitation to Valosi, he'll call you. Ludger affirmed without hesitation, after all we can't avoid each other forever. Fernan thought to himself, but that's not the only reason, right? Thoughts kept popping into his head. He wanted to prove himself superior as a senior, since he couldn't flaunt royal blood before the descendants of the founding emperor. Still, outwardly Fernan asked, so what? He then curled his lip and remarked, boring, I didn't expect he'd be so obedient. But Ludger turned and asked back, what about you? You brought Luna Berchef here. He smiled slightly and answered, what's wrong with her? Her grades and family background both qualify, you're the one who blocked her from joining. He guessed seriously, you've been close to her since the start of the school year. Do you like her? Fernan calmly readjusted his mask, who knows. The next moment he turned and left abruptly, I'm off. Ludger thought angrily, couldn't he just say it straight to me, bastard? Meanwhile, Luna stood in a corner and told herself, I won't let my guard down, the goal tonight isn't socializing, it's catching demons. But where the hell is Fernan? At that moment a call made her look up. Luna. Ain't smiled brightly and asked warmly, how have you been? It's so nice to see you here. Luna replied coldly, long time no see. Ain't cheerfully asked, "Do you remember me?" She suddenly answered with an unrelated line, "Yes, Fernan." He hesitated and replied, "That's right, Nan." Ain't then startled and said, "No, I'm Ain't Armian, our hair is different." Luina, unconcerned, added, "Where are you headed?" He finally turned to look back. "Ah, Fernan just said he went outside for some air." Ain't immediately greeted, "Hello, Fernan," folding his arms as he said casually, "Ain't, I didn't know you and Luina were friends." Luina answered for him then, "We've met once." Then she shook her head to deny it, "Not friends." Vernon's red eyes suddenly flashed, "So that's it, Ain't." He watched Ain't's expression and thought he looked disappointed. Maybe everything is unfolding just like the prophecy said, because I didn't intervene. Vernon privately marveled that it was fortunate he'd invested in Luina and built a friendship with her. Then he smiled and said, "Come on, Luina, I need to talk to you." Seeing them about to leave, Ain't took the hint and said, "Then I'll excuse myself." Fernan replied politely, "Enjoy the party." Walking beside Fernan, Luina scolded angrily, "You should have warned me, you know I was looking for you." He replied calmly, "Sorry about that." Meanwhile, Ain't's gaze quietly followed them. They seemed pretty close, huh? But he sighed heavily, probably because they're classmates. Gardner piped up at the right moment, "I wonder why you're all dressed up today." "Oh, it's because of that girl." Ain't denied without hesitation, "No. It didn't pay attention and went on. Are you head over heels for her at first sight? How easy." As for Fernan, he stood by the window talking with Luina. "I didn't think demons would hide just to attend a party. Something will happen sooner or later. When it does, don't panic. Pursue the demons immediately." Pausing, Fernan looked at her and added, "Even if the yacht sinks, we must stay focused on capturing them." Luina grew a little anxious. "Sink? Not that bad, surely." He reminded her, "You must always prepare for the worst." Luina took Fernan's words seriously. "All preparations have been made, so the students will be safe even if the yacht sinks. Our goal is to capture the demons alive." He affirmed without hesitation that it certainly seems someone inside the academy is colluding with them. "We just need to find out who it is. I can't tell Luina everything, but I know exactly what's going to happen." At the same time, on the other side, Gardner nagged in Ain't's ear, "Hey, you went after that woman instead of looking for the relic left by the founding emperor." He replied wearily, "I told you, that's not it. Demons and monsters are lying in ambush and the yacht will sink." Ain't muttered, "You don't have time to dally with women. I shouldn't have brought him along. Everything has to happen for my plan to succeed." "Demons and monsters lie in ambush and the yacht will sink." Ain't mumbled, "You don't have time to dally with women. I shouldn't have brought him along. Everything must happen for my plan to work." Just then someone started a conversation with him. "You're Armian, right? Once the yacht sinks, Ain't will be stranded on the island that holds the founding emperor's relics." The man set 4 glasses on a tray in front of Ain't. "At that point, the demons will ambush him, and Luina and I, while chasing the spiritual energy, will run into Ain't." The young man with slanted eyes offered, "Would you like a glass? If so, the course of the prophecy might be altered." Gardner suddenly grumbled, "How do you expect to win a war against demons with that kind of thinking?" Ain't calmly took a glass from the man's silver tray and said, "Fine." He slowly raised the glass to his lips, but Ain't suddenly asked, "How did you know I was Armian?" In that brief instant, time and the surroundings seemed to freeze. Something flashed past and sliced through his mask. Ain't. The once intact glasses fell to the floor. Ain't trembled as he tried to fend off the attacker. What is this?" At that moment, the sharp blade was about to pierce his chest. In the critical instant, the sword Ain't always carried at his side suddenly shot upward. It flew in a circle on its own and attacked the young man with slanted eyes. Then it circled the two of them a few times. Finally, it slid into Ain't's hand as he assumed a ready fighting stance. Ain't gripped the sword tightly and rushed forward without hesitation. He aimed for the enemy's weak spot and swung his sword down. But the slanted-eyed man in an instant had already moved behind Ain't. The man's face darkened, and a weird, demonic aura streamed from his mouth. He blurted out instinctively, "I'm not used to sensing this kind of energy. What is it?" Meanwhile, the slanted-eyed man's whole body became wrapped in that corrupt aura. "It's demonic chi. He's a demon." Ain't started at the man's appearance. How could someone from the Pellenberg trading convoy be like this? Before the words finished, a loud noise fell over him and silenced him. All the items in the ship's room toppled toward one direction. The entire large ship was struck by a sudden tremor and lurched. Ain't turned around in alarm. A mass of maw-like openings rose up from the sea worms. The great ship rocked on the waves, surrounded by a swarm of worms. Those on board screamed, "Sea worms, disgusting." 2 masked guests peered down at the sea in panic. "Why are there so many?" The man beside them tried to calm them. "There are too many, don't panic." But in an instant, the sea worms surged onto the ship, sending everyone scattering. A blonde woman shouted orders at the others, "Fight them. Don't just stand there, wait, don't use fire magic." In her desperate screams, "You'll burn the whole ship." Idiot, between the smoke and flames, 2 men were dueling with swords. Feet stamped the wooden planks with skillful, ghostly precision. Before Ain't could steady himself, a sea worm suddenly appeared behind him like a vengeful phantom. The crazed man looked high on something, smoke spilling from his mouth as he lunged wildly. Ain't gritted his teeth and in a flash reacted to the man. A blade descended like a thunderbolt, making the ugly worm screech for its mother. But when the man calmed down, he couldn't find Ain't anywhere and spun around around to search in all directions. Little did he know Ain't had already materialized behind him in a stance, cutting off the man's head, his gaze like an ice-cold CEO. That ruse couldn't fool the high-on-drugs man. Luckily, he didn't join the headless ranks. They clashed like mad, eyes locked with murderous intent. Gardner called out, "This guy's a professionally trained assassin. Look at how he moves. He's stronger than you." Then a voice in his head gave a crass suggestion: throw him overboard. He actually used his 10-year unwashed foot to stomp the opponent. The assassin flew toward the swarm of bugs at a speed no 12th grade physics could calculate. Ain't stood on the deck with an expressionless stare down at the sea teeming with worms. Then he asked in a cold voice, "Is he dead?" A voice in his head answered, "He fell into the worm's nest. He's definitely dead." Looking at the writhing worms with shark-like jaws below, Ain't asked perplexed, "What's actually happening here?" A golden flash streaked by, blue syrup with a fragrant scent splashed everywhere like a girlfriend's drink. Gardner replied to him, "The demons are targeting you." He gritted his teeth to dodge the splattered blue syrup. Gardner continued sounding off. They've finally begun to act. Suddenly, a terrifying sound rang out that made Ain't's face go ashen like ours when we hear bad news about Mom. The atmosphere turned gloomy. The guests gaped and said, "That's..." The final boss had appeared. A powered-up sea serpent rose from the ocean's surface. The crowd screamed in horror. A sea wyvern. The squire moves to the front, the Magic Academy support from the rear. Gardner snapped angrily at that. "Sea serpent? The demons really want to kill you." Ain't looked up, his face serious and righteous, and said, "I have to deal with the monster first." He said with rising worry, "The ship's going to sink." And at that moment, the man he'd kicked into the sea was lunging at him with a silver knife and bloodshot eyes. Ain't quickly leaped aside and dodged the killing blow. He gritted his teeth and hissed under his breath, "Damn it, I thought he was dead." While Ain't was still distracted, that dirtied-up buffed water snake opened its mouth and flew forward. With Gardner's terrified scream, Ain't shouts, "Careful." Before he could fully register it, a flash of light streaked like a divine gleam. Ain't's hand dropped the sword. Gardner screamed like someone who'd lost his father. "Ain't, wake up." Gardner's desperate cry rang out as Ain't and a sword fell into the sea. The sea serpent suddenly flicked its tail. One quick reacting man shouted a warning, "Everyone get back." The serpent slapped its tail and the ship split in two. Its strength rivaled that of the Blind King, no doubt. The sea waves lapped at the shore, surprisingly chill. Only Ain't had no mood to enjoy it after barely escaping death. Gardner hovered and asked him, "Ain't, are you okay?" He was soaked like a drowned rat, breathed hard a few times and asked, "What happened?" "I passed out after the sea serpent attack." Gardner quickly explained, "You were hit by the sea serpent's breath. It temporarily paralyzed your body." He recalled the scene when Ain't fell into the sea. A blue vortex wrapped him. "You were frozen and knocked unconscious as the ship sank, but I broke the effect and kept your body heat stable, so you regained consciousness." Surprisingly, that useless-looking little blue thing could do that. He asked, "You can do that too?" Gardner hovered by Ain't and explained kindly, "Your sword not only sealed my soul, it's also a magical tool that fully supports the air." He replied casually, "I see." Looking around at trees beyond the sea, Ain't asked, dazed, "But where are we?" Gardner got excited and said, "Ain't, this is it, the place where the founding emperor left the item for you." He smiled bright as a little sun and said, "You're lucky. The island you washed up on is exactly where we've been searching. The founding emperor must have guided us here." Then Gardner couldn't help urging, "Hurry, I have to get that item before the rescue team arrives." But Ain't asked, "What about the others?" Gardner, who didn't overthink, answered nonchalantly, "Of course, they're all outstanding members of the academy." He continued, "I guess the sea serpent has sunk to the bottom by now," when suddenly a streak of purple light appeared, signaling ill omen. Ain't, having just surfaced from the underworld gate, smelled it immediately and narrowed his eyes. If he'd been a second slower, he might have been sliced in two by that dark purple killing strike. Old shoes shuffled from the beach onto land, looking like zombies from American movies. Ain't ground his teeth and scolded affectionately, "TSSK, these demons are stubborn." Sensing danger, Gardner slipped into his sword first, agitated, "I didn't expect them to chase us this far." Without answering Gardner, Ain't stared as another madman appeared and shouted loudly, "Why are there two? There was only one before." Gardner, helpless, said, "How would I know?" Then he warned angrily, "Careful, they're not easy opponents." Ain't obviously didn't need the reminder, "I know." Then he single-handedly took on two men at once. Not only that, but two more, one madman and one lunatic, rushed him with swords, the clash of steel ringing loudly. The three struggled fiercely, leaving only black afterimages and interwoven streaks of golden-purple blades. The newly arrived long-haired madman sneered wickedly and rushed forward. Ain't gripped his sword with a calm expression, ready to face that madman head-on. A powerful golden slash severed one of the long-haired madman's arms, but he showed no intention of stopping and kept charging like a certified lunatic. He grabbed Ain't's throat with his bare hands, something Ain't couldn't block. Then the other man man, knives in both hands, leapt down from above. A flash of purple light flared, as if a nuclear blast had just gone off. He survived the blast, but his legs could no longer hold him steady. A deep cut gaped on his shoulder, red blood flowing nonstop. Seeing his trembling shoulder, Ain't realized it's poisoned. Gardner finally spoke to reassure him, don't panic, use your battle chi to fight the poison. In that desperate moment, Ain't wondered, can I survive? Facing the two demons still brimming with ferocity, Gardner shouted firmly, you must live, you are Armian, you can't die at the hands of these petty demons. Gardner kept urging in his ear, Ain't, use your chi, but his vision was fading and his voice grew weak. I have no strength left. Gardner screamed in despair as one of them raised his sword to finish Ain't. But in that dangerous moment, two sand tornadoes suddenly appeared out of nowhere and swept the two attackers away. Ain't shielded his eyes from the sandstorm, silently asking himself, who is it? Through the blinding sand, he made out the silhouette of a man approaching. Vernon used a cyclone technique to blow the demons away. At the same time, a figure beside him flashed forward. A young woman sprang up, sword in hand, attacking the two demons. She raised her sword to head height, her cold, murderous gaze fixed on them. Luna then swung her blade in a horizontal cut, striking both of them. They were sent crashing to the ground with such force that dust exploded everywhere. Luna landed safely, bracing with one hand and kneeling on one knee to steady herself. But the demons weren't dead. They rose again with savage faces and charged. Luna nimbly raised her sword and chopped down, severing the female demon's torso. Because she was occupied with her, she couldn't stop the remaining demon from running up to attack Ain't. The male demon moved with swift speed, leaping toward him to strike. The beastly expression on his face was like that of a savage animal. His hands were razor sharp. A dangerous black aura swirled, lunging forward. The male demon, seeing he was about to kill Ain't, let out an excited, booming laugh. Seeing this, he gritted his teeth and resisted the poison on his shoulder, trying to rise and dodge. At the critical moment, sharp stone pillars suddenly sprang from the ground and pierced the demon's body. It turned out they were all created by Fernan. He stepped over to Ain't and asked with concern, you okay, Ain't? He rested his staff on his shoulder, smiled teasingly, you're hurt, aren't you? Ain't stared at him in bewilderment, breathing heavily on one side as he answered, yes, it's poison. Hearing that, Fernan produced a vial and said, this is the antidote, drink it. The vial fumbled an explanation, I'm purging it with light. Fernan held his hand before him and clarified, this will speed up the process. At that moment, Luna finally had a free moment to ask Fernan, is Ain't okay? He answered with one hand in his pocket and the other holding his staff, I've caught the one you let slip. She pulled the female demon along and calmly explained, I didn't let him get away, I deliberately released him. Luna slammed the female demon to the ground and stated nonchalantly, if I caught both of them it'd be boring. Fernan glanced at her and remarked, you really beat this one to pieces. Then he looked at her and asked, he's not dead, right? She replied casually, just unconscious, did you want me to take them alive? Hearing the exchange, Ain't raised an eyebrow in doubt, take them alive. Suddenly he was startled and amazed to hear Fernan's tone of disgust as he cursed, those damn demons, I finally caught them. He watched the two of them's retreating backs with suspicion. What these two already knew about the demons. Fernan ignored Ain't's reaction behind him and continued to study the male demon closely. Seeing that, Luna asked, you know him? He answered bluntly no. His gaze went cold as he slowly explained, I've investigated the backgrounds of every member of the Merchants Guild. Inwardly he was unmoved, thinking that no one could stand in my way. Suddenly Fernan grabbed the demon by the collar and growled, who are you? He leaned close to the demon and demanded in a firm tone, why did you infiltrate my Merchants Guild? Suddenly strange purple pustules began to appear on the male demon's face. Seeing that, Ain't cried out in horror and warned loudly, that's a self-destruct rune, get away. Luna also widened her eyes in alarm and shouted Fernan. In the next instant, an explosion erupted where Fernan stood. Ain't raised his hand to shield against the dust and smoke, peeking through to assess the situation. Fortunately, no one was hurt because Fernan had quickly formed a protective barrier around them both. Luna turned to him in surprise and asked, you anticipated that he'd self-destruct? He calmly denied it, no, I was just on high alert. Inwardly he thought, having seen the prophecy, how could I die to such a petty trick? Then he propped his chin and teased with a sly smile, but that's touching, you ran to save me. She, annoyed, turned away and revealed her true feelings, if anything happened to you I wouldn't gain anything. He didn't call her out, only smiled faintly and thanks, still thanks. Suddenly Fernan remembered something and said, right, I forgot Bella. Ain't looked at him puzzled, Bella, anyone else? He brushed dust from his shoulder and reminded them, we've captured the demons, tell her to come out. Luna followed his lead and called Bella. She calmly announced, you can come out now, and from within the forest, a young woman's figure stepped forward. Fernan extended his hand toward Bella and asked, did you record the demons? She raised a crystal orb and replied briefly, yes. He casually ordered, give it to me. Luna looked at the orb and declared, now I have proof. Watching him put the orb into his pocket space, Bella complained irritably, that's a bit unfair, which puzzled him. She frowned in discontent and explained, do you know how badly I want revenge on these guys and you only told me to record them? Luna stood beside her awkwardly and tried to console her, Bella, you haven't even recovered. Your aura was burned out when the demonic energy inside you separated. Bella didn't want to hear that. She expressed her frustration and bitterness. I can still fight one-on-one, can't I? She reluctantly soothed herself. Next time, Bella. Vernon watched her silently and thought, don't worry, Bella. He calmly considered, I didn't bring you here just to be a reporter. At that moment, a strange sound suddenly echoed through the air. Bella asked in astonished doubt, what was that sound? Luna warily looked in one direction and replied, it sounds like it's coming from the ocean. Aint recoiled in fear and blurted out that cry. He pointed in horror, a sea serpent, and as he spoke a massive sea snake burst up out of the water right in front of the four of them. Bella couldn't believe it and cried, it came all the way here. Are you kidding me? Vernon, as he conjured a shield with his staff to protect everyone, thought to himself at last. He caught Aint in a gust of wind and called out, Luna, I'll let you handle that thing first. Then he hauled him along and flew quickly away from the shoreline. His voice carried on the wind to the two women. I'll take Aint somewhere safe and come back. Bella turned to Luna suspiciously and asked, Luna, is it okay to let Vernon go like that? What if he runs off? She responded with a firm expression, Vernon isn't that kind of person, he'll come back. As for Vernon, he was already deep in the forest, running and calculating. I just need to get him close to where the founding emperor's artifact is located. At this point, Aint had regained some spirit and awkwardly pleaded, Vernon, can you put me down now? He glanced at him and agreed, oh, all right. Vernon set Aint firmly down on the ground. He breathed a sigh of relief and thanked him, thank you. Vernon turned back to him with instructions, you'll be safer here, rest a bit. He patted his head, worriedly adding, but a sea serpent isn't easy to defeat. Aint looked at him seriously and promised solemnly, once the poison in my body is fully cured, I'll come assist. Vernon didn't refuse and replied, that's good then. Vernon passed by him, thinking inwardly, I'll have Aint take the mission. He remarked casually, using light to detox requires intense concentration. Vernon turned and glanced at him to reassure him, there's no one around, so you won't be disturbed. Suddenly Aint's voice dropped as he called out, Vernon, tell me the truth. The tone startled him. He feigned calm and asked back, what is it? His voice was gentle and unreadable as he probed, you already know everything, don't you? Aint fixed him with a solemn look and slowly began to reveal the mystery about the prophecy. Vernon's eyes widened in surprise. He was speechless. This man was none other than Vernon Pellenberg, our protagonist. Vernon looked at Aint with terrified disbelief. What? You also know about the prophecy? Yet outwardly he appeared skeptical and asked, what do you mean? Aint placed a hand on his chest and replied seriously, the demons, the founding emperor once said that. Aint calmly recounted the grim, fiery future he had heard. The prophecy says the demons will once again flood into this world. He stared straight at Vernon, suspiciously asking, I'm a descendant of the founding emperor, and I only learned of this recently. So how did you already know? Vernon was silent and thought, I didn't know. He stroked his chin and mused, it seems Luna must have known earlier. Aint's eyes shone with curious speculation. Could some imperial clans already be aware of the founding emperor's prophecy? He looked enlightened and pointed at Vernon, concluding, so you were secretly preparing for this. I'll uncover the truth. Vernon helplessly watched him, unsure what to say. Sounds plausible, should I tell him he's right? He pondered thoughtfully. The boy believed it as if he'd just uncovered the whole truth, to the point I'd feel bad contradicting him. Then he sighed and explained, I only learned about the creatures when I traced suspicious expenditures in the Merchants Guild Fund. Aint stared blankly and asked, so you didn't know about the prophecy? Vernon replied firmly, no, I didn't even know it existed. Aint pressed further in doubt, then how did you know they were demons? He put on an extremely serious, solemn expression and fabricated a story. I've run into them several times while pursuing them, and each one gave off a profoundly unpleasant aura, surely demonic chi. The young man lied without shame, keeping a straight face. He continued to lie hard, saying he felt something off. It was just me and Lou. At that moment, a wave from the sea suddenly rose and struck the shore, catching his attention. Damn, they must be fighting on their own now. Vernon immediately cut the conversation short, glanced at Aint and said, we should leave right away. He calmly suggested, we'll discuss the details later. Hearing that, he obediently replied, yes. Suddenly Gardner appeared, gruffly saying, go. Aint, half dazed and confused, asked, what? Gardner pressed its spirit close to his face and earnestly reminded him, the poison in you is about to clear, go left, toward the center of the island, there you'll find what the founding emperor left for you. Hearing that, he suddenly snapped back to his purpose, right, Gardner announced contentedly, it's not far. The early sun dimly lit the gloomy forest around them. The two calmly cut through the jungle toward the target, Gardner circling beside Aint and marveling, you drifted to this island by chance and happened to come right near that place. Things have gone oddly smoothly. Finally it concluded, today must be your lucky day. He was full of doubt, speechless at its babbling. Aint couldn't believe it and repeated, lucky day. Instantly scenes from a few hours earlier flashed through his mind, the village sinking into the sea, nearly killed by the monster. Or when he reached shore, he was almost killed by demons. He shuddered in disgust, what kind of luck is that? Meanwhile, Gardner smugly insisted that surely the founding emperor is guiding them. Aint glanced at it and suddenly asked in puzzlement, but why were you silent when Vernon was talking? You usually talk a lot. Gardner explained nonchalantly, I was just observing because he showed up at the right moment. I thought he might be trying something with you, but it turns out he's been chasing the demons. Thinking of the demons' dangerous cunning, it warned seriously. Perhaps the demons have begun to act earlier than I expected. Gardner glanced at Ain't with admiration and praised, besides that one isn't bad. I knew Bershef had skill, but I didn't expect her to be that strong. It observed calmly she dispatched the demons easily while you were still struggling with them. That remark made him go quiet, indeed. Ain't recalled Luina's combat and expressed admiration. She's only a year older than me, yet the gap in ability is terrifying. Then he thought of Fernan's figure and mused inwardly. If I had allies like Luina or Fernan, fighting demons would be much easier. Gardner disagreed and warned, Bershef's fine, but don't trust the Pellenbergs easily. Do you know what happened when they once sold items to demons? The forest was quiet now except for their conversation. Upon hearing this, Ain't retorted, you always say that, but that happened 1,000 years ago. It stuck to that stance and insisted nothing can change, never trust the Pellenbergs. He looked at it baffled and scolded, but after all, they fought alongside humans, which is why they became one of the powerful clans. Why do you keep bringing up the past and blindly hating Fernan? Gardner was even more puzzled than he was. Moreover, Ain't sighed and said something that enraged it. He blurted out, what does something that happened 1,000 years ago have to do with him? It angrily flew up and smacked him on the head, snapping, hey, are you his lawyer or what? You kids never listen to your elders. He protested helplessly, I'm just saying you shouldn't hold such heavy prejudice against others. Ain't hung his head and confessed with shame, besides, if I actually became an ally, I'd just be a burden. He's far stronger than I am. Gardner confidently reassured him, don't worry about that, then looked ahead and happily announced, we've arrived. He asked in surprise here. It turned to Ain't with full confidence and said, that's right, you'll become much stronger if you eat that. But he, unbelieving and flustered, asked, eat what? Ain't stared at the tree towering several times his height and cried out, that thing. A whole tree? Luckily Gardner denied that and explained, no, the divine elixir is inside it. He asked, relieved, okay, so how do I get it out? Hearing that, it immediately gave detailed instructions, stab into the trunk. He followed the advice. The instant his sword was withdrawn, a brilliant golden light burst forth from the tree's trunk. The crack widened and revealed a glowing orb inside. Gardner examined the site and explained carefully, the founding emperor personally created this. It's entirely different from other elixirs. Ain't was dumbstruck, speechless at the miraculous radiance before him, while Gardner proudly declared that once you eat it, you will be completely transformed. Now the sky had fully brightened, illuminating the island and the vast sea. Suddenly, a loud explosion erupted from the island. It turned out Fernan's group was still fighting the sea serpent. They saw him form sharp boulders that stabbed into the creature's body. He channeled more controlling power and sent more rocks flying straight at the sea serpent. It was struck all over and cried out in pain, becoming ferociously enraged. Fernan pressed the attack as if determined to kill it and quickly cast a spell. Moments later, a massive magic circle appeared high in the sky. From it, countless sharp stone spikes rained down like a storm, striking the sea serpent's body. At that moment, Bella seized the opportunity and charged forward with her sword. She slashed a long, powerful stroke along its length. At the same time, Luina swiftly ran in to attack. She channeled force to envelop her sword. Then Luina struck hard at its tough scales. Unfortunately, the sea serpent's scales were so tough she could only pierce them slightly. Luina gritted her teeth and tried to drive the blade deeper. In the end, she failed and had to quickly withdraw her sword to avoid being struck. She leapt down beside Fernan and clicked her tongue in frustration. I can't cut through it. Bella also complained, its outer shell is too hard. He calmly added, even throwing boulders won't do much. Seeing the sea serpent still alive and ferocious, he warned sharply that decapitation didn't seem feasible either. Hearing that, Bella impatiently asked, so what then? Is there really no other way? Fernan also felt urgent and frowned as he analyzed. Could it be the influence of demonic chi? It clearly suffered mortal wounds but won't die. He fretted, I still need Ain't to actually kill it. Just then, a cluster of golden beams shot in fast from a distance. The beam struck the sea serpent's body and immediately inflicted a severe wound. Luna's eyes widened in astonishment. Bella also gasped in shocked recognition. That is, they saw a figure ahead, enveloped in golden light from head to toe. Seeing the newcomer, Fernan smiled triumphantly to himself. Yes, it's him. He looked at the now gravely wounded serpent and immediately recalled a piece of news. The founding emperor created a special kind of elixir. Ain's sharp gaze fixed on the sea serpent, and that glowing figure's light reflected in his eyes, making him think of an intriguing detail. In case a descendant of yours lacks an aptitude for the light element. Ahead, Ain't nimbly jumped up to avoid a jet of water from the serpent. Fernan watched the battle and recalled the elixir's data. The elixir restructures the body, forcing assimilation with the light element so descendants can learn the Armian clan's secret swordsmanship, which is based on light. On the other side, Ain't had leapt up and stomped on the serpent's head while Fernan was lost in thought. However, if someone already has an aptitude for the light element and drinks it, it only simply amplifies that kai. He saw him raise his sword to gather radiance and bolster the attack and concluded that's what happened to Ain't. Now, he can nearly execute Armian sword techniques perfectly. Immediately after, Ain't swung his sword in a horizontal slash right at the sea serpent's eyes. In the blink of an eye, the serpent's 2 eyes were destroyed. It opened its mouth in pain trying to bite him but failed. The next instant, a series of dazzling cutting arcs appeared around the serpent's head. Seeing that, he couldn't help but feel moved. The old texts describe the founding emperor's swordsmanship as humanity's hope, banishing despair and darkness. Not stopping there, Ain't raised his hand over the blade and a brilliant light emanated from his palm. A radiant sword illuminated the world and touched the soul. In an instant, the whole space filled with shimmering streaks of brilliant light. Vernon witnessed the magnificent sight and smiled in satisfaction, marveling that it truly was miraculous. The historical records were not an exaggeration. By now, the serpent was wounded all over and, exhausted, began to fall. Ain't quickly delivered one final strike that cleaved it into pieces, killing it outright. Watching his confident figure, he thought, Ain't Armian, you are my trump card in the battle against the demons. At the shore, a serpent head floated on the water. Ain't stood by the serpent's corpse, looked at his hand, and marveled. Amazing, Gardner smugly replied quietly, of course, after all, it's something the founding emperor left behind. Then someone suddenly voiced praise that caught his eye. The Armian swordsmanship really is as powerful as rumored. It turned out to be Fernan speaking. He and the 2 others approached to admire and confirmed, you saved us, Ain't. He bashfully rubbed his head and modestly denied it. It's nothing, I only delivered the final blow. Thanks to you all I was able to kill it so easily. Then everyone began discussing returning. Luna told the 3, we can head back now. Bella, hands on her hips, asked doubtfully, how do we get out? Fernan calmly replied, I sent a signal, someone will come pick us up soon. He then looked at the serpent's corpse and requested, if no one objects, I'll take the body. Luna said indifferently, I don't need it, and Ain't followed suit, I don't need it either. Only Bella frowned and haggled, I helped too, so it should be divided. He looked at her and reminded calmly, but you still owe me, who refined your energy for you. Hearing that, she stared at him in disbelief. Finally Bella yielded, she said bitterly, fine, take it, you cheapskate. Fernan smiled happily and asked again, so no one objects. Suddenly Ain't spoke up, Fernan, I want to ask you something. He looked at him puzzled. Ain't then asked seriously, you're hunting demons too, right? Fernan, more confused, replied yes. His eyes immediately grew determined as he explained, if someone is infected with demonic chi, won't real demons appear as well? Ain't placed his hand on his chest to solemnly petition, I want to help you. Hearing that, Fernan couldn't contain his joy and smiled. I was wondering how to recruit him. His heart was now exultant. Victory. He hadn't expected things to go this smoothly. He immediately shook Ain't's hand and agreed to his joining. Let's go kill demons together. Hearing that, Ain't cheerfully accepted. All right. Inwardly, Fernan was ecstatic and declared, so my plan has succeeded. On the to-do list, 1. Capture the possessed person. 2. Clear my name and prove I'm not linked to demons. 3. Bring Ain't to our side. All those objectives have now been completed excellently. Fernan was extremely satisfied and exclaimed that everything went as planned. Some time later, he returned to his vast, luxurious castle. In Hyde's room, Hyde was holding the bulletin and said, did you know they set up a river combat class? We've been ordered to build boats. While drawing a magic array on paper, he thought happily, I'm making a lot of money from this. Good, very good. He looked down at the man across from him and asked suspiciously, did you know about this beforehand? Fernan answered bluntly, how would I know? Hearing that, Hyde found it strange. Really? I guess you didn't either, but what a coincidence. Hyde, unable to guess, gave up. He peered at what Fernan had been writing and asked curiously, putting that aside, what are you working on? Fernan looked up and replied, a golem design. He glanced at the magic circle on the paper and sighed, I've been too busy until now, I finally have a bit of time. Then he closed that topic and asked about something else. By the way, have you found how the demons infiltrated the trade guild? Hyde respectfully reported, yes, it seems they slipped in a few days before the yacht club meeting. He had shown 2 portraits of the demons and questioned the servants there. Now he recounted the results to Fernan. I asked the staff if anything seemed odd when suddenly new servants appeared with no notice. And strangely, the servants answered that they'd always worked there. Hyde rubbed his chin and seriously recounted. That was their reply. Hearing that, Fernan's eyes went cold as he muttered and speculated that the staff thought those people had always worked there. Magic, perhaps. He looked at the paper in his hand and calmly guessed, I'd say it's psychological magic. I'll investigate a bit. Hyde casually remarked that manipulating minds and souls seemed to be a demon specialty. That made Fernan pause. He pondered carefully, souls. Then he connected it to his own problem and mused, so my possession was caused by demons too. Chinese letter immersed himself in a tangle of thoughts. Maybe they have that capability, but that still doesn't explain the prophecy. At that moment, Hyde called Fernan back to the matter of the demons they'd captured. Fernan looked at him and asked what he'd found. Hyde calmly denied any breakthrough. No, confession spells don't work on them, so we've imprisoned them in the dungeons. Vernon took off his glasses and said coldly that if needed, Hyde could torture them. He was busy. Anything else? Hearing that, Hyde announced there was a message from the Duke. Vernon asked suspiciously, from my father, what is it? Hyde reported solemnly, this time the Freudian family will supply spirit stones and world leaves to the Academy's students. Hyde steepled his hands behind his back and calmly relayed the Duke's news. They normally entrust us with transporting such items because they are extremely valuable, and Freudian has been chosen to be in charge of the transport. Vernon repeated in surprise, Freudian wants me to take charge personally. He folded his arms and pondered, why me? I don't see any reason it should be me. I have a bad feeling about this. At the same time, at a distant Academy hallway, Bella walked beside Luna and confided, I was really shaken by those demons. Possession I could accept, but I still doubt the actual existence of demons. She asked with confusion why Vernon told her not to inform the Academy. Luna, eating a pastry, replied, because I don't know who's an ally and who's an enemy. Bella snapped to understanding and asked suspiciously, really? So does he have a plan? She glanced at her and replied trustingly, surely he knows. He always has a plan. Surprised, she commented, you actually trust him. While walking, Bella kept probing, since you two became a pair, have you been involved in this case? Luna hesitated, probably. She sucked on a lollipop, voice complex, and said, so that's it. I found it odd, but now I understand. She turned to her and asked confusedly, what do you mean by that? Immediately Bella recounted the circulating rumors. No way you'd be friends with Vernon Pellenberg. People say you approached him just for money. Then she gleefully asserted, but actually it was to hunt demons, right? Hearing that Luna was stunned, question marks all over her head, how could she jump to that conclusion? Bella put her hands behind her back and admired, cooperating with someone you hate for the greater good, you're a real knight. Luna fell silent, not knowing how to respond. She's a bit odd, but never mind. And with no one stopping her, Bella let her imagination run wild. I really admire you. Meanwhile, down on the floor below them, Ain't was strolling among the students. Gardner sensed his mood and said confidently, you look happy. He walked along at ease and replied, I feel a lot lighter. Ain't laughed and said cheerfully that before he'd been at a loss how to deal with demons, but now he only needs to consult with Vernon. Hearing that, Gardner could only sigh in agreement. Having the Pellenberg family as an ally is better than having them as enemies. Suddenly he smiled sheepishly and happily said, besides, I'll see Luna more often. Gardner immediately teased in annoyance, no, that's not the important part. A serious voice rang from the sword. Humans have already been corrupted by demonic chi. The one named Bella has indeed been infected. It pictured the prospect of an infected person and warned gravely that anyone tainted by demonic chi will sooner or later become a demon. We must stop that from happening. Gardner, anxious and impatient, plotted a plan. I must gather as many allies as possible to prepare for the future. Ain't didn't object. He explained amiably that he was on his way to meet someone Gardner had strongly recommended to him. Gardner replied thoughtfully, I know, at least that person seems to have a good eye for people. Just then Ain't reached that person's location and called out excitedly, there he is. Ahead stood a handsome young man with red hair. Ain't raised his voice to get his attention. Hey, Virian. The young man looked over suspiciously and called his name, Ain't Armian. Virian then scowled and waved him off. Don't pretend we're close. I'm here to meet someone else. Ain't wasn't offended. He beamed and said, I'm the person you need to meet. Vernon sent me. He blurted out in shock, what? Ain't extended a friendly hand and explained, I'll be direct since you probably already know. I'm helping Vernon hunt demons. He said you could help me. Ain't observed Virian and remarked, you're pretty good. Hearing that, Virian clenched his teeth in anger. Pretty. Then he angrily pointed at him and accused, I don't want to hear that from someone who once beat me. Are you mocking me? Ain't awkwardly raised his hands to clarify, no, I'm serious. Virian snapped in fury, I wouldn't help you even if I died. Ain't, hearing that, thought to himself resignedly, I knew it, he doesn't want to help. He recalled that before meeting Vernon he'd asked a question. Virian Kalbrudern, he's also a friend of yours. Virian calmly answered, just by coincidence. He smiled confidently and said, but wouldn't it be good to have someone from the same class supporting us? He's fairly strong and would be a reliable ally. Ain't looked at him with concern and pointed out that Virian hated him intensely. He replied firmly, don't worry, if he refuses to cooperate, just say it like this. Back in the present, Ain't recalled Vernon's words for a moment and immediately put them into practice. He raised his hand and pointed at Virian. Ain't adopted an innocent expression and said, you. Then he blurted out a shocking line, you're a demon, aren't you? Hearing that, Virian was terrified and unable to trust it, widened his eyes. Ain't stroked his chin, pondering with a serious expression. When during finals, he pointed out precisely, that was the day you lost to me for the second time, right? But Virian was terrified by his words. Without pausing, Ain't quickly continued. You passed out in the battle. I heard that was when you transformed, and I heard if it hadn't been for Vernon, the consequences would have been disastrous. Didn't he say you don't remember what happened that day? The more he heard, the more Virian's spirit drifted away. Ain't paid no mind to his state and went on. Fernan said the demon only used you. Finally unable to bear it, Virian forcibly clamped a hand over his mouth. Weary, Virian raised a hand to his mouth to signal, "Shut up, okay? What if someone hears?" He bared his teeth and glared fiercely, demanding, "What do you want from me, Ain't Armian?" Unexpectedly, Ain't smiled amicably and answered, "Come have lunch with me." Outside, the sky was a deep, beautiful blue. In the bright sunlight, a large, luxurious building stood majestically, and from inside came pitiful cries. "Why would you do that? You promised not to tell anyone." Virian wailed miserably, scolding, But why would you tell my mortal enemy, Ain't Armian?" Fernan, hands in his pockets, looked down at the guy kneeling and tugging his sleeve, feeling helpless. He thought to himself that he knew the fellow would come about that matter, but he hadn't expected him to cry. Then Fernan calmly countered, "I didn't say that. I only said I wouldn't hand you over to the prosecutor." Virian immediately asked, "What about Ain't? Did he blackmail you?" Fernan reluctantly explained, "He's not that sort of person." He clenched the hem of his shirt, voice still bitter as he said, "That's even better." Virian wailed in indignation and complained, "Instead I have to endure the humiliation of eating lunch with him." He couldn't stop remembering the noon scene. They sat together under many stares. Ain't even picked up a piece of meat for him and said, "Here, have some of mine." Virian scowled in disgust and demanded, "Since when have we been this close?" Just thinking about it made him ache, unable to hold back as he lamented that the guy even shared his food with him. Virian buried his face in the floor and cried like rain, worrying what people would think if they believed he was Ain't's friend. Seeing him, Fernan silently cursed in annoyance. Really, what's there to cry about? Unaware of Fernan's thoughts, Virian continued to vent, "I mean, why did I become a demon?" Finally unable to take it, Fernan sighed and snapped, "Virian Kalbrudern, I thought you were clever." Fernan calmly asked, "Don't you understand why I introduced you to Ain't?" Virian stopped crying, looked up hesitantly, and said, "Sorry." He looked down at him and explained seriously, "If you stay close to Ain't, the one hunting demons, you might find the person who turned you into this. Are you going to keep crying here forever?" Then Fernan changed his tone to cold disappointment and judged, "I thought you were a knight, and this is all you can do?" Virian was stunned. He cried out in fear, "So the reason?" Immediately he sprang up, clenched his fists, and declared with determination that it was to give him a chance for revenge. Seeing all this, Fernan was speechless. His eyes changed, though Fernan didn't know when the chance for revenge would come. His mind raced through calculations but saw an opening since Ain't's main target is demons. Seeing Virian steady again, he turned to leave. "I have to get to class." Suddenly Virian spoke up with a summary, "Cooperate with an enemy to defeat another enemy." Fernan paused and looked at him in surprise. Virian took up his sword and declared resolutely, "I, Virian Kalbrudern, will cooperate with my enemy, Ain't Armian." He raised his sword high, face righteous, and swore an oath to eradicate demons in order to avenge himself. The scene immediately stirred some memories in Fernan. He thought of Luina. Back then she also showed firm resolve and assured him, "If you need help, just call me." Then he thought of Ain't, and of him too. On the island, Ain't had that same upright expression inviting, "Let's destroy the demons together." And now Virian showed the same demeanor as the two before. Fernan sighed helplessly and thought, and now him too, behind them he's even shouting the slogan, "Demons slay." Fernan wordlessly commented, "Are all knights like this? Is that just their type?" At that moment at the academy, in the class on researching monsters and other magical creatures, a man stood at the podium taking roll call. "Kirillo Denev here. Ludger Schwaben here." Luina stood among the students looking around. Not seeing a familiar face, she wondered suspiciously, "Where? Fernan, today is practice." Thinking that, she guessed angrily, he wouldn't skip class, would he? Just then the teacher called his name, Fernan Pellenberg. Thinking he'd be late, she was surprised when the next instant he appeared and raised his hand. "Present." When Fernan reached Luina, she whispered a complaint, "So late, don't you know roll call counts toward your grade?" On the lectern, the teacher continued calling names. Alia Torta, present. Below, Fernan mumbled a quiet explanation, "Lucky me, sorry, I had to speak with someone." After roll call, the teacher then gave a serious reminder, "Everyone is present. I'm sure you remember because I mentioned it last time." In the blink of an eye, a magic circle appeared under his feet and he announced, "Today's topic is cooperation." The teacher explained sternly that some monsters are so strong you can't face them alone. The students below hesitated at the power radiating from the formation but did their best to listen intently. In front, the teacher both summoned various monsters with tough, dangerous appearances and explained, "Some have bodies encased in rock so hard they're hard to pierce. Others have high magic resistance that renders mages useless. So cooperation between mages and knights is very important." Among the students, Luina whispered an explanation. "This is the mock target the students use. First time you've seen this type, right? It's a kind of golem." Fernan answered nonchalantly, "I've only heard about it." Above, the teacher standing before the monsters declared, "They can't move like the real thing, but underestimate them and you'll fail." He then released the monsters to face the students and signaled, "Begin." After a while, the students each fought a different monster. A young woman with a sword and a blue-haired youth teamed up to defeat a monster. The teacher then announced the result: Kirilo Denev and Alia Torta, 2 minutes 58 seconds. Following them, another pair finished their match, Ludger Schwaben and Almond Doneritz, 2 minutes 15 seconds. The teacher raised his watch, looked, and calmly assessed that the top pairs were noticeably better. Next up was. He called out two names, Fernan Pellenberg and Luina Berchef. Step forward. At the summons, the two stepped out of line. Then he looked toward the monster formed from earth and stone and announced, "The creature you'll fight is a Goliath." Everyone watched the two go up with unease. A black-haired youth hesitated. "Goliath, this will hurt a lot." Yet the pair showed no fear. Fernan even lectured as they walked. "A Goliath averages about 3 meters tall, its body covered in stone." Everyone watched the two go up with unease. A black-haired youth hesitated. "Goliath, this will hurt a lot." Yet the pair showed no fear. Fernan even lectured as they walked. "A Goliath averages about 3 meters tall, its body covered in stone." Everyone watched the two go up with unease. A black-haired youth hesitated. "Goliath, this will hurt a lot." Yet the pair showed no fear. Fernan even lectured as they walked. "A Goliath averages about 3 meters tall, its body covered in stone." But he smiled confidently and objected. "No, I'll hold it." She disagreed with the warning. "Although large, it's quite fast." The two continued chatting calmly, paying no mind as the monster raised its hand to strike. Luna issued a serious command, "I'll fight so." But before she finished speaking, the Goliath slammed its fist down on the two of them, sending sand and dust flying. The teacher watched cautiously and, seeing this, thought in disappointment, "Failed. Is a Goliath too much for a second-year student?" Yet when the dust cleared the sight was Luna holding her sword up to block its punch. She even turned her head distractedly to scold, "And you thought you could be the bait?" Fernan smiled smugly and asked back, "Who said I'd be the bait?" He summoned a magic formation above the Goliath and clarified, "I meant holding it immobile." Immediately large stones fell from the formation like raindrops. They aimed straight at the Goliath and crashed down onto its body. Boulders kept falling endlessly around the Goliath. The surrounding students gaped in astonishment, mouths agape. They couldn't believe it and shouted, "What?" Above them the pile of rocks had completely buried the Goliath. Fernan looked at Luina and urged cheerfully, "What are you waiting for? Finish it." The teacher glanced at his watch and remarked, "The method you used is difficult given the mana required, but you did it." Then he announced the result: Fernan Pellenberg and Luina Berchef, 3 seconds. He smiled triumphantly. First place. Ludger glared at him, arms crossed, grumbling angrily. Second place again. The students nearby whispered and gossiped. "My God, how much mana did that take? There must be a reason he teamed with Luina." Fernan was pleased, thinking, "Did I just score points with Luina?" But when he looked at her, his smile immediately faded. Luina was frowning and unhappy. He stood there awkward and thoughtful. "Luina, she doesn't look happy at all." Walking beside Fernan, Luina exclaimed, "You were impressive just now. Every time I look at you I see a new side." He suddenly wondered, "Are you complimenting me?" Luina made an indifferent face and replied, "Of course, thanks to you I got first place." Fernan glanced over and then asked, "So why the face?" Luina pouted in response, "What's wrong with my face?" He complained impatiently, "You're pouting, come on, say it." Luina rolled her eyes and hesitated before saying, "Well, actually it's nothing major, it's just the first time I've fought a mock monster." Her next words immediately startled Fernan awake. "I wanted to fight a bit longer." He thought to himself, I should have given you more time. You came in second at 2 minutes 15 seconds. Maybe I should have stretched it by 2 minutes. Fernan felt guilty and blamed himself. "It's my fault. No matter how many times you do well, people only remember the one time you fail." At that moment, Luina strolled on and added, "But I'm happy we got first." A voice behind them suddenly spoke up, "Our place has a few mock monsters." Fernan paused briefly and asked, "Do you want them?" Luina blinked, turned with sparkling eyes. "No need, too demanding." He couldn't help thinking helplessly, "Look at that expression." Fernan smiled professionally, "It's fine, we don't use them anyway." Luina smiled even brighter, "If you say so, thanks." Luina was so happy she hopped along. "I have the next period, I won't do that again." Suddenly someone gently teased him from behind and called Fernan. Arya beamed and made a sunny request, "Buy me a cup of coffee." But Fernan coldly corrected her with one line, "If you have something to say, make an appointment." Arya Fridian complained, "You're so cold." He had just started to walk when he suddenly stopped. "You received a message from my family, right?" Fernan immediately turned and asked Arya, "Do you mean the item shipment?" He spoke up loudly, "You're the one who made me do it," and the boy smiled and replied, "That's right." A while later in that room, Fernan sat opposite Arya and asked, "The World Tree Sprig, are you really planning to donate it to the Academy?" He answered nonchalantly, "Yes." Arya slowly scooped a spoonful of ice cream and said, "That's why I chose you. If the family heir is responsible, the burden will be different." He suddenly asked, "Do you know how precious a World Tree Sprig is?" Fernan thought to himself, "Of course." The image of the World Tree flashed in his mind. A sapling that the World Tree can produce only once every 100 years. Of course it contains deep mana and the forest's essence, its influence spreading endlessly through the area. He wondered what deal the Fridian family had made to gift something so valuable to the Academy. Thinking that, Fernan guessed, "Oh well, he probably won't tell me anyway." But then Arya suddenly announced, "I'll help with it too." She then smiled brightly and suggested, so be friends with me, wouldn't that be fun? He fell silent and asked why. Fernan looked Arya straight in the eye and reminded her calmly, I thought I already said last time, there's no reason for the noble houses to form close alliances. She snapped back indignantly, you're so stubborn, being friends with me wouldn't cost you anything. He suddenly asked, do I have to take time off school? Arya quickly replied, yes, the academy approved. We can replace practical sessions with theory for both of us. Fernan continued, so when do I have to go? She closed her eyes and smiled, 2 weeks from now, we'll prepare everything. After hearing that, he gently touched the glass of water on the table. I understand. But when he heard the next sentence, a jolt of electricity flashed through Fernan. So you only need to go to the Phrygian territory. The cool glass slipped from his hand and by reflex fell and shattered into pieces. He grit his teeth and grabbed his head, thinking to himself, it's been peaceful lately. In an instant, Fernan's whole body was somewhere in a ruined battlefield. Wasn't today supposed to be the day Andromalius descends? He looked around and wondered, I've already seen that prophecy. Why am I seeing it again now? Then Fernan suddenly stared intently in a certain direction. That is. In the grim atmosphere, bloodthirsty creatures lurking in the darkness appeared. The sky was deep red, people fled in chaos from the demonic aura, and a fiend descended to the ground through an ever-widening fissure. And at the center of it all was the World Tree Sprig. He suddenly turned. Ain't was standing behind him as if he'd always been there. There it is, Ain't. That World Tree Sprig is the power source for the summoning formation. Fernan fixed his gaze on Ain't and wouldn't look away. I heard that since that sprig was brought to the academy, it stopped growing because it's been corrupted by demonic taint. But he just stood there clenching his fists. Wasn't that World Tree Sprig brought by the Golden Turtle Merchant Guild? He remained not far from him as thoughts continued rushing through his mind. Like the yacht incident before, now this. The Pellenberg family must be involved. I knew it. The upstart rich man really is a traitor to humanity. Ain't slightly parted his lips. It is indeed suspicious if what you say is true. He suddenly shouted in rage, making Fernan widen his eyes. I will never forgive the Pellenbergs. Standing opposite him, Fernan opened his mouth as if shouting back, no, Ain't. I'm not working with demons. Fernan instinctively grabbed someone's wrist. Ain't, wait. He blurted out in a panic while holding Arya's hand. Listen to me. Arya looked at Fernan in confusion and asked, Fernan, are you all right? He didn't answer, just stared daggers and cursed under his breath. Damn it. Flood of thoughts poured through Fernan's mind. I heard that since the World Tree Sprig was brought to the academy, it stopped growing because it was tainted by demonic corruption. Why am I dragged into this again? But that sprig was delivered by the Golden Turtle Merchant Guild, right? Just like the yacht incident before, now this. The Pellenberg family must be involved. I knew it, that nouveau rich is a traitor to humanity. Meanwhile, Arya stroked his head and said, Fernan, let it go, we can't. He refused immediately without hesitation. No. The boy frowned at that and asked, what did you say? Fernan declared solemnly, the Golden Turtle Merchant Guild is no longer handling transport. I just pulled out of everything. No sooner had that thought crossed his mind than Hyde said coldly, that won't work, maybe I can't. He clasped his hands behind his back and added, this is the Duke's decision. Fernan nodded politely, then thought to himself, I know, the prophecy didn't specify how, when, or where the World Tree Sprig would be tainted. Despite Hyde's helpless sigh, Fernan kept calculating. Both the Academy and the Phrygian territory have strict security systems, so it must have happened during transport. Despite Hyde's helpless sigh, Fernan kept calculating. Both the Academy and the Phrygian territory have strict security systems, so it must have happened during transport. Andromalius' face suddenly flashed in his mind. Even if the sprig is delivered safely, I still can't stop Andromalius' descent. If the World Tree Sprig is unusable, he'll just pick another host. Fernan tapped his index finger on the table in rhythm by instinct. High risk, low chance of success, but the outcome wouldn't change. He clenched his fist in frustration. The best course is to withdraw, even if it means taking some losses, because we volunteered for this mission. Fernan ground his teeth and frowned. If this goes deeper, people will think the whole family is colluding with demons. He muttered, I can't handle this alone. Fernan suddenly slammed the table and stood up. Hyde, bring the demonic orb here. Hyde asked in puzzlement. The orb? Why? Fernan replied bluntly, I'll show the patriarch immediately. Night fell over a vast, lavish mansion. Inside the demonic orb, the image of that frenzied fiend was reflected. Yvonne looked at the image with suspicion and asked, is that really a demon? Fernan immediately explained, they infiltrated the Merchant Guild posing as staff at the yacht club meeting before. We captured one alive and are holding it in the Academy's underground warehouse. If you want, I can show you. He frowned slightly, looked up and asked, you captured one alive? Is that true, Hyde? Hyde answered frankly, yes, I inspected it myself. That answer made Yvonne frown even deeper. Really? Demons in the Merchant Guild? He then shouted angrily, why didn't you report this earlier? Fernan calmly replied, I ordered him to keep quiet. Facing Yvonne and the steward's looks, he explained his thinking. I thought it best to gather more evidence first, but the situation has become too urgent. Fernan unexpectedly gave a small smile and said, based on what I know so far. Then his tone grew serious as he proposed, I believe the demons are plotting to bring our family down. Discussion echoed through the halls of the castle. I understand your point. I know the yacht club incident was caused by demons. Yvonne Pellenberg weighed the pros and cons and thought that this time they're targeting the World Tree Sprig. If I do nothing, people will misunderstand. Yvonne Pellenberg weighed the pros and cons and thought that this time they're targeting the World Tree Sprig. If I do nothing, people will misunderstand. However, Yvonne Pellenberg tried to convince himself it might just be a coincidence. Fernan Pellenberg thought to himself, at first I thought so too. Remembering that time, I thought it was just bad luck. The reason was that the Pellenberg family was hated by the Berchef house, and the demons had targeted Aintz's life at the yacht club meeting. Later events made Fernan Pellenberg certain it wasn't that simple, so he analyzed that Armian seemed a more likely target. Why would the demons go after our Pellenbergs? Fernan Pellenberg recounted that 1,000 years ago, when the war with the demons first began, humanity was completely outmatched until the Pellenberg chieftains sided with the founding emperor. At that time, vast sums of money were poured into the war to turn the tide. You would know about that. Based on that, he speculated that this was what made the demons wary. Fernan Pellenberg further guessed that they had tasted how money can sway a war, so they certainly wouldn't want that mistake repeated. Moreover, they set a trap. If the Pellenbergs were implicated, the demons would brand them traitors to humanity. If not, they'd be shown to be weaker than expected, sowing doubt around Ain't. And then Ain't Armian cursed, I will never forgive Fernan Pellenberg, so he knew the prophecy of his doom wasn't random but a deliberate trap. Fernan Pellenberg revealed that this time they aimed to wipe the Pellenbergs out of the game completely. In short, that was their plan. At night, Fernan Pellenberg went to the book repository and rifled through old, dust-covered volumes. He muttered that the yacht had been successfully sunk and Ain't was stranded on the deserted island, yet Fernan Pellenberg had been there. The spirit confirmed, yes, Lumina Berchef and Bellahone were there too. Fernan Pellenberg inferred they must have grown closer after fighting demons together. However, he doubted whether just 4 people could kill a sea serpent. He reasoned that the island must have held a gift from the founding emperor. The spirit even hinted that Ain't Armian took that gift and used it to kill the sea serpent. Fernan Pellenberg thought that if he couldn't kill Armian, he at least had to make him suspect the Pellenbergs. He sighed in dismay. This seemed to be backfiring. This is bad. It argued the opposite, but I believe with this new plan I can turn things around. Fernan Pellenberg suspected. Are you talking about the World Tree Sprig? The spirit admitted yes. Arya Fridian had contacted Fernan Pellenberg, but I haven't confirmed whether Pellenberg was involved in the transport. He warned, make sure by any means that Fernan Pellenberg must participate. Fernan Pellenberg whispered that if Ain't Armian is the sharpest sword, then Fernan Pellenberg is the gold wrapping around that blade. He resolved that he would bring him down no matter what. Then, when I suddenly abandoned the transport job, I told them to carry it out a week earlier. Arya Fridian yelled, what? I won't do it. Fernan Pellenberg thought to himself that the request was abrupt and rude, so he expected them to be angry and refuse, allowing him an easy withdrawal. While she kept protesting, you can't just say that. Against expectations, however, her father fully agreed to your request. Thanks, Arya sent her regards. She wants to be closer to you. After reading the letter, he shouted, what the hell, is he stupid or what? A normal person would be furious and refuse. Hyde hesitated. Do you think he's been influenced by demons? Hearing that, Fernan Pellenberg was furious, very likely, and cursed the damned demons under his breath. He wondered how much influence they truly had. I know what they're doing, yet I still can't stop them. And now, despite holding the Empire's largest fortune and being a member of the Electoral Council, I am still powerless. This left Fernan Pellenberg's inner mind in turmoil, maddeningly furious. He scowled and said, fine, then I will do it. He asked curiously, what do you intend to do? Fernan Pellenberg asked gloomily, and you? I'll confront them head on. Because he thought that if there's a problem, you just deal with it. Fernan Pellenberg also reminded him that a true merchant never lets himself be swayed in unpredictable situations. With that, he left in irritation. Let's see who wins this time. Left alone, Hyde muttered that he was very unsettled inside. Time passed. After a wait of 6 days, the convoy departed the Fridian estate as planned. 10 wagons, 100 guards from the Golden Turtle Trade Guild, 50 elite Fridian warriors, and 100 laborers. As expected, and leading them all was Fernan Pellenberg. He told himself the World Tree Sprig was hidden in the 4th wagon. Fernan Pellenberg also reminded himself that, aside from the most important people, no one knew he was transporting it. The chest holding the sprig had dozens of magical protections. Only Arya and he could open it. Now he was annoyed. How could it have been detected by demonic energy in this situation? Fernan Pellenberg guessed, or could it be that Arya is the demon? No, impossible. He recalled that Arya was supposed to be Aintz's friend, the friend in the prophecy who followed Aunt Armian. At that moment, she asked how long it would take to get to the academy. Fernan Pellenberg snapped back to reality. About a month. He outlined the route. I need to cross 2 territories eastward and then take a ship. Arya Fridian smiled brightly. Got it. Oh, I just remembered. Then she asked, would you like to invite me to the yacht club? Fernan Pellenberg replied decisively no. Then she asked, would you like to invite me to the yacht club? Fernan Pellenberg replied decisively no. Fernan Pellenberg didn't hesitate to press Arya Fridian's sore spot. You're the newcomer. Arya Fridian snapped, don't look at me with that pitying gaze. You criticized him for stepping in to mediate when the Burchef sold the golden cow. He admitted without hesitation, yes, but that's not fair, Arya Fridian shouted, you're cruel. On a fine day, sunlight bathed the magnificent castle. Inside, voices rang out. The negotiations should go smoothly thanks to your sharing information about the demons with the council through Jace Weinz. Orlando believed we would soon receive their aid and root out any demons still hiding among us. Yvonne Pellenberg changed the subject. Any news from Fernan? He should have reached the academy by now, one of them reported they set out today. He suddenly slammed the table. Yvonne Pellenberg thought to himself that of course this is the trap the demons set, yet he had no other choice but to step into it. He grew gloomy remembering Fernan said he would prepare thoroughly, but the opponent this time is demons. If the transport fails, our trade guild's reputation will collapse. Worst of all, I could lose my heir, my only son. How dare they touch him? So Yvonne Pellenberg ordered no, assemble the Red Turtle squad at once. Orlando hurriedly protested, sir, please be calm. If you act now, things will only get worse. He counseled that the young master had instructed dealing with this quietly so the demons wouldn't know we're onto their plot. Please have some tea, yes. He also mentioned, don't worry, the young master knew about the demons and their plan even before we did. He hesitated, that's good, but it's also a problem. Yvonne Pellenberg said, I thought of that too, when he discovered the ley line of Mana Stone that no one else knew about. He was even more suspicious, as if someone had come from the future and seen everything happen beforehand. I have so many questions I want to ask them when this is over, but aside from that, Yvonne Pellenberg snapped, why not hire a group of mercenaries and send them? Orlando smiled reassuringly, sir, the young master will be fine. Because he believed that. Young Master Fernan always exceeds our expectations. Meanwhile, on the road, Fernan Pellenberg was uneasy, strange, it wasn't supposed to rain today. Orlando kept his faith, surely this time he will do very well. So he told himself to trust and wait for him. Night fell and the rain poured. While Arya Pridian watched the downpour, Fernan Pellenberg behind him was talking with Hyde. I guess we can't continue today, we'll camp here. Have the guards protect the wagons and follow your orders, Hyde replied with a yes. Suddenly Arya Pridian made an observation, this rain feels odd. Hearing that, Fernan Pellenberg spun to look at him and asked, what? Arya Pridian took off his hat and spoke frankly, I asked the spirits and they say other regions are sunny, only this place is raining this hard. Fernan Pellenberg vaguely grasped his thought and asked, you mean it's artificial rain? Arya Pridian, speculating, replied maybe someone is playing a trick on us. But then he smiled, optimistically dismissing the dark theory and said casually, no way, it's probably just bad weather. From his words, Fernan Pellenberg felt some doubt and thought, if it's artificial rain, it's surely the work of the demons. The prophecy said we'd reach the academy safely, yet contrary to his gloomy mood, Arya Pridian remained cheerful, singing rain, rain, falling over the village. In his upbeat song, he kept singing rain, rain, falling on the silver hills, raindrops falling to freshen the leaves, while Fernan Pellenberg's thoughts would not stop. Someone had infiltrated the group and defiled the world tree sprig without anyone knowing. Thinking that, he couldn't help but wonder silently what the purpose of trapping them in this rain was. At that moment, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck the place. The wagons shook violently, and the ground split open from the shock. Fernan Pellenberg was sucked into the vortex, gritting his teeth and reaching for the weapon right beside him. The orb on the staff flared brightly, casting out dark auras. The staff shone ever brighter, electromagnetic bolts shot everywhere, whipping up a furious storm across earth and sky. The vortex slowed, and whatever remained below was left in ruined desolation. Those not swept away by the gale stood or sat restless, not knowing what to do, frozen in place watching. Fernan Pellenberg still spun in the vortex, worrying to himself, damn it, the world tree sprig. Suddenly the vortex vanished and he began to fall. He shouted orders to Arya Pridian, Arya, make sure the wagons aren't damaged. Arya Pridian was also in free fall, curling up in fear and confused, shouting, which wagon? Fernan Pellenberg, annoyed by the stupid question, snapped loudly, all of them. Then rocks and wagons crashed down. Arya Pridian squeezed his eyes shut and panicked, shouting, I can't. Darkness surrounded them with only a faint beam of light from a small hole above. Fernan Pellenberg estimated silently, it's very deep. I think we've fallen about 40 meters. Thinking this over, he frowned and cursed inwardly, damned demons. Could their plan really be to separate the wagons like this? Done, he turned to look at Arya Pridian beside him, who was unharmed and breathing a sigh of relief, muttered that everyone was okay. then glanced at the surrounding wagons and relaxed a bit, marveling that even the wagon carrying the World Tree Sprig had fallen here with them, and luckily, nothing terrible had happened. Noticing his gaze on him, Arya Prydian dreamily asked, "What's up now?" Fernan Pellenberg, not catching his meaning, asked back, "What is it?" After steadying himself, he finally said, "We should climb up." Without paying attention to what was behind them, there were red eyes staring intently at them. The many-eyed monster lowed softly and began to advance. Fernan Pellenberg quickly detected the creature's presence, spun around, thinking to himself that he knew things wouldn't go this easily. With that thought, he pointed the staff in his hand at the creature, the staff radiating magic to repel it. Arya Prydian stood behind him, terrified, asking, "Fernan, what is that freakish thing?" Fernan Pellenberg, focused on confronting the creature, answered tersely, "A Sade." Arya Prydian asked in confusion, "What Sade?" Hearing that, he tilted his head and glanced at him, incredulous, asking back, "You don't know what a Sade is? Didn't you study them at the academy?" He honestly replied, "I did study." Monsters have lived on this continent since the dawn of time. They come in bizarre, violent forms like humans possessed by demons. As for mana-tainted beings, they were brought by demons and are even more ferocious, capable of devastating entire villages. They are saturated with demonic energy, which is what sets them apart from ordinary monsters. That's the brief explanation. Back in the present, Arya Prydian urgently and panic-stricken asked Fernan Pellenberg, "But how could a mana-tainted creature appear in this era?" Fernan Pellenberg's expression went cold. He answered firmly, "If there's a mana-tainted creature, that means demons, yes." "The demons brought this," Arya Prydian shouted. "Demons?" He had countless questions for Fernan Pellenberg. "Do demons really exist? How do you know?" He replied briefly, "I'll explain later." Then he hurriedly ordered him, "Get the wagons out of here, I'll deal with these things." Arya Prydian, who had a knack for getting on his nerves, timidly blurted out, "I don't think I can do it." Fernan Pellenberg couldn't stand his timidity. He spun around and launched into a lecturing tirade. "How can you say you can't before you've tried? How do you expect to survive in this world with that cowardly attitude? When I was a student, I wasn't even allowed to argue with seniors, you understand?" Despite this, Arya Prydian anxiously stammered, "I really want to follow your orders, but I can't because of that," he said, pointing at the faintly visible monster before them. Fernan Pellenberg followed the direction of his pointing finger and, astonished, thought to himself, "That's a barca." A massive beast appeared, its two eyes blazing red as it roared ferociously. Fernan Pellenberg found himself in a tight spot and clicked his tongue in irritation. As the beast lunged toward them, he instinctively shouted, "Hide." A blinding explosion sent rocks flying in all directions. Smoke from the blast made Arya Prydian cover his mouth and cough violently, while Fernan Pellenberg merely stood and watched calmly. Hyde appeared like a god when they needed him, shouldering a sword and standing between the two of them, asking with concern, "Are you all right, young master?" Arya Prydian looked at Hyde with shining eyes, admiringly exclaiming that his steward was so cool. Fernan Pellenberg's face remained expressionless as he thought to himself that the barca is described in the field guides on mana beasts and monsters. Its outer hide is as hard as metal, thick and sinewy. Its claws sharper than most swords, razor-pointed, striking with deadly precision. And its jaws could pierce anything, teeth like saw blades, its mouth slick with drool. It's a level 4 mana creature, able to easily take down trolls and ogres. They're on a completely different tier than Sads, only level 8, and right now it stands before them ferocious and real. Sizing up the beast, Fernan Pellenberg fell silent, seeming to vaguely grasp the demon's true intent. Did they bring a barca just to snatch the World Tree Sprig? Those damned demons want us dead, not merely ruined. Thinking that, he tensely asked Hyde, "Can you kill it?" Hyde wouldn't commit, only promised it wouldn't be easy but that he could do it with some time. Hearing that, he proposed to him, "Then I'll stall, kill it," Hyde replied sharply. Arya Prydian didn't understand and asked him, "Where did he go?" "I thought he was going to kill the monster." Fernan Pellenberg had no time for such foolish questions and sternly instructed, "Arya, listen carefully. When I fight, protect me and the World Tree Sprig from the Sads." Arya Prydian, confused, hesitantly asked, "Are you going to fight that thing?" Fernan Pellenberg didn't waste words, only emphasized, "If you don't want to die, follow my orders." Arya Prydian then asked, "But do you have a plan?" Fernan Pellenberg, tense, wagered, "I'll call James, though I don't know if it'll work." Arya Prydian, hearing the unfamiliar name, blankly asked, "James, who's that?" The barca, losing patience, let out a savage roar and lunged forward. Fernan Pellenberg cast a spell with his staff. The orb atop it unleashed a blinding light. A magic circle appeared, and from that circle a figure was pushed outward. Another earth-shattering upheaval occurred here. Arya Prydian saw clearly and cried out in horror, "That is a golem." The golem, controlled by Fernan Pellenberg, gripped a sword, stood firm on the ground, its red eyes fixed on the barca. Fernan's golems pushed the barca back a long distance. Arya stole a glance and thought, "Damn, I knew he could make golems, but controlling them as a second-year student is truly rare." He silently marveled that Fernan was better than he thought. Under Fernan's control, the golem James leaped high and charged at the barca. It brought its sword down with a powerful stroke, However, the Barca blocked the blow with one hand. It even counterattacked, biting back at the golems. He cried out in panic, "James." Vernon ground his teeth and swore through his teeth, "Damn it." He was filled with doubt. What the hell was that thing? After dealing with the golem, the Barca resumed its charge toward where the two stood. Its speed increased, its mouth emitting chilling growls. In that critical moment, Vernon summoned another golem to block the path. Arya exhaled in relief. He's got several golems. Suddenly his eyes went wide in shock. Ahead, besides the Barca battling Vernon's new golems, countless other creatures appeared. Sads. They surged forward. Arya hastily used his staff to form a magic shield to block them. No. He quickly glanced off to one side. The Sads were now closing in on somewhere. Arya panicked. The world tree. He swung his staff in a wide arc toward them and shouted, "Let go." However, the number of Sads remained overwhelming. Arya began to panic. No, I can't. He hurriedly cast a strengthening spell while muttering over and over that he couldn't do it. I can't do it. Arya bravely charged toward the crazed Sads, yelling, "How long do I have to keep this up?" He whipped his staff without stopping, exhausted. "I can't keep this up, I can't." At last, Arya raised his staff high and unleashed a powerful surge of magic. Truly, I can't take it anymore. But in truth, he was doing very well. Meanwhile, Vernon was still focused on fighting the Barca. Arya kept shouting, "Vernon, I've saved your life so many times, so you better properly repay me." He protected Vernon while nagging, "And I'm not talking empty thanks. At least invite me to the yacht club." Receiving no response, Arya despaired, "Are you even listening to me?" Vernon was fully absorbed, pouring everything into controlling the golems, a wizard utterly helpless when commanding golems. Because they perceived the world through the golems' bodies rather than their own, and for that reason I became even more aware that. During the fight, Vernon suddenly realized he had no talent at all for swordsmanship. At that moment, the Barca merely raised a claw and seized the head of the golem he controlled. From that gentle motion, it slammed the golem's body into the ground, and Vernon saw just how slow and fragile golems were against an overwhelmingly powerful monster. He gritted his teeth, holding his mouth to keep from spitting blood, but a dark red streak still seeped from the corner of his lips. Vernon's body collapsed. He barely propped himself up on his staff to stay upright. Damn it. Ahead, the Barca was crushing the golem's head, the third one. He wiped the blood from his hand, thinking that when he used them for mining, he didn't have to concentrate like this, but commanding them in combat was far harder. Still, Vernon didn't give up and summoned another one. "I can't let myself die here." He calculated that he only had 2 golems left now, and his mana was nearly depleted. Vernon vowed silently that he had to hold on until Hyde returned. The Barca still held the corpse of the previous golem in its mouth and glanced upward. Seeing its new opponent, the Barca opened its mouth and spat out the old golem's body. Vernon, controlling the new golem, released the sword from its grip. Better not to use a sword. It only gets in the way when I'm no good with it. He closed his eyes in concentration. I'm going to focus all my senses into the golem, so I can feel it as if it were my own body, man and golem merging into one, a glimmer of hope shining in his eyes. The Barca roared and hurtled forward, each step shaking the ground. Opposite it, the golem Vernon controlled coiled its fist and charged. A tremendous collision made the space erupt, sending countless rocks flying. Behind them, Arya struggled to maintain the protective barrier around him. If this continued, the place would collapse. Oh God. The golem's arm began to crack and break under the Barca's claws. Suddenly, a large boulder fell and struck the monster. Taking advantage of the moment, Vernon commanded the golem to ambush the Barca. A punch landed squarely on the monster's face. The Barca was slammed backwards, thrown several meters away. Not stopping there, he continued to command the golems to fly in and unleash kicking strikes. The Barca began to regain its strength now. Oh my God. It let out a furious roar, rising up from the rubble. The Barca's claw once again seized the golem's head. Vernon silently called Hyde, and he nearly shouted, "How much longer?" As if by telepathy, Hyde immediately appeared in the air with a great sword in his hands. His gaze was icy. One stroke drove the sword straight into the Barca, sending a spray of red blood. The Barca opened its mouth and spewed bright red blood. Hyde kept his grip and drove the sword hard into its body, a crimson light tearing the air apart. He gritted his teeth and poured every ounce of strength into it until the veins stood out on his face. Repeated stabs rained down, dark red liquid gushing violently into the air. Another golem was summoned by Vernon. Despite its wounds, the Barca's eyes still bulged wide. He spoke coldly. The final strike. The golem swung its sword, one cut shearing the Barca's head clean off into the air.